Chapter 855. After all, Tianshu Laozu was only a Dharma adept who had attained the 7th grade golden elixir. If he had not had a fortuitous encounter in his early years, how could he have attained the Dharma stage so quickly, to the point where he was almost on par with Zhenling's 3 truths and 4 spirits? However, the Dharma power that he had attained in the end could not be compared to the Dharma power that the 3 truths and 4 spirits had attained. Although he could not be said to be at the bottom of the early Dharma adepts, he was still one of the weaker ones. Dharma power was different from a practitioner's talent. At the beginning of a practitioner's training, those who were not very talented could still be saved through various methods. However, if the quality of the Dharma power that they attained when they entered the Dharma stage was not high enough, then it would not only affect their future progress in training, but it would also affect the Dharma power of other Dharma adepts of the same level. Lu Ping could tell that this Tianshu Laozu's training method was definitely the same as Tianshu Laozu's. It was the same forest wall of 10,000 trees, and the same profusion of fallen petals. This was especially so for the profusion of fallen petals. If Tianshu Laozu had used it, Lu Ping would have no choice but to retreat. However, now that Tianshu Laozu had used it, it was instantly destroyed by Lu Ping's flying sword and the meteoric power shield of 1,000 poisons. Lu Ping's calm expression had now become so arrogant and insufferably arrogant in the eyes of Tianshu Laozu. This was blatant mockery. Tianshu Laozu suddenly slapped his chest, and a green rock flew out from the space in his heart. This was Tianshu Laozu's Dharma power. The rock raised its head to the sky and let out a shrill cry. It flapped its wings in the sky, and countless feathers once again floated down. It was the same, blossoming petals of fallen petals, but when Grand Ancestor Tianshu cast out his avatar, the power of the blossoming petals of fallen petals was more than doubled. Lu Ping's expression finally turned serious, but only slightly. Countless green and white feather-like objects formed from spiritual qi floated down from the sky. Only Lu Ping knew that these countless feathers looked soft, but in reality, each of them weighed thousands of pounds. When these feathers faced an enemy, they were like moths to a flame, falling on the practitioner's body until they completely crushed the opponent. Truth be told, Lu Ping knew that there was another powerful aspect to this profusion of fallen petals. After the feathers fell on a cultivator's body, they would immediately grow roots to pierce into the cultivator's body, absorbing the spiritual energy within the cultivator's body to nourish the cultivator. It would consume the cultivator's primary energy and magic power, destroying the cultivator's fleshly body. In fact, it could even suck away the cultivator's body until only a withered corpse was left. It was truly a powerful skill that was both beautiful and cruel. Lu Ping spread the myriad meteoric poisons evenly across the surface of his skin. Thanks to the fact that he had absorbed several famous highly poisonous items from the world of cultivation, the quality of the myriad meteoric poisons had risen to the myriad meteoric poisons level. Once the feathers fell on Lu Ping's body, they would be corroded by the myriad meteoric poisons, incapable of piercing into Lu Ping's body. However, because Tianshu Laozu had unleashed his Dharma form, the power of the profusion of fallen petals had greatly increased. The speed at which Lu Ping's myriad meteoric poisons was far slower than the speed at which the feathers fell on his body. Each of the feathers had a weight of thousands of pounds. If it were not for the fact that Lu Ping had paid attention to the improvement of his fleshly body since a long time ago and had swallowed a lot of pills that were used to improve the quality of his fleshly body, perhaps he would not have been able to withstand the power of this skill. For a moment, Tianshu Laozu had the upper hand. However, he could not bring himself to feel proud at all. All he could do was coldly say, "Since you are senior sister Tianling's disciple, I will not punish you for disrespecting your elders. Just return to Tianling Mountain and beg for forgiveness from senior sister Tianling." As soon as Grand Ancestor Tianshu finished speaking, a pitch-black flame suddenly rose from Lu Ping's body. The flickering flame looked like a dancing demon that surrounded Lu Ping. From afar, Lu Ping looked like a demonic cultivator hiding in a black fog. Ah! 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 While Tianshu Laozu was in a daze, the black flame suddenly spread upwards. One by one, the feathers that were falling towards Lu Ping turned into a spiritual flame in the sky. Tianshu Laozu turned pale with fright. This myriad fallen petals divine power used a cultivator's true energy as a guide, condensing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to form this scene of endless falling petals. It was originally the most difficult skill to resolve, but he did not expect that his opponent not only had the myriad poison meteorite energy, which was a rare defensive technique in the cultivation world, but also this strange black flame, which could actually use spiritual energy as firewood. The thicker the spiritual energy, the more intense the burning would be. Tianshu Laozu could clearly feel that the true energy that was attached to the petals was rapidly dissipating due to the burning of this strange black flame. This black flame was a strange item that Lu Ping had obtained in his early years, called the dark prison poisonous flame. Although the quality of this flame was not as good as the myriad poison paste, which was known as the mother of all poisons, in order to improve its quality, it still needed to absorb a large amount of poisonous energy through the burning flame. In the past, when the secret burial ground was opened, the myriad poison paste gathered the poisonous energy inside and condensed many drops of myriad wonder dew, which greatly improved the quality of the dark prison poisonous flame. Both the myriad poison paste and the dark prison poisonous flame could be regarded as the nemesis of Tianshu Laozu's myriad fallen petals' divine power. Naturally, the myriad poison paste was the best at restraining it. However, the myriad poison meteorite energy was extremely difficult to control, while the myriad poison meteorite energy was only a defensive technique. It was more than enough to defend but not enough to attack. Although the quality of the dark prison poisonous flame was slightly inferior to the myriad poison paste, it was much easier to control than the latter. Moreover, the dark prison poisonous flame was originally a violent fire seed, so it was most convenient for Lu Ping to use it to neutralize Tianshu Laozu's divine power. Just as Lu Ping and Tianshu Laozu were fighting, a few rays of light rose from the cave dwelling that Tianshu Laozu had opened on the east coast of Huangli Island. They flew toward Lu Ping's cave dwelling with a murderous aura. Among the rays of light, Yuan Xuanzhan took the lead, his eyes shining with excitement. He had been waiting for this moment for far too long. Previously, because Tianshu Laozu was worried about his reputation, he did not want to lose control of Lu Ping's cave dwelling and the island's protective formation. But this time, Lu Xianping actually dared to openly provoke Tianshu Laozu. This gave Yuan Xuanzhan a reason to take back control of Huangli Island in one fell swoop. Of course, this was only an excuse Yuan Xuanzhan could use to suppress Lu Ping. It could also be used to cover up the thrill of revenge hidden deep in Yuan Xuanzhan's heart after being repeatedly humiliated by Lu Ping. Lu Ping's rise was too fast, so fast that Yuan Xuanzhan, who was also a third-generation disciple, felt despair. He knew that if he wanted to take revenge on Lu Xianping, he would never be able to surpass him no matter how hard he worked. As for the Yuan family, it was just a cultivation family that depended on Jinling. In the past, the Yuan family could be said to be a fence-sitter, waiting for the right price between Jinling and Xianling's sect. But now, the Yuan family could only obediently rely on Jinling's whims to survive. Especially when Lu Ping went missing in the Beast Tide, his teacher, Reverend Lu Xianling, caused havoc in the Yuan family. He single-handedly beat the Yuan family's core forging perfected masters into hiding in the family's ancestral hall, not daring to show their faces. Wasn't that also a warning to Jinling? Otherwise, why didn't Reverend Xianshu, who was also a second-generation disciple of the Yuan family and had always been at odds with Reverend Lu Xianling to help the Yuan family? Yuan Xuanzhan had already thought it through. The Yuan family was ultimately not presentable. If they wanted to become a giant, they could only rely on Jinling and rely on the sect's resources to rise. But if they wanted to deal with Lu Xianping, they would have to rely on a righteous cause. They would also need the help of Jinling's higher-ups, Laozu. Only then would they be able to suppress Lu Xuanping's arrogance. Yuan Xuanzhan had some foresight. He knew that with Lu Ping's strength and influence in Jinling, he was almost invincible among those below the Dharma adept level. Even if there were people who could match him, they would definitely not stand up and challenge the sect leader's disciple. Moreover, this water sword deity was Jinling's third Grandmaster Alchemist. Who would offend a Grandmaster Alchemist for no reason, let alone a Grandmaster Alchemist? Coincidentally, at this time, his uncle had come out of seclusion and become Jinling's second Dharma adept, Laozu. His uncle had always been at odds with Jinling's sect leader, and this immediately gave Yuan Xuanzhan hope. As expected, Tianshu Laozu, who was opposed to Jinling's centralization of power, took advantage of Tianqin Laozu's time to come out of seclusion to take charge of Huangli Island. The biggest disagreement between Tianshu Laozu and Tianling Laozu was because they had a major disagreement on the development of Jinling. Nearly 100 years ago, Reverend Lu Xianling, who was in charge of Jinling sect's affairs, had a fierce conflict with Reverend Xianshu. However, at that time, Reverend Xianshu seized the opportunity and pushed Reverend Lu Xianling down from his position as the sect's deacon. Lu Tianling Laozu was a supporter of Jinling's centralization of power. He believed that only by concentrating Jinling's power in the hands of the sect leader, Jinling's limited resources could be used to quickly cultivate disciples with potential and increase Jinling's strength. At the same time, in the face of the approaching Mara's disaster, only the sect leader could gather enough power to resist Mara's disaster and quickly take measures according to the development of the situation. This way, Jinling's strongest power could be used to minimize the losses. Tianshu Laozu, on the other hand, was a supporter of Jinling's balance of power. At the same time, he was also a supporter of Jinling's tens of thousands of years of inheritance. What he valued more was the balance and restriction of power in Jinling's inheritance and development. He believed that the establishment of a sect leader would greatly damage Jinling's inheritance system. Without restriction and supervision, a sect leader with great power could easily cause the formation of unfair events. Huangli Island was the embodiment of this unfairness. As the last disciple of the sect leader, how could a cultivator who had only cultivated for a little more than 100 years be able to accumulate such a large foundation in the isolated Huangli Island? Did he rely on his own strength? Huangli Island had a large amount of resources for training. The small Huangli Island spirit vein had reached the middle rank. Even most of the medium-sized islands couldn't catch up. Why didn't the sect take back the spirit vein? Was it because he was the sect leader's disciple? Chapter 856. Yuan Xuanzhan took the lead, followed by two more rays of light. These two rays of light belonged to Tianshu Laozu's two disciples, both of whom were at the core forging stage. Behind them were two more rays of light. These two rays of light looked very solid. Obviously they were stronger than the first three rays of light, but for some reason they were lagging behind Yuan Xuanzhan's group. One of the last two rays of light was none other than Taoist Master Xuansu, whom Lu Ping was familiar with. Taoist Master Xuansu was Tianshu Laozu's eldest disciple, and also a disciple that Tianshu Laozu valued as his successor. She was also a well-known cultivator among the third-generation disciples of Jinling. Although she was slightly inferior to Taoist Master Shen Tian, she was still one of Jinling's direct disciples. Otherwise, she would not have been one of the 7 people who accompanied Tianqin Laozu to the Fantasy Spirit City auction. However, Taoist Master Xuansu's heart was very tangled at this time. He was now at the peak of the 7th stage of the core forging stage, and his status in Jinling was even higher than some of the second-generation cultivators in the late core forging stage. He knew some of the secrets of Jinling's higher-ups, and he had some guesses and analysis about his teacher's current situation. Moreover, he had been in contact with Lu Ping for a period of time. He knew that this little junior brother of theirs, who had less than 100 years of cultivation time than them, was really not easy to deal with. Not only did he have endless trump cards in his hands, but he was also no weaker than anyone else. Tianqin Laozu was so arrogant in Jinling that there was almost no junior disciple that she would take seriously, not to mention that he was the disciple of Lu Tianling's martial uncle. However, this junior brother Lu dared to go toe-to-toe with Tianqin Laozu on Jingzhi Island. At that time he was only at the middle core forging stage, but the final result was even more shocking. The two had clashed several times, and it seemed that in the end, Lu Ping had the upper hand, which finally made Tianqin Laozu look at him in a different light. From enlightened Master Shen Su's point of view, a person like Lu Ping would never act rashly in a fit of anger. He would only act calmly after planning. This time, Lu Ping had challenged his teacher, Tianshu Laozu, the moment he returned to Huangli Island. This junior brother Lu must have a trump card that no one knew about. Even if he couldn't turn defeat into victory, he could at least make it so that no one could do anything to the other. However, one should not forget that Tianshu Laozu was still a Dharma adept after all. If they really reached a point where neither of them could do anything to the other, even if neither of them suffered any losses, Tianshu Laozu would still lose. The North Sea practitioners would not say that Lu Ping was taking advantage of Jinling. They would only say that a dignified Dharma adept could not handle a junior practitioner in the core forging stage. Needless to say, after this battle, Lu Xuanping's name as the Aquasword deity would definitely become even more famous in Jinling. Beside enlightened Master Shen Su was another second-generation adept of Jinling, enlightened Master Shen Chang. He was already at the 9th level of the core forging stage and was once in charge of Jinling's criminal law. He could be considered a second-generation adept of Jinling. Like enlightened Master Tianshu, he was also an opponent of Jinling's centralization of power. In the past, he was also one of the masterminds behind enlightened Master Lu Xuanling's downfall from his position as a deacon. At this moment, enlightened Master Shen Chang's face was filled with worry. His worry stemmed from an unintentional warning from Fornax Laozu. Enlightened Master Shen Chang was like Enlightened Master Shen Shu before he entered the Dharma stage. He could be said to be one of the few people who were second only to Jinling's 3 truths and 4 spirits. It was just that Enlightened Master Shen Shu's luck was much better than the others. He was only a few decades behind the 3 truths and 4 spirits, before he successfully entered the Dharma stage. Enlightened Master Shen Chang, on the other hand, did not have the same luck as Enlightened Master Shen Shu. He could only practice step by step. As such, it was extremely difficult to condense a golden core of the 7th grade and above. It was even more difficult to condense a Dharma power. After Enlightened Master Shen Chang had come out of seclusion to guard Huangli Island, Enlightened Master Shen Chang had once gone to consult Fornax Laozu to see if there was any way to help him smelt a heaven-level spirit object and condense a golden core of the 7th grade. This way he would be able to fight for his Dharma power in the future. At that time, Fornax Laozu had hinted to Enlightened Master Shen Chang not to get involved in the affairs of Huangli Island. In his words, he had hinted that whether or not he could smelt a heaven-level spirit object and condense a golden core of the 7th grade depended on Enlightened Master Lu Xianping. However, at that time Enlightened Master Shen Chang did not care. He was only overjoyed because Fornax Laozu had said that he still had hope of advancing to the Dharma stage. As for the method to condense a golden core of the 7th grade, other than finding a suitable heaven-level spirit object, it was nothing more than a secret pill. Since Enlightened Master Lu Xianping could make it, then Uncle Master Fornax and Junior Sister Tianqing could naturally do it as well. Could it be that these 2 experienced alchemists could not compare to Enlightened Master Lu Xianping? However, he had no choice but to regret it now. He had been a part of the upper echelons of Jinling for many years. Although because of the expansion of the number of Dharma adepts in Jinling, he had lost the right to participate in many of the decisions of Jinling. However, his hundreds of years of knowledge and experience allowed him to finally see that Huangli Island was actually a trap. A trap that Lu Tianling Laozu had dug for senior brother Tian Shu in order to completely control Jinling and unify all the opposing voices in Jinling. This pair of master and disciple, one in the light and one in the dark, cooperated with each other and had a tacit understanding. Senior brother Tian Shu had probably already realized this the moment he started to fight for control of Huangli Island. However, at that time he had no choice but to jump into this trap. Moreover, senior brother Tian Shu did not believe that this trap could really bury him. What? Because of her disciple Lu Xianping? Tian Shu Laozu's cold smile was still deeply engraved in Enlightened Master Shen Chang's mind. However, the scene in front of him was still vivid in his mind. The cunning and astute Lu Tianling really did rely on her disciple. What a good Lu Tianling, what a good water sword immortal. Yuan Xuanzhan's escape light suddenly stopped, and then the other escape lights also stopped. Enlightened Master Shen Chang did not understand what was going on. When he looked up, he saw that in front of the door of Lu Ping's cave, there was a burly, bald man looking at them with a mocking expression. Enlightened Master Shen Chang scanned the man with his divine sense and was stunned. The person in front of him was actually a peak core forging cultivator. Without waiting for Enlightened Master Shen Chang's reminder, Yuan Xuanzhan, who was in front of him, stepped forward and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you block the way again?" The bald man stared at Yuan Xuanzhan in amusement for a while, then said, "It's really funny. The few of you want to barge into my master's cave residence, yet you still ask who I am indiscriminately. Are you out of your mind?" This bald man was naturally the lone killer Lei Laolu, Lei Di from the Central Plains. Lu Ping naturally knew that Enlightened Master Shen Chang wasn't the only one guarding Huangli Island. There were bound to be other disciples under his command. Hence, he left 6th brother Lei behind to guard the cave dwelling to prevent Tian Shu Grand Ancestor's disciples from stealing the cave dwelling when he was busy fighting with Tian Shu Grand Ancestor. Only now did Yuan Xuanzhan notice that the person in front of him was actually a peak core forging cultivator. A murderous aura rushed towards him. He didn't know how many people this person had killed, but Yuan Xuanzhan, who had already advanced to the middle stage of core forging, knew that he was definitely not this person's opponent. He wanted to say a few tough words, but he was overwhelmed by the murderous aura. At this time, Enlightened Master Shen Su suddenly took a step forward and stood in front of Yuan Xuanzhan. "You must be joking. With your cultivation, how could you have reached the point of becoming someone's slave?" Lei Laolu smiled bitterly and pointed at the group fighting in the sky. "Didn't he even dare to fight with Dharma Xiang Laozu? What's so strange about me acknowledging him as my master?" Although Enlightened Master Shen Su was unwilling, she still said, "Please step aside. This is my Jinling's matter. This cave must be taken back." Although you are strong, this is my Jinling's territory. If there is a conflict, even junior brother Xianping may not be able to protect you. Lei Laolu sneered disdainfully and did not say anything. He looked at Yuan Xuanzhan and the others with undisguised ridicule. It was obvious that he was mocking them for overestimating themselves. It wasn't just enlightened Master Xian Su who was furious. Behind her, enlightened Master Xianchang was also slightly angered. This was Jinling's territory. How dare an outsider behave atrociously here? Yuan Xuanzhan was the first to lose his cool. Although he was only a mid-core forging cultivator, he knew that the person in front of him was clearly not a Jinling cultivator. As long as he could provoke a melee, no matter how strong this person was, Jinling would never side with an outsider. Perhaps he could even accuse Lu Xianping of colluding with an external enemy. As the saying goes, evil breeds courage. Yuan Xuanzhan stretched out his hand and pushed Lei Laolu. How dare you? Jinling is not a place where you can behave atrociously. Enlightened Master Xian Su was shocked. Just as she was about to stop him, Yuan Xuanzhan had already made his move. A giant spiritual palm formed in front of him and slammed towards Lei Laolu. As soon as Yuan Xuanzhan made his move, the two disciples of Tianshu Laozu also made their moves. Enlightened Master Xian Su and Enlightened Master Xianchang had no choice but to make their move. When Lei Laolu saw that the person in front of him was really going to attack him, a murderous look flashed across his face. Although Lu Ping had ordered him to guard the cave, he hadn't told him to hurt anyone. Lei Laolu had only appeared outside the cave because he wanted to use his peak core forging cultivation to force the person in front of him to retreat. He never thought that these people in front of him would be so arrogant. A few mid-core forging minor repairs dared to attack him. Did they really think that everyone in the cultivation world was Lu Xianping? Yuan Xuanzhan was secretly pleased with himself when he heard Enlightened Master Xianchang and Enlightened Master Xuansu cry out, "Watch out!" A gust of cold wind blew past Yuan Xuanzhan's ear. Before he could understand what was going on, he felt his body tighten. The true essence in his blood vessels was completely sealed. Yuan Xuanzhan was scared out of his wits. When he looked up to see what was going on, his vision went black. Then he felt a sharp pain followed by a feeling of being in the clouds. After that, he didn't know anything else. Chapter 857. Let him go. Enlightened Master Xuansu pointed her natal magic treasure at sixth brother Lei. She looked at Yuan Xuanzhan, who had been captured by sixth brother Lei, as if she would fight to the death at the slightest disagreement. At this moment, Taoist Xianchang took a step forward and said, "Fellow Taoist, if you're really martial nephew Lu's subordinate, then you should naturally know that if anything happens to the person you captured, then I'm afraid it'll be difficult for martial nephew Lu to explain it to him." Although the two of them refused to compromise, sixth brother Lei's ability to capture Yuan Xuanzhan so easily despite the two of them working together was enough to make the two of them gasp. They knew that even if they joined forces, they would still be no match for the person in front of them. However, they couldn't show any weakness at this moment. They could only brace themselves and hold on. Sixth brother Lei smiled innocently and said, "Don't worry, enlightened masters. This kid wants to drag the two of you down with him, but I'm not a reckless person. However, shouldn't the two of you look up at the sky now?" What? Enlightened Master Xuansu and Enlightened Master Xianchang looked at the smiling sixth brother Lei and had a bad feeling. When they looked up, they didn't know when the battle between the two had ended. Speaking of which, Tianshu Laozu's heart palpitated when he saw Lu Ping's strange dark prison poison fire so easily dispelled his ability. However, he couldn't think of anything else now, and Lu Ping wouldn't give him any more time to think. Tianshu Laozu's rock swooped down, a pair of sharp claws reaching out from his abdomen and grabbing at Lu Ping. Tianshu Laozu actually attacked with his Dharma avatar. This was out of Lu Ping's expectations. Although Dharma avatars were powerful, they were most likely to be injured if they were displayed in front of the opponent like this, unless it was a critical moment. Of course, Tianshu Laozu's divine powers and spells were not limited to these, but the ones he used against his enemies were naturally powerful divine powers and spells. However, these spells were easily neutralized by Lu Ping, and Tianshu Laozu himself had not been able to find out the depth of the person in front of him. For a moment, he was at a loss of what to do, and so he directly commanded his Dharma power to attack. This was also because Tianshu Laozu had just entered the Dharma stage and had not done much research on the techniques of the Dharma stage. He also did not have much experience fighting against Dharma stage cultivators. The rock's sharp claws plunged straight into the dark prison poison fire. The strange flames climbed up and burned the rock's golden claws. Tianshu Laozu's face turned pale, and it was obvious that he was in great pain. The rock Dharma form also let out a shrill cry, but its sharp claws were not actually damaged by the poisonous fire, and it continued to claw at Lu Ping's head. Da, da. Two sounds of metal clashing rang out, and the rock circled back into the sky. Lu Ping's My Lady Autumn Dew sword was pulled back. Even though Lu Ping's inner yuan was thick and strong, he was still shaken by the rock's claws. An evil wind came from above, and as the rock circled above Lu Ping's head, its golden beak suddenly pecked at Lu Ping. Lu Ping snorted coldly, and his right hand's middle finger and index finger stretched out. He drew 9 circles at the pecking beak above his head, and streaks of bluish-purple water lines appeared out of thin air above Lu Ping's head. They formed a noose, and coincidentally the rock's extended beak was caught in it. Lu Ping's right hand suddenly made a pulling motion, and the noose formed by the 9 water lines suddenly tightened, binding the rock's beak tightly. In Lu Ping's hands, the art of water control had already reached the acme of perfection. The rock had no choice but to flap its wings, and a hurricane surged out, attacking Lu Ping's head. At the same time, cracks appeared in the surrounding space, and strange vines reached out, wrapping around Lu Ping's body. Countless sword rays that looked like fish scales formed a cocoon around Lu Ping. The surrounding vines and grasses were all killed by the water seep sword skill. A black flag suddenly jumped out of the sword cocoon, and gently waved at the Dharma form rock. Waves of water formed huge water ropes in the sky, wrapping around the rock's wings. Although the rock could easily break the water ropes that wrapped around its body, more and more water ropes wrapped around it. In just a moment the Dharma form rock was swaying in the air. At that moment he suddenly heard Tianshu Laozu mumbling something. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw Tianshu Laozu suddenly looking at him, with one hand pointing to the sky, and the other pointing to Lu Ping. He shouted, "Go!" As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderous sound followed, and it really gave Lu Ping a fright. Before Lu Ping raised his head to look, the violent Yiwood spiritual qi had already condensed in the sky above Lu Ping, and a green lightning roared down, smashing towards Lu Ping's head. Yiwood divine lightning. Lu Ping let out a strange cry. He did not think that Tianshu Laozu would actually be able to practice such a remarkable technique, and it really surprised Lu Ping. Although the Yuan family relied on their thunder techniques to dominate the world, this did not mean that other people in the world of cultivation could not practice it. It was just that because the Yuan family had the blood of Peng Daoren flowing in their veins, they were able to use all the thunder techniques in the world of cultivation, and the power of these techniques was also a level higher than that of ordinary cultivators. Furthermore, they also had many secret techniques that other cultivators did not have, which were passed down through their veins. These were things that ordinary cultivators could not compare to. When other cultivators practiced thunder techniques, they could only choose a type of thunder technique that was related to their own training method, and it was not easy to practice it successfully. However, once they were able to practice it successfully, among the secret techniques in the world of cultivation, although it could not compare to the direct descendants of the Yuan family, it was still an amazing existence. Moreover, it was being used by the hands of a Dharma adept. At this time, even if Lu Ping wanted to hide, there was no use. A pure white lotus grew under his feet, and layers of dense light surrounded Lu Ping. For a moment, to outsiders, Lu Ping looked like a celestial being. As the green lightning fell, it was like cold water falling into a pot of hot oil. The heavens and the earth were boiling, and the green and white lights intertwined. For a moment, the heavens and the earth were only left with these two colors. Tianshu Laozu's expression kept changing as he retracted his rock Dharma power. Suddenly, a peachwood sword appeared in his hand. After thinking about it, he did not use it in the end. He only let the peachwood sword circle around his body, firmly protecting it as he slowly retreated. Under the cover of the green and white light, Lu Ping stood calmly in mid-air, looking at the light that surrounded him. A gourd glowing with 7 colors floated above Lu Ping's head, absorbing the green light from the outer layer of the gourd. The violent light blocked everyone's divine telekinesis, but it did not hinder Lu Ping's divine telekinesis, which was hidden within the light. Seeing Tianshu Laozu put down the peachwood sword in the end and only protected himself with it, Lu Ping put back one of the 2 gentian pearls that were glowing with 5 colors. He thought to himself, "Fine, I'll just make you look bad. Although I can't kill you, if I injure you, it will be hard for teacher to explain to the other Laozu." The green and white light suddenly collapsed. Tianshu Laozu, who was far away, was shocked. He saw that the green and white light was actually merging with each other, and then condensing into a ball of lightning the size of a wicker basket. After the ball of lightning, Lu Ping looked at Tianshu Laozu, who was far away, with a smile on his face. He then pushed the ball of lightning in front of him, and as Tianshu Laozu's expression changed, the ball of lightning flew towards him. Tianshu Laozu did not have time to think about how things had turned out this way. The peachwood sword in front of him sent out 99 rays of sword light in a row. Every ray of sword light gave off a sliver of lightning, and then surrounded the sword light to weave into peach blossoms that flickered with lightning. The 99 lightning peach blossoms set off each other, and actually formed a huge lightning peach tree above Tianshu Laozu's head. The peach tree shook and countless leaves and petals fell from the tree. It was like a hanging curtain protecting Tianshu Laozu. The lightning ball finally collided with the peach tree, and countless lightning bolts jumped and flashed. 49 lightning peach blossoms were struck down, and the peach tree's shadow was mostly destroyed. But before Tianshu Laozu could catch his breath, a bead that shone with 5-colored light had already broken through the shadow of the peach tree, and was heading towards Tianshu Laozu's chest. Tianshu Laozu did not expect Lu Ping to be able to gather enough true essence to use a spirit-nurturing treasure while he was using such a powerful lightning spell. In a state of shock, he reached his hand out towards the shadow of the peach tree. The peach tree sword was pulled out from the trunk, and the shadow of the peach tree, which was mostly destroyed, suddenly disappeared. Only a few dozen lightning peach blossoms were left falling from the tree. The bead that shone with 5-colored light made Tianshu Laozu feel a real sense of danger. Tianshu Laozu tried his best to gather the true essence in his body, and the rock image formed above his head again. The peachwood sword was thrown into the air by Tianshu Laozu, and it fused with the rock's beak. Bolts of lightning suddenly gathered in the rock's mouth, and then shot towards the 5-colored gentian bead. At that moment, a beam of light suddenly flashed in the corner of Tianshu Laozu's eyes, and by the time Tianshu Laozu realized what had happened, the beam of light had already shot into Tianshu Laozu's body. Tianshu Laozu's body suddenly froze, and the true essence in his body could not be used for a moment. Even though Tianshu Laozu was able to break free in a split second, the 5-colored gentian bead took the opportunity to knock away the peachwood sword, and broke through the rock image's lightning. Just as Tianshu Laozu was about to recover, the gentian bead smashed into Tianshu Laozu's shoulder. Arg! Tianshu Laozu screamed, and the true essence in his body shook. He could no longer maintain his floating body and he fell from the sky. Just as sixth brother Lei reminded Shen Su and Shen Chang to look up, they saw Tianshu Laozu screaming in pain as he fell from the sky. The two of them immediately widened their eyes, and their faces were written with, "This is impossible." Chapter 858. From the moment Lu Ping returned to the North Sea and appeared on Tianling Mountain, it wasn't just the practitioners in Jinling, but the practitioners in the entire North Sea who had their eyes wide open, were paying attention to the direction of Huangli Island. They were paying attention to whether the famous third-generation practitioner in the North Sea would be able to take control of Huangli Island from the hands of his elders. Therefore, everyone who was watching this conflict knew that the small Huangli Island was related to the overall direction of the internal affairs of Jinling. It could even directly affect the development of the entire North Sea. Was it a high degree of centralization of power in the sect, or was it to maintain the tradition of the sect and maintain the balance of power in the sect? Jinling's Lu Tianling Laozu had set up such an unfair situation in front of the stunned gazes of all the sects in the North Sea. She handed the decision to her own disciple while she hid behind the scenes. Just when everyone was shocked by Lu Tianling Laozu's decision, some sharp-eyed practitioners realized that although the possibility of Lu Tianling Laozu losing was much higher, even if Lu Tianling Laozu lost, he wouldn't lose the bet of centralization of power. Could it be that Tianshu Laozu, as a senior, was bullying a junior and was influencing his teacher's decision? But what if Lu Tianling's disciple won? A Dharma adept losing to a core forging adept, and to a junior at that? How could Tianshu Laozu have the face to go against Lu Tianling Laozu? Even if he threw away his pride, how many people in Jinling would still be willing to follow him? With a flip of his hand, Lu Tianling Laozu beat him at his own game. He was already in an invincible position. Moreover, everyone knew that Lu Tianling had purposely dug a pit for Tianshu Laozu to jump into. How could a teacher not know his own disciple's capabilities? However, this Lu Shenping was too heaven-defying. He hadn't even reached the golden core stage, but he was able to suppress a Dharma adept with his core forging stage cultivation. For a time, the entire cultivation world of the North Sea was talking about the battle between Lu Shenping, the Aqua Sword Immortal, and Tianshu Laozu. The cultivators who had been isolated from the North Sea for a long time could not imagine how a core forging cultivator would dare to challenge a Transcendence Laozu, let alone defeat this Transcendence Laozu. It was like a fantasy. Immediately, some busybodies spread the news that the reason why perfected Master Lu Xianping was like that was because he had just returned from his travels in the Middle Earth. The Middle Earth was the holy land of the cultivation world, and even the Eastern Sea cultivation world was inferior to it. Lu Xianping, the water sword immortal, must have had an extraordinary encounter in the Middle Earth. That was why he was so powerful and could challenge the Fa Xiang Laozu with his core forging cultivation. For a time, the North Sea's cultivation world was filled with yearning for the Middle Earth's cultivation world. Ever since the destruction of Fei Ling's sect, the North Sea's cultivation world and the Middle Earth's cultivation world had lost direct contact for 4,000 years. In these 4,000 years, only the top disciples of the big sects in the North Sea had been lucky enough to travel to the Middle Earth through the East Sea. They brought back bits and pieces of news about the Middle Earth's cultivation world or some recent news about the Middle Earth's cultivation world from the East Sea's cultivation world. However, when it came to understanding the Middle Earth's cultivation world, even Jinling, who had built a stronghold in the Yingshan mountain range, was not so arrogant. The fact that Lu Ping had defeated Tianshu Laozu in a head-on battle had also caused a huge uproar in Jinling. Although Tianshu Laozu had been beaten to the ground by Lu Ping's Genshin Pearl and had lost all his face, he knew that Lu Ping had shown him mercy. Otherwise, he would have been severely injured at the very least. The two enlightened masters Shen Su and Shen Chong helped him up from the ground. The pale-faced Tianshu Laozu circulated the essential vitality in his body and realized that he was not seriously injured. He cast a resentful and complicated gaze at Lu Ping, who was in the sky, and said in a low voice, "Let's go." They did not even bother to pack up the cave abode on the east coast. The group left Huangli Island in a hurry. Lu Ping did not stop them. Tianshu Laozu's hurried departure immediately caused a commotion on Huangli Island. After a while, many of the patrolling cultivators on Huangli Island left. After a while, some of the cultivators who ran shops on the island also saw that the situation was not good and packed up their belongings to run away. These people were the ones who had begged Tianshu Laozu and his disciples to do business on Huangli Island after Tianshu Laozu took control of Huangli Island. Some of them even used Tianshu Laozu's deterrence to force many of the old shops on Huangli Island to leave. Now that the change of ownership of Huangli Island was a foregone conclusion, these cultivators who were worried about Lu Ping's revenge did not dare to stay any longer. One by one they put down their errands and businesses and left Huangli Island. Lu Ping returned to his cave abode. From afar, he saw sixth brother Lei standing at the entrance of his cave abode with Yuan Xuanzhan in his hand. Lu Ping smiled and walked towards sixth brother Lei. Yuan Xuanzhan had plotted against Lu Ping several times in the past, especially when he almost kidnapped Hu Lili in the open sea, causing him to die in the beast tide. Although Lu Ping did not have any direct evidence and Lu Tianling Laozu had also caused trouble in the Yuan family, it did not mean that Lu Ping was willing to let him go. It was just that Lu Ping had a lot of things to do in the complicated relationships in the sect. On top of that, Lu Tianling Laozu had just ascended to the position of sect master. Lu Ping did not want to affect his master's plan to take control of the sect, so he had been tolerating it. However, now that Lu Ping had reached this stage, when he looked back at the Yuan family, he really looked like a clown. Even with Tianshu Laozu's support, if Lu Ping insisted on destroying the Yuan family, not many people could stop him. What a joke. Now that Lu Ping was a force in Jinling who could defeat a Dharma adept. Who in the North Sea cultivation world would dare to treat him as a core forging adept? After this battle, Lu Ping's status in Jinling would definitely rise. Although he might not be able to be on the same level as Tianqing, Tianshan, and Tianfeng Laozu due to his seniority, any decision made in Jinling would probably not be able to bypass Lu Ping. This was the status that came with power. And Lu Tianling Laozu, as the sect master, would definitely have more control over the sect because of his disciple. Once Tianlin Laozu passed his first Dharma tribulation and reached the mid-Dharma stage, Jinling would officially enter the era where the second generation of disciples would take over Jinling. Sixth brother Lei looked at Lu Ping and laughed. Now that you mention it, it's funny. The North Sea cultivation world is really like a bunch of country bumpkins who have never seen the world. When they saw that you defeated a Dharma adept, they were even more shocked than if they had seen a ghost. Lu Ping smiled and said, "The North Sea has been isolated for a long time. At most, they have only had some contact with the East Sea cultivation world. Not many people know that there are different levels of Dharma adepts of the same level. My uncle Master Tianshu is just one of the weaker early Dharma adepts. Defeating him is nothing to brag about. Sixth brother Lei pointed at Lu Ping and laughed. You're being unreasonable. You're a guy who even dares to fight a mid-Dharma adept. Even Fan Yuqing died at your hands. Naturally, you wouldn't care about early Dharma adepts. What I find strange is that in a place as barren as the North Sea, there's something strange about you. Lu Ping smiled and said, Brother Lei, don't be so pretentious. With Brother Lei's strength, even in the big sects in the Central Plains, you're one of the strongest direct disciples. Even in the 5 Holy Lands with Brother Lei's assassination skills, you might be able to fight against the direct disciples. But now you're laughing at me. Sixth brother Lei stopped joking and said seriously, You've made your uncle master suffer such a huge loss and lost so much face in the cultivation world. Yet you let him go. Aren't you afraid that he'll seek revenge in the future? You must know that it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to defend against a stab in the dark. Although you're powerful, you're still not at the peak of the cultivation world. There are plenty of people who can defeat you. Lu Ping shook his head and said, Brother Lei, I can't kill him. My fight with Uncle Master Tianshu is only about the inheritance of the sect and the way to expand. It's not a fight to the death. If I really kill him, the Jinling sect will definitely fall into internal strife. The Laozu, especially the first Laozu, will definitely interfere. When that happens, all of Master's plans will be for naught. What's more, this person had the chance to kill me in the past, but in the end he didn't take the opportunity to settle this personal grudge. No matter what, I should let him go. Sixth brother Lei shook his head, clearly not approving or disapproving of Lu Ping's methods. Instead, he threw Yuan Xuanzhan to the ground and said, This guy took advantage of the time when you were fighting to seize the cave. I'm afraid he even planned to kidnap your wife. After I stopped him, he even tried to drag the core forging cultivators behind him into the water in an attempt to besiege me. Now that I've captured him, you can deal with him as you see fit. Lu Ping thought for a moment, then extended a finger and pointed at the unconscious Yuan Xuanzhan on the ground. A golden mist instantly entered Yuan Xuanzhan's chest. The intense pain woke Yuan Xuanzhan from his coma. He felt as if his body was being bitten by countless things, causing him to roll on the ground. What did you do to me? The intense pain did not affect Yuan Xuanzhan's rationality. Have you heard of the myriad poison serum? When Lu Ping's words entered Yuan Xuanzhan's ears, it was as if a devil was teasing him. Haha, you're willing to use such a precious thing to kill me? Amidst his shrill and hoarse roar, Yuan Xuanzhan finally made his meaning clear. Sixth brother Lei revealed a trace of admiration and said, You have some tough bones. Lu Ping did not show the slightest expression on his face towards Yuan Xuanzhan, who had been tortured like a ghost by the myriad poison meteorite qi. Instead, he continued in a cold voice, Do you know of the 8 Scenic Restaurant? The pain in Yuan Xuanzhan's body had already subsided. Although he did not know why Lu Ping was still alive after injecting the myriad poison serum into his body, when he heard Lu Ping's words, he suddenly raised his head and said, You're not going to kill me? Lu Ping ignored his astonishment and said, The golden mist I injected into your core space is not the myriad poison serum, but the myriad poison meteorite qi that I refined. You come from the Yuan family, so you must have some knowledge. You should know that your life is in my hands. Unless your cultivation surpasses mine in the future, your life is in my hands. Even a great cultivator cannot save you. Chapter 859. Why don't you just kill me? Yuan Xuanzhan finally stood up in front of Lu Ping. By now, he had calmed down and was staring at Lu Ping with a pair of dark eyes. Lu Ping shook his head. Lung Qian might not be Master's favorite, but she's still my senior sister. You're her Dao companion, so I won't kill you. In the future, you'll be on duty in the Baiying Tower. What big words. The Baiying Tower is a great treasure that Tianlin Laozu found outside. You, Lu Shenping, can send me there with a single word. Do you really think that Jinling belongs to your family? Lu Ping sneered. Although Jinling doesn't belong to my family, the Baiying Tower is mine. If I put someone in there, not even Senior Grandmaster Tianxiang can say anything. Yuan Xuanzhan stared at Lu Ping dumbfounded. When Tianlin Laozu brought the Baiying Tower back to the sect, it had caused quite a stir. The Baiying Tower was a treasure between a treasure and a heavenly grotto heaven. In terms of quality, it might not be as good as a true heavenly grotto heaven treasure, but it only had 2 real functions. One was to suppress like a prison to imprison opponents in the tower. The other was a trial. The 8 Scenic Tower could create different illusions by placing different spiritual treasures. Moreover, these illusions were extremely realistic, as if they were different worlds. It could also evolve into different beasts and birds of prey according to the grade of the spiritual treasures. It was an excellent place for disciples to train. This was especially true for the second function. The sect would nurture some disciples to be used, but none of them had any knowledge or experience. They only knew how to follow the instructions, so how could they have any future? Those divine abilities and magical arts could only be mastered through life and death battles. However, if these disciples were to be sent out to train, it was unknown how many losses they would suffer each time. If these disciples could train in the 8th Scenic Tower before being sent out, it would be extremely beneficial to their growth and training. Only the great sects with deep foundations would have a place like the Baiying Tower. Junling had once tried to refine a similar treasure, but the method to refine such treasures was usually forbidden by the great sections. Junling had no way of obtaining it. Moreover, the amount of spirit materials and energy needed to refine such a treasure was no less than refining a similar type of heavenly grotto heaven treasure. For Junling, this was an unbearable burden. Yuan Xuanzhan never thought that the Baiying Tower that Jinling Laozu regarded as the sect's treasure was actually Lu Ping's. Looking at Lu Ping's matter-of-fact expression, Yuan Xuanzhan couldn't bring himself to suspect anything. Moreover, Lu Ping wasn't lying to him. Seeing Yuan Xuanzhan disappear into the teleportation formation, sixth brother Lei, who had been muttering to himself, suddenly asked, "Is that Baiying Tower something from the Surplus Heavens sect?" Lu Ping curiously looked at sixth brother Lei and asked, "How did brother Lei know?" Sixth brother Lei chuckled and didn't say anything. Lu Ping knew that he didn't want to say something, so he didn't ask him again. At this time, sixth brother Lei opened his mouth and said, "You want him to be a guard?" When sixth brother Lei revealed the origins of the Baiying Tower, Lu Ping already knew that sixth brother Lei knew many of its secrets. Thus, he wasn't surprised to hear sixth brother Lei mention the Baiying Tower's guard. Lu Ping nodded and said, "His cultivation is at the 5th layer of core forging, so he can be a guard on the 5th layer." Sixth brother Lei said doubtfully, "It seems that the Baiying Tower has already been brought back to Zhenling. Didn't the Laozu arrange for guards on each layer to be responsible for the disciples' trials and to suppress the cultivators imprisoned in the tower? Aren't you afraid of offending the Laozu by arranging for him to be there?" Lu Ping glanced at sixth brother Lei and said, "Keep your thoughts to yourself. Since I'm making an example out of Yuan Xuanzhan, it's not just for one person. This time I'm just a pawn. But after suppressing Tian Shu, it means that I can also be a pawn in the sect. I'll demote Yuan Xuanzhan to 8th Scenic Pavilion, and the sect's grand ancestor will definitely give in." Sixth brother Lei gave a thumbs up and said, "You're awesome. You've established your prestige in front of your Laozu." Lu Ping chuckled and said, "What else can I do? This time it was the Laozu who used me as a spear. No matter what, I have to compensate them. Besides, I've already refined the stone tablet on the 8th layer of the Baiying Tower, so the final decision of the guard arrangement lies with me." Sixth brother Lei looked at Lu Ping walking towards the cave dwelling and murmured, "I knew you were a cunning brat." The two entered the cave dwelling and saw Hu Lili and Linglong chatting passionately. Linglong's wine cauldron had already stopped spinning. The mid-sized spirit vein that Tianshu Laozu had previously moved to the east coast had now been reversed by Linglong's wine cauldron. It had been drawn back and suppressed under the cave dwelling to prevent it from flowing away. Lu Ping nodded at Hu Lili and said, "Since the spirit vein has been taken back, you still have to take care of the formation. Let's go according to the original distribution." The many cultivators on Huangli Island had yet to recover from the shocking battle above Huangli Island when they suddenly heard a muffled rumbling sound coming from the ground below Huangli Island. Just when everyone was at a loss, a cultivator with a keen divine sense suddenly exclaimed, "The spiritual energy is rising again." The concentration of spiritual energy on Huangli Island is rising. Spiritual Master Lu Xianping has taken back the spirit vein. Those branch veins must be full of spiritual energy now. Doesn't that mean those abandoned cave dwellings can be used for cultivation again? Speaking of which, Spiritual Master Lu Xianping is really generous. Not only did he deliberately draw out a few small spirit veins to build cave dwellings for cultivators to cultivate, he also used the spiritual fields as a medium to spread the spiritual energy in the spirit veins through the island's protective formation. This caused the concentration of spiritual energy on the entire Huangli Island to be twice as high as other places. No wonder Huangli Island can attract so many cultivators. Many cultivators swarmed towards the few small spirit veins that Hu Lili had deliberately left behind to benefit the cultivators on the island. Since the spirit veins on the island were once again under spiritual master Lu Xuanping's control, the cave dwellings on those branch veins must have become delicious cakes. The faster you move, the less you move. A few days later, the attentive cultivators found that the concentration of spiritual energy on the entire Huangli Island seemed to be increasing slowly even after it had returned to its previous level. Just when many cultivators were secretly wondering about it, news came from the disciples stationed at Jinling Island that the concentration of spiritual energy on Huangli Island would double from the original basis. Furthermore, they would also draw out a few branch veins from the spirit veins on the west coast to build cave dwellings for cultivators to rent. When the news came, all the cultivators on Huangli Island rushed to spread the news. The number of people coming and going on Huangli Island suddenly increased by 20%. If it wasn't for the fact that the area of Huangli Island was really limited, and the fact that the spiritual energy gathering area on the island had been used by the outer disciples of Jinling sect to plant various spiritual grains and herbs instead of being used to expand the market area of Huangli Island, the number of people on Huangli Island might be even more terrifying. In the cave dwelling, Hu Lili said worriedly, "Are we being a little too extravagant? Ever since the spirit veins on the island gathered into a middle-sized spirit vein, we've been searching everywhere for years, but we've only hidden a small spirit vein secretly without being discovered by Uncle Tianshu. If we continue to use it like this, 1/10 of the entire spirit vein will be given to others for free." Lu Ping smiled and said, "How can we give it to others for free? The cave dwellings on those branch veins can at least recover a batch of spiritual stones, right? As for increasing the concentration of spiritual energy on the entire island, that's just a gimmick. How much resources can we waste from the spirit vein?" Hu Lili said, "We have to take care of our own cultivation first. Although half of the middle-sized spirit vein is enough for us to cultivate on a daily basis, don't forget that you still have a few little guys with you. Which one of them is easy to deal with? You have a lot of friends from the same sect. Sometimes they need to practice their supernatural powers and secret techniques, and sometimes they need to go into closed-door cultivation. However, they can't wait to go to the sect, so they have to come to you to borrow the spirit vein. In this way, a middle-sized spirit vein is barely satisfactory. If several of us go into closed-door cultivation at the same time, I'm afraid we won't even have enough for ourselves." Lu Ping glared at sixth brother Lei, who had been watching Lu Ping being scolded and gloating. He rubbed his chin and said with a chuckle, "Don't worry, look at what this is." After saying that, Lu Ping took out a few boxes from his storage artifact and lifted the spirit-locking talisman on them. A few round and crystal-clear beads appeared in front of Hu Lili. Spirit-gathering beads? Why are there so many of them? Hu Lili looked at the rolling spirit-gathering beads in the box and asked in surprise. There were 9 small-sized spirit-gathering beads in the box. They were the 4 that Lu Ping had obtained from the Fist Valley in Yingshan Mountain Range and the 3 that he had obtained from Sangyu at the Underground Trade Fair in Tianxian Ancient City. In addition, Linglong had also condensed some of the small-sized spirit-gathering beads into 2 small-sized spirit-gathering beads. Other than the 9 spirit-gathering beads, there were also 5 small-sized spirit-gathering beads. These were the leftover beads that Linglong had used to fuse with the small-sized spirit-gathering beads. Hu Lili happily kept these spirit-gathering beads and said, "That's great. With this, Huangli Island can have 2 middle-sized spirit veins. The remaining small-sized spirit veins can be rented out again. At the same time, it can also increase the density of the spiritual energy in the entire Huangli Island and attract more cultivators." Hu Lili set up a formation in the center of the cave abode and placed the 9 small-sized spirit-gathering beads in different positions on the formation plate. Dense spiritual energy quickly filled the cave abode. This was a spirit fusion formation that could accelerate the speed at which the spirit-gathering beads were transformed into spirit veins. Under normal circumstances, it would take a year to catalyze a spirit-gathering bead into a spirit vein. However, with the support of the spirit fusion formation, it would only take 3 months for the transformation to be completed. Of course, this spirit fusion formation could not be casually set up. One could tell just by looking at the dozens of high-grade spirit stones embedded around the formation plate. Moreover, these spirit stones had to be changed from time to time as the formation operated. Chapter 860. The spiritual qi concentration on Huangli Island continued to rise. News of the quality of the spirit veins on the island also spread. The number of cultivators traveling between Huangli Island and the North Sea increased again. Many cultivators began to try to obtain the right to live on Huangli Island for a long time. If not for the limited area of Huangli Island, the daily flow of people on Huangli Island would have already exceeded 5,000. The most obvious change was on a highland on the west coast, where the patrolling disciples of Zhenling's sect had once again opened up a few more cave abodes. 5 mini-energy veins were drawn out from the main energy vein on the island to supply the energy needs of these cave abodes. The pace of construction on Huangli Island did not stop. A huge magic formation was laid down in the center of Huangli Island under Taoist Master Mystic Fox's command. Not long after, another piece of news came from Huangli Island. The magic formation in the center of Huangli Island was set up to draw in the nearby islands. Huangli Island would expand again. After the news spread, many cultivators and forces in the North Sea turned their attention to Huangli Island again. Huangli Island was now one of the few prosperous islands in the North Sea. The abundant cultivation resources in the outer sea attracted the North Sea cultivators to explore the hinterland of the North Sea monster race. Previously, due to the limitations of Huangli Island, it could not accommodate too many cultivators going out to sea. This time, the expansion of the island would definitely usher in a new wave of North Sea cultivators. Huangli Island itself would also become more prosperous. Just as the cultivators on Huangli Island were guessing who would be the one presiding over the magic formation to merge the islands and expand the area of Huangli Island, an even more shocking piece of news came out. The person presiding over the magic formation this time was actually the island lord of Huangli Island, Taoist Master Lu Xianping, the Water Sword Immortal. It should be noted that those who could expand the area of an island in the ocean were mostly cultivators who had mastered rare secret techniques or earth attribute techniques. There were very few cultivators who practiced earth attribute techniques in the ocean to begin with. It was even rarer to see someone who could master a technique that could expand the area of an island. Last time, Lu Ping invited Taoist Master Guoxianshan to use the great technique of moving mountains and filling seas to double the area of Huangli Island. Even so, Huangli Island was still a miniature island. This time, the spirit veins on Huangli Island had grown to the level of 2 mid-sized spirit veins. Trying to nurture a single mid-sized spirit vein on a small island was already too much to bear, resulting in a lot of wastage. This was also the reason why Tianshu Laozu insisted on taking back the spirit veins. Now that the 2 medium-sized spirit veins were gradually taking shape, it was even more urgent to expand the area of Huangli Island. Moreover, this time Huangli Island had to be expanded into a small island to be able to bear the burden of the 2 medium-sized spirit veins. Previously, many cultivators thought that Lu Ping would once again invite Guotianshan Laozu to use the moving mountains and filling seas divine power to expand Huangli Island. After all, Laozu Tianshan was now a Dharma form Laozu. When he used this great divine power, its power would definitely be much stronger than before. It would be enough to double the size of Huangli Island. However, there were still many cultivators who thought that perfected Lu Xianping would invite Tiankang Laozu to come and preside over the great formation. These cultivators had good reasons for doing so. Perfected Lu Xianping was now like the sun in the sky in Jinling. Even Dharma form Laozu had been defeated by him. In the future, the development of Huangli Island would definitely prosper. If Huangli Island was only expanded to a small island, what if one day perfected Lu Xianping found another medium-sized spirit vein? Would Huangli Island not expand further? Naturally, perfected Lu Xuanping's foresight was not that short-sighted. Therefore, he would definitely invite Tiankang Laozu, who was a mid-Dharma form, to use the even more powerful moving mountains and filling seas divine power, to directly expand Huangli Island to the level of a medium-sized island. However, now that there was suddenly news that perfected Lu Xianping was the one presiding over the great formation, it was inevitable that all the cultivators on Huangli Island looked at each other. Everyone knew that perfected Lu Xianping practiced water-based techniques. How could he use them to expand Huangli Island? If it was said that perfected Lu Xianping could use his divine power to completely submerge Huangli Island in the sea, perhaps many people would believe it. Tianling Mountain, Guotianshan Laozu's cave. Guotianshan Laozu looked at Chu Tianqing Laozu in front of him with some surprise and asked, "Junior brother, you just returned to the North Sea not long ago. Didn't you say that you would stay for half a year to train the disciples? Why are you returning to Yingshan Immortal Academy now?" Chu Tianqing Laozu's expression was slightly awkward as he said, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things that I have not dealt with in the Central Plains. Moreover, I am a little worried about senior brother Liang overseeing the Immortal Academy alone, so I have to go and take a look in advance. As for the few disciples under me, I have already taught a few of them. This time, Shen Yong is planning to bring him to the Central Plains to see the world, and I have already gotten senior sister Tianling's approval. Guotianshan Laozu looked at him suspiciously and said, I always feel that you have something that you are not telling us. Don't tell me that you ran away because of the fight with martial nephew Xianping? Chu Tianqing Laozu opened his mouth and said, How do you know? Then he seemed to realize something and immediately changed his words, shouting loudly, How could I run away? Isn't it because there are still some things that I have not dealt with in the Central Plains? Looking at Guotianshan Laozu's mocking gaze, Chu Tianqing Laozu helplessly sighed and said, You have also seen that senior brother Tianshu was defeated by him so easily. Although I have defeated senior brother Tianshu, it is extremely difficult for me to defeat him as easily as that brat. In that case, the old man really does not have the confidence to defeat him. Moreover, that brat has endless tricks up his sleeves. Who knows if he still has some trump cards that he has not shown. If I really fall into his trap, the reputation of the old man will be ruined just like senior brother Tianshu. Guotianshan Laozu laughed and said, This does not sound like something that Thunderfire would say. But it is indeed not the right time for you to fight with him. After all, he is a junior and he is very powerful now. If you really fight with him, regardless of the outcome, it will be troublesome if senior sister Tianling misunderstands. Tianqing Laozu was stunned and said, No way, you and I have always been neutral. I have never supported brother Tianshu. Senior sister Tianling believes you, but others may not, especially those who oppose the establishment of a sect leader. Tianqing Laozu said solemnly, No way. At this point they still want to fight? Why doesn't Uncle Master Tianxiang do something about it? Guotianshan Laozu smiled bitterly and said, They can't win now, but that doesn't mean they have given up. They are waiting for senior sister Tianling to make a mistake. Tianqing Laozu sighed and said, I hope this will not affect the development of the sect. Tianshan Laozu shook his head and said, They won't. Our sect is already established in the North Sea. They are only fighting over the speed at which our sect rises and the long-term layout in the future. Both sides are people who know the big picture, so they won't mess up. Moreover, Uncle Master Tianxiang is in charge. As long as he is there will be no internal strife in our sect. Then what if that day really comes, what level do you think senior brother Tianlin will reach? Oh, that's true. Uncle Master Tianxiang has at least 400 to 500 years left to live. With senior brother Tianlin's talent, I'm afraid he has already become a grand cultivator. Don't forget about senior sister Tianling and junior sister Tianqin. Both of them also have a chance to go through the second Thunder Tribulation, especially senior sister Tianling. Ever since she entered the Dharma phase, her cultivation and strength seem to have grown more and more unimaginable. Otherwise, junior sister Tianqin wouldn't have gone into seclusion to cultivate. That's true. They have been fighting for hundreds of years. It would be strange if one of them gave up. But senior brother, you seem to have missed one person. Tianshan Laozu looked at Tianqing Laozu in confusion. Then he came to a realization and said, You mean junior nephew Xianping? Although it's extremely difficult to become a grand cultivator in 500 years, with junior nephew Xuanping's current condition, it's very likely that he will pass through the first Thunder Tribulation. Tianqing Laozu laughed. He can already defeat an early Dharma adept. When the time comes, even if he is only a mid-Dharma adept, which grand cultivator would dare to look down on him? Tianshan Laozu laughed. That's true. At the same time, in another cave abode on Tianling Mountain, Tianshu Laozu sat down with an ashamed look on his face. In front of him was Tianfan Laozu, who was trimming a bush of flowers. Teacher, are we just going to let it go like this? Ancestor Tianfan placed the scissors he used to trim his plants to one side. He picked up a flask of spiritual water and slowly poured it over the plants. He said slowly, Don't tell me you still haven't given up? Tianshu Laozu's expression changed. In the end, he said fiercely, I didn't expect that senior sister Lu Tianling would be so calculative, and that disciple of hers is even more demonic. I'm useless and I've embarrassed you, teacher. Ancestor Tianfan put down the water bottle in his hand and glanced at the dispirited ancestor Tianshu. He said, Weren't you scheming against her as well? If junior niece Tianling wasn't scheming enough, she wouldn't have had a chance to become the sect master. Since you've lost to her, it just means that we've made a good choice in choosing the sect master. Ancestor Tianfan pulled down a towel from the wooden rack beside him. As he wiped his hands, he said, Since you've lost, martial niece Tianling's influence in our sect has already been established. Her position as sect master is in jail. Tianfan Laozu threw the towel on the wooden rack and glanced at Tianshu Laozu. He added, She's in jail for stepping on your shoulders. Seeing Tianshu Laozu laugh bitterly, Tianfan Laozu then continued, "As for that Xianping kid actually being able to defeat you, although it surprised the old man a little, it's still within reason. It's a pity that you haven't been to the central mainland. The North Sea training world has ultimately limited your vision. If you've been to the central mainland in your early years, you'd know that it's not uncommon for a late core forging disciple to go up against an early Dharma adept in the central mainland. Of course, to be able to defeat a Dharma adept, that kid Xianping must at least be at the same level as the top disciples from the 5 Holy Lands and the Crystal Palace." At this point, Tianfan Laozu suddenly paused. He saw a small door open in the air in front of Tianfan Laozu, and a jade scroll floated out from the door. Tianfan Laozu took it and looked at it. He sighed and said, 8 Sceneries Restaurant? From now on, there's another person in our sect who can play chess. And it's someone who even the few of us old fellows have to give in to. Chapter 861. Tianshu Laozu looked at Tianfan Laozu suspiciously. Tianfan Laozu looked at him and said, "Take it and see for yourself." "What?" Tianshu Laozu used his will to look at the jade scroll and said angrily, "How dare he? The Buying Tower is an important place in our sect. How can he interfere? Why can't he interfere?" Tianfan Laozu stared at Tianshu Laozu and said, "Why can't he interfere?" Tianshu Laozu was discouraged by Tianfan Laozu's stare. He calmed down and said, "He's just a 3rd-generation disciple. He hasn't even reached the Dharma stage. How can he interfere with the Buying Tower? The Buying Tower concerns our sect. Even in our sect, only the 1st-generation uncles Lu Tianling and Jiang Tianlin have the authority to control it. What right does this kid have?" Tianfan Laozu saw that Tianshu Laozu was hesitant when he said that he hadn't even reached the Dharma stage. He sighed. Although this disciple in front of him was the most outstanding disciple in his sect, it would be hard for him to improve his skills in the future. Tianfan Laozu said in a low voice, "What right? Defeating you is the right." Tianshu Laozu's face changed, but Tianfan Laozu's words still reached his ears. "He has already suggested to the sect that we don't need a Dharma adept to guard Huangli Island for now." Tianshu Laozu's face was still dark, but this time he did not say much. He only said, "Xianzhan is my nephew in the Yuan family. He is also the hope of the Yuan family." "Teacher, do you think?" Tianshu Laozu said, "Do you know why Tianling disciple caused such a ruckus in the Yuan family but in the end nothing happened? On top of Huangli Island, the huge magic array was completely activated because Lu Ping had placed a best-grade spirit stone into the groove under his feet. The entire magic array first issued a loud rumbling sound, then began to violently tremble. It didn't take long before the entire Huangli Island began to tremble along with the spirit array. Looking from afar, the entire Huangli Island looked like a lid on a kettle, rising and falling along with the waves of the sea. Lu Ping took a step and a rich purple-blue light burst out from beneath his feet. With Lu Ping as the center, threads of true essence permeated through the entire array formation in all directions. The entire formation began to emit a pale blue radiance. As the radiance flickered, the entire Huangli Island seemed to have transformed into a huge blue gemstone. How is perfected Lu Xianping planning to expand Huangli Island? At this time in the sky above Huangli Island, there were at least 100 adepts who had obtained residency rights on Huangli Island, observing Lu Ping's technique. It was just that no matter how hard they tried, they could not understand what kind of remarkable power Lu Ping was going to use. Because of Lu Ping's technique, Huangli Island had closed its market and the teleportation portals. Hence, there were only 100 or so people who had obtained residency rights on Huangli Island. Most of these people had passed Jinling's inspection, and most of them belonged to Jinling's outer sect disciples, affiliated clans, powers, and a portion of non-affiliated adepts. Expanding the surface area of an island was a top-notch remarkable technique. Even a normal Dharma adept would find it difficult to use it. Hence, the people on the island naturally did not want to miss out on such a grand occasion. Just as Lu Ping was activating the entire magic array, causing the entire Huangli Island to shake, a black flag suddenly rose above Lu Ping's head. The black water-controlling flag expanded with the wind until it was at least 10 feet long and 9 feet wide. The huge flag fluttered in the wind. One after another, black ripples spread out from the surface of the water-controlling flag, spreading out towards the sea around Huangli Island. As the ripples entered the sea, the surface of the sea was instantly set off layer after layer of waves. These waves piled up higher and higher, and finally retreated towards the sea with Huangli Island as the center, creating huge waves that grew taller and taller. As the seawater flowed in all directions, the surface of Huangli Island that was close to the sea was completely exposed. The waves were pushed away by the ripples of the water-controlling flag for nearly 3 miles, causing the surface area of Huangli Island to increase by 6 miles in an instant. What is Perfected Lu doing now? Is he going to drain all the seawater around Huangli Island? But once he stops the technique, won't the seawater that he drained flow back into the island? Although the surrounding cultivators were shocked that Lu Ping was able to push away the seawater around Huangli Island by 3 miles with the help of the formation and his own power, they still had no idea what method Lu Ping was going to use to expand the area of Huangli Island. However, many of them looked at the huge flag fluttering in the wind above Lu Ping's head and said enviously, "This flag is obviously just a spiritual magical treasure, but I never expected it to have such power." Just when everyone was feeling puzzled, a huge 9th-grade lotus suddenly bloomed under Lu Ping's feet. Countless milky white rays of light condensed and spread out in all directions along with the blooming of the lotus, eventually forming 12 white beams of light that shone evenly in 12 directions around Huangli Island. The entire Huangli Island suddenly shook. A few shops on the island that were not very sturdy also collapsed due to the shaking of the island. Even though these shops were originally protected by their own enchantment arrays, they could not resist the shaking of Huangli Island. At this time, how could Lu Ping still care about the collapsed shops? This was the critical moment for him to perform the Great Sea in mulberry fields, and also the moment for him to demonstrate his power to the entire cultivation world of the North Sea. Wave after wave of bluish-purple energy surged towards the white jade lotus under Lu Ping's feet. On the petals of the white jade lotus, one after another, mysterious runes flickered with a mysterious luster as Lu Ping's energy surged. Gradually, a huge formation was formed on the surface of the lotus. 12 beams of light shot out from the lotus, resonating with the 12 gentian pearls that Lu Ping had set up on the island. Finally, Lu Ping's art of mulberry fields was unleashed to the extreme. Lu Ping pushed his palm outwards and shouted, "Calm the sea." The seawater that had been pushed 3 miles away by the water-controlling flag suddenly stopped flowing back, forming a vertical wall of water 3 miles away from Huangli Island. From afar, it looked as if the entire North Sea had become a sea on the ground. The cultivators who were floating in the air and watching Lu Ping's technique exclaimed in unison. The seawater that had been pushed away by Lu Ping was now hundreds of millions of kilograms in weight, but it was easily blocked by Lu Ping for several miles. However, Lu Ping's technique was far more than that. Both of his hands made several hand seals in succession, and he suddenly shouted, "Suppress the mountain." The 12 beams of light shot out from the white jade lotus that were secretly connected to the elemental time beads suddenly tightened. The originally thigh-thick beams of light shrank to the thickness of an arm, like a rope that had been pulled taut. Lu Ping raised both of his hands, seemingly using all of his strength at this moment. The entire Huangli Island shook for the 3rd time. However, the shaking this time was different from the previous 2 times. It was as if the entire Huangli Island had been bound together with the 12 beams of light that had been shot out by the white jade lotus. It's rising. It's rising. Huangli Island is slowly rising. The surrounding cultivators with keen eyesight immediately noticed something. The entire Huangli Island seemed to be slowly rising along with Lu Ping's collapse. Look, the land that was originally submerged by the seawater outside of Huangli Island is also rising. I understand now. Reverend Xianping is not moving the mountains and filling the seas, bringing islands and land from other places to increase the size of Huangli Island. Instead, he is directly raising the entire Huangli Island, exposing the land that was originally submerged under the sea. I'm afraid everyone has already understood by now. There's no need for you to say it. Lu Ping's changing the seas into mulberry fields' great divine ability, with the help of the grand formation and the natal gentian array, lasted for a total of 6 hours before it ended. At this time, the surface of the entire Huangli Island had extended to a distance of 3 li, just barely reaching the sea level. The circumference of the entire Huangli Island had increased by 6 li. At this time, no one doubted that Lu Ping had the divine ability to expand the area of Huangli Island. The grand scene of Lu Ping executing the changing the seas into mulberry fields technique had already spread across the entire North Sea. Almost all the cultivators were discussing this new divine ability that Lu Ping had displayed. After resting for 3 days, Lu Ping once again borrowed the grand formation to expand the area of Huangli Island. However, this time he only managed to expand the circumference of the island by 5 li. Thus, every 3 days, Lu Ping would execute the changing the seas into mulberry fields technique. Although the effect was constantly weakening, the entire Huangli Island was still continuously expanding. When he finished executing the changing the seas into mulberry fields technique, for the 6th time, the grand formation laid down by Hu Lili finally collapsed. The circumference of Huangli Island had expanded by another li. Lu Ping's divine ability to expand the area of Huangli Island had finally come to an end. After executing the divine ability 6 times in a row, the entire Huangli Island had expanded from its original 30 to 40 li radius to nearly 60 li. It had already exceeded the limit of at least 50 li for a small island. It had truly become a small island. Soon, the name of the new divine ability that Lu Ping executed, the changing the seas into mulberry fields technique, was known by all the cultivators of the North Sea. Many cultivators were trying to find out the origin of this divine ability, including many cultivators from the Jinling sect. Naturally, the cultivators of the North Sea cultivated water-type cultivation techniques the most. However, one of the most scarce resources was land. Therefore, almost all the sects and forces of the North Sea were trying to expand the area of the islands they occupied. In the past, only those who had mastered the moving the mountains and filling the seas divine ability could expand the area of the islands. Only now did the North Sea cultivators realize that cultivators who cultivated water-type cultivation techniques could also expand the area of the islands. Additionally, the cultivators from the overseas regions had no shortage of cultivators who cultivated water-type cultivation techniques. If this cultivation technique could spread, the size of the islands in the North Sea would greatly increase. Additionally, the situation of the North Sea suffering from a lack of cultivation resources would be alleviated to a certain extent. Just when the various sects of the North Sea and the Jinling sect sent out cultivators to ask enlightened Lu Xianping if he could pass down the inheritance of this divine ability, news came from Huangli Island that enlightened Lu Xianping had gone into secluded cultivation. Chapter 862. The Nachuan Cauldron, the Silver Spirit Flame, the Clear Wood Jade Fruit, and an incense burner that was quietly burning with calming soul incense. The fragrance emitted from the incense burner could help a cultivator calm down and adjust his or her body to its best state. After nearly a month of Lu Ping's vast seas of mulberry field scripture, Huangli Island had successfully expanded into a small island. At this time, Huangli Island could be said to be very lively. Although under Hu Lili's command, the market, cave residences, spirit fields, and port on Huangli Island had been rebuilt, the number of cultivators that came in after Huangli Island was reopened still exceeded Hu Lili and the others' expectations. However, this now did not affect Lu Ping, who was in the secret chamber of the cave residences. The clear wood jade fruit had been in Lu Ping's possession for decades. In order to maximize the effect of this spirit fruit, Lu Ping had not refined it into the clear wood jade pill. At this time, Lu Ping's cultivation had successfully advanced to the 9th stage of the core forging stage. This was the time when the clear wood jade pill could be used to its greatest effect. Moreover, on Huangli Island, Lu Ping did not have to worry about anyone coming to disturb him. Although the lush wood pure jade pellets were avatar-level medicinal pellets, 1 lush wood pure jade fruit could only be used to concoct 3 lush wood pure jade pellets, which was different from the usual amount of 10 medicinal pellets in a cauldron. Hence, Lu Ping hoped to concoct all 3 lush wood pure jade pellets. If it was before, it would be a little difficult for Lu Ping to completely refine the clear wood jade fruit into 3 elixirs. However, after Lu Ping obtained the silver spirit flame, it made Lu Ping much more confident. Although the silver spirit flame of the mid-grade heaven level made the process of refining elixirs twice as long, and the alchemist's inner yuan was greatly consumed compared to other heaven and earth spirit flames, its delicate and gentle fire also greatly increased the success rate of refining elixirs. At this time, the secret room was already filled with the fragrance of pills. He had been operating the pill furnace and adjusting the temperature of the spirit flames for several days straight. His divine sense was constantly paying attention to the situation inside the pill furnace. If it was any other alchemist, this method of alchemy would simply be a form of torture. However, for Lu Ping, other than the prolonged alchemy time and some mental exhaustion, everything else was not a problem. At this time, it was the last moment before the pills came out of the cauldron. The 3 ashwood clear jade pills had already begun the final process of condensing in the cauldron. Outside the cave, Hu Lili was accompanying an old man, waiting for Lu Ping to come out of seclusion. The old man took Hu Lily's spiritual tea and took a sip. He said, "Lass, your spiritual tea is the best. My family's spiritual tea is like washing a pot of water." Hu Lili smiled and said, "This spiritual tea is usually Brother Xianping's favorite. I rarely drink it, so there's still quite a lot left. Since you like it, I'll make a bag for you later." The old man's eyes lit up and he said, "That's great. The old man has never been pretentious with you. I've long heard that the spiritual tea here is the best in our sect. It really does live up to its reputation." As soon as the old man finished speaking, a thick fragrance of elixirs had already filled the entire cave. The old man's eyes lit up and his nose sniffed slightly. He said, "Wow, it's a Dharma level elixir and it looks like it's of a very high level. Finally, it's time to condense the elixir. It's just that this alchemy process is taking too long." If it weren't for the fragrance, the old man would have thought that this kid was purposely hiding from the old man, who Lily knew that the old man in front of her was an expert in alchemy. Just by the smell of the elixir, he could understand a lot about Lu Ping's alchemy process. She smiled and said, "You really are an expert in alchemy in our sect. It looks like you're about to become our sect's 4th alchemy grandmaster. If that's the case, I wouldn't dare to neglect you." The old man had an uncertain expression on his face. He said, "In front of your little lover, the old man wouldn't dare to be arrogant. He is our sect's true alchemy grandmaster. His position in the sect is much higher than mine." Just then the smell of elixirs in the cave changed slightly. The old man grunted as if he was suspicious of something. He turned around and looked in the direction of Lu Ping's secret room. Hu Lili was worried about Lu Ping. Seeing the old man like this, she quickly asked, "Uncle Xianyue, is there something wrong?" Xianyue Jinren was one of the oldest alchemy grandmasters in Jinling. He wasn't a disciple of Tianqin Laozu, but his alchemy skills were just below Tianqin Laozu's. In fact, he was even better than Tianqin Laozu's other disciples. Among the several alchemy grandmasters in Jinling, besides Lu Ping and Xianyue Jinren, the others were all disciples or grand disciples of Tianqin Laozu. However, it was undeniable that whether it was Xianyue Jinren or Lu Ping himself, both had received careful guidance from Tianqin Laozu. Tianqin Laozu spared no effort in guiding the younger generation. His prestige in Jinling was extremely high. Because of this, the status of the Dan Pavilion in Jinling had become extremely high. Originally, Xianyue Jinren was the most promising cultivator in Jinling to become an alchemy grandmaster after Tianqin Laozu. However, after the emergence of Lu Ping, Xianyue Jinren had finally touched the boundary of the grandmaster realm. Xianyue Jinren shook his head with some doubts and said, "The old man is also not too clear. Just now, it seems that martial nephew Xianyue encountered some trouble at the last moment of opening the furnace, but now it seems that this trouble has been solved by martial nephew Xianyue. After all, martial nephew Xianyue Jinren's alchemy skills are above the old man. Perhaps the old man guessed wrongly." Hu Lili knew what kind of pill Lu Ping was refining, so she naturally knew the preciousness of the azure wood clear jade pill. Only when the azure wood clear jade fruit was completely refined into 3 azure wood clear jade pills, would the cultivator be able to display the best effect after taking it. Inside the secret chamber, Lu Ping's taut heartstrings finally relaxed a little. He had almost failed at the last step. Lu Ping had never thought that he would actually encounter such a rare and strange situation like a spiritual chi furnace explosion. Spiritual chi furnace explosion, in layman's terms, was when there was an excess of spiritual chi in the alchemy furnace, causing the medicinal efficacies of the pills in the alchemy furnace to expand until they were unable to condense and finally exploded. This kind of spiritual chi furnace explosion not only lost the pills in the alchemy furnace, but also because the power of the furnace explosion was too great, the alchemy furnace itself would also suffer serious damage, and even the alchemy master himself would be affected. Usually, when an alchemy master was refining pills, they would often worry about the concentration of spiritual chi in the alchemy furnace being insufficient. In order to smoothly refine pills, they would not hesitate to crush high-grade spirit stones, or even best-grade spirit stones, with the help of the spiritual chi released by the explosion of spirit stones, to make up for the lack of spiritual chi in the alchemy furnace. The spiritual explosion secret technique that Lu Ping had mastered for alchemy was to deal with this kind of sudden situation. However, the spiritual chi furnace explosion was the exact opposite. It was because there was too much spiritual chi in the alchemy furnace, which was a rare occurrence in the process of refining pills. The reason why Lu Ping had encountered such a situation this time was because the spirit meridian in the secret chamber had suddenly merged and condensed. Hu Lili had set up a spirit fusion spell that could shorten the process of the 9 spirit gathering pearls merging into the spirit meridian. Just as Lu Ping was at the final stage of condensing the spirit meridian, two of the spirit-gathering pearls in the spirit meridian had coincidentally merged into the spirit meridian at the same time, causing the concentration of spiritual qi in the spirit meridian to increase by 2 levels. The spirit meridian in the spirit meridian, which was placed in the middle of the spirit meridian, was so concentrated that it could explode at any time. If Lu Ping had not sensed that something was wrong at the first moment and opened the alchemy furnace to release the excess spiritual qi, used his divine will to prevent the spirit meridian from escaping, and boldly used the spiritual explosion secret technique to maintain the balance of spiritual qi in the alchemy furnace, these 3 ebony jade pills that would make even Dharma adepts jealous would have turned into a pile of ashes. Lu Ping carefully placed the 3 ebony jade pills into the jade essence bottle. Only then did Lu Ping heave a sigh of relief. When he left the secret chamber, he saw Venerable Xianyue and Hu Lili waiting in the cave. Lu Ping paused and felt a little suspicious. However, he quickly smiled and said, "So it's Uncle Xianyue, you are a rare guest." Venerable Xianyue saw Lu Ping's expression and smiled. "Old man is not a rare guest but an uninvited guest. The Elixir Pavilion has some matters to trouble nephew Xianyue." "What's wrong? Did you encounter something wrong when you opened the alchemy furnace just now?" Lu Ping looked at Venerable Xianyue in surprise. To be able to sense the situation just now and accurately determine that the alchemy furnace was opened, it meant that Venerable Xianyue's alchemy skills were at least at the level of a half-step grandmaster. Of course, if he was a real grandmaster he would probably say that Lu Ping had encountered a spiritual qi furnace explosion. In that case, Venerable Xianyue was obviously not a grandmaster. However, Lu Ping still congratulated him. "Uncle, you are only 1 step away from the grandmaster level. Congratulations." After saying this, Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, "Speaking of which, it's really rare. I actually encountered a spiritual qi furnace explosion." Enlightened Master Xianyu looked at Lu Ping strangely. Then he chuckled and said, "Other alchemists are afraid that the cauldron won't have enough spiritual energy, so they keep throwing crushed spirit stones into the cauldron. But martial nephew, your cauldron is filled with so much spiritual energy that it's about to explode. Hehe, I've long heard that Huangli Island is about to become a paradise. If this news spreads out, your Huangli Island will be in the limelight again." The two of them chatted for a while. Hu Lili used Huangli Island as an excuse to leave first. Venerable Xianyue then said, "This time, I hope that nephew can preside over the Elixir Pavilion's alchemy exam and serve as the chief examiner." Lu Ping was surprised and said, "How can this be? Our sect's alchemy exam has always been presided over by Fornak's ancestor. How can it be a junior like nephew's turn to embarrass himself?" Venerable Xianyue pointed at Lu Ping and laughed, "Nephew, you are being unreasonable. You are a grandmaster alchemist, how can you not be the chief examiner?" Lu Ping waved his hand and said, "It is not that this disciple is being unreasonable. Even if Fornak's ancestor is not willing to preside over this exam, there is still Tianqin martial ant. No matter what, it is not my turn to be the chief examiner. Moreover, other than the chief examiner, there are at least 4 other examiners. Presumably, Martial Ant and the other alchemy grandmasters are all examiners. This disciple is a junior after all. If I become the chief examiner it would be too childish. It is better not to be the chief examiner." Chapter 863. Taoist Master Xianyu sternly said, "Martial nephew, don't even think about evading. Not to mention that Tianqin is in closed-door cultivation. The main examiner was appointed by Master Qianlu. Even if martial nephew were to be the main examiner, would anyone have any objections? The Pill Pavilion's examination does not look at one's qualifications, but rather one's alchemy skills. With your status as a Grandmaster Alchemist, who in the Pill Pavilion would dare say no?" Taoist Xianyu happily took a bag of spirit tea cultivated by Lu Ping and left Huangli Island. In the end, Lu Ping couldn't shirk the appointment of the main examiner. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then shook his hand and released the 3 spirits. As soon as he returned to Huangli Island, Lu Ping wouldn't restrain his spirit pets. Debao was already nowhere to be found. It was said that he was going to hold an underground auction on Huangli Island. Debao was famous on Huangli Island. He had followed Lu Ping through life and death many times, so he didn't lack treasures. However, after decades of development, the cultivators on Huangli Island were no longer limited to blood condensation and early core forging cultivators. Many mid and late core forging cultivators also frequented Huangli Island. Because the teleportation formation on Huangli Island was very strict, most of the mid and late core forging cultivators were from Junling and Junling's forces. Debao wanted to open the auction, but with his early core forging cultivation, he was far from being able to hold the fort. Thus, Debao tricked Lu Qiner into going. Lu Qiner's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 7th layer of core forging. Samling was gradually catching up to her, but she was a wind and fire dual cultivator, so her strength wasn't much weaker than Samling's. She could even fight against 8th or 9th layer core forging cultivators, so she could help Debao. Daguay, on the other hand, had a calm temperament. After returning to Huangli Island, he slept in the spring in Lu Ping's cave residence. At the same time, he looked after the wooling fish eggs that Lu Ping had placed in the spring to nourish. In the beginning, the three of them appeared as Lu Ping's mounts and spiritual pets. Debao and Daguay weren't high-grade spiritual beasts, and although Lu Qiner was talented, she was still enlightened Master Lu Xuanping's identity, so no one dared to covet her. The only ones that gave Lu Ping a headache were the Amethyst Wasp King Lu Xilan, Peachtree Lu Taohua and Samling. These five's identities couldn't be revealed in front of others. Otherwise it would bring great trouble for Lu Ping. Fortunately, Lu Ping still had 3 demon transformation chakrams on him. Therefore, Lu Ping distributed the 3 demon transformation chakrams and let them take turns to use them. Everyone had the opportunity to play on Huangli Island. Originally, he promised Tianlin Laozu that he would give one of the demon transformation chakrams to his teacher. However, Lu Tianling Laozu said that he didn't need it for the time being. When he needed it, he would get it from Lu Ping. Therefore, the 3 demon transformation chakrams were still with Lu Ping. As for Lu Xiaohai, he was only at the late stage of blood condensation. Furthermore, he had the bloodline of the white forehead race. How could Lu Ping let him out to play? Lu Ping had already locked him up and ordered him to cultivate in seclusion. At this time, Lu Taohua and the Amethyst Queen betook the demon transformation chakram and followed Debao and Lu Qiner to prepare for the auction. Although Lu Ping still had a demon transformation chakram, Samling didn't want to be separated, so he had been playing in the Golden House. Lu Ping took out the spirit vein essence milk that he asked Xie Tianyang to exchange from Tianxian Ancient City and threw it into Lu Hai's hands under his joyful expression. Since Lu Ping got this spirit vein essence milk, Lu Hai had been pestering Lu Ping hoping to get this spirit vein essence milk. He vowed that he would be able to successfully smelt it and achieve a 9th grade golden core. Lu Ping saw that Lu Hai was only concerned about joy, so he said, "I already have the lightning tribulation water here. This spiritual item was originally prepared for you." Unfortunately, high-grade heaven step spiritual items are things that can only be encountered by luck. This time, Tianxian City's spiritual item trade fair only got this water attribute high-grade heaven step spiritual item that is suitable for Lu Hai. In the future, if there is a chance, I will find the same high-grade heaven step spiritual item for Bai, and Ling. Lu Bai and Lu Ling were both overjoyed, but they heard Lu Ping continue, "But the 3 of you must not slack off in your cultivation. If you wait until the 3rd time to smelt the spiritual item, it's fine. After all, I still have the forging spirit pill here. If the difference is too great, you can't smelt the high-grade heaven step spiritual item. Then I will take back the spiritual item." Samling respectfully agreed. Lu Ping nodded with satisfaction and said, "There are some things that need to be dealt with. Although Father has released the news that there is no need for the sect's Fa Xiang Laozu to guard, Huangli Island cannot be without a master. The 3 of you are now the strongest fighting force under Father. If the 3 of you join forces, you can even fight against a peak core forging cultivator like 6th Brother Lei. When Father is not on Huangli Island, you must help your martial uncle Black Fox to protect Huangli Island." Samling's expression was one of excitement. After all, he was still a child. Lu Ping's words were undoubtedly a great recognition of the 3 of them. Even the most popular Lu Bai couldn't help but say, "Father, don't worry. Just leave it to us." Lu Ping nodded and handed the remaining demon transformation bracelet to Lu Bai. He said, "If there is something that requires your help, don't forget to take back the demon transformation bracelet from Peach Blossom and Zilan." Outside the cave, Lu Ping released a sound-transmitting glyph. Coincidentally, he saw Hu Lili returning to the cave. He told Hu Lili that he was going to be the chief examiner of the Pill Pavilion. Hu Lili frowned and said, "Our sect's cultivation resources were originally in the hands of Fa Xiang Laozu. Except for some important things, Fa Xiang Laozu can use most of the cultivation resources at will. Now that the sect leader has gathered power, Even Fa Xiang Laozu can't use these cultivation resources at will. Seeing that Lu Ping was deep in thought, Hu Lili straightforwardly said, "The reason why the Pellet Pavilion wants you to be the chief examiner this time, besides the fact that you are indeed a suitable candidate, isn't it also because the Sky Cauldron ancestor hopes that you can obtain a better reward from the sect master?" Lu Ping was stunned for a moment before he said, "That's right. The sect will naturally reward the top few cultivators in the main alchemy exam. Since I'm the main examiner, the rewards can't be too shabby. Otherwise, wouldn't I, the Water Sword Immortal, lose face? In that case, I can only hope that teacher can give me some decent treasures from the sect. This plan is not bad. No wonder Fornax Laozu and Tianqin Laozu are not willing to be the chief examiner. Fornax Laozu is master's elder and Tianqin martial uncle will not bow to master. In this case, the chief examiner of the Pill Pavilion can only be me." In a flash of light, sixth brother Lei had already arrived in front of the cave dwelling. When he saw Lu Ping and Hu Lili talking, he deliberately stopped at a distance and said loudly, "Ladies, I'm going over now. Is it convenient?" Hu Lili's face turned red and she fiercely glared at him before walking into the cave. Only then did sixth brother Lei walk over to Lu Ping with a smile. "Brother Lei, I may have to go out for a period of time. Huangli Island will not have any experts guarding it. I'll have to trouble brother Lei to watch over Huangli Island during this period." Sixth brother Lei nodded and said, "Don't worry." When Lu Ping was traveling in the Central Plains, he received a lot of help from his good friends in the sect on Huangli Island. However, as the cultivation of these good friends increased, they were now the core strength of the sect and would often be assigned tasks by the sect. Everyone had their own things to do and could not put all of their efforts on Huangli Island. After Tianshu Laozu took over Huangli Island, he plotted to seize control of the island. Although his good friends could not confront him directly because they were from the same sect, they secretly supported him. Otherwise, with Hu Lili alone, she might not even be able to protect Lu Ping's cave. Lu Ping originally wanted to look for Chen Lian to refine and upgrade a few of his transcendent artifacts. However, Chen Lian was no longer on Huangli Island. His shop was still open and there was a blood condensation realm cultivator working there. It was said that this cultivator was Chen Lian's disciple. This disciple only knew that Chen Lian had returned to Tianling Mountain for a few years. As for why he went back, this disciple did not know. Lu Ping remembered that he heard that Tianjiang Laozu had spent all of his energy on repairing a damaged artifact that martial uncle Tianlin brought back from the Ying Tian dojo. Even the matters of the refining hall were handed over to his disciple. If Lu Ping's guess was right, this artifact should be Ying Tian sect's Fei Tian Laozu's personal spiritual treasure, the mountain-splitting axe. This was a spiritual treasure that had gone through 2 lightning tribulations. It could be said to be Jinling's biggest gain in the Ying Tian dojo. One had to know that Lu Ping had heard from his teacher that in the whole of Jinling, there was only one spiritual treasure that had gone through 2 calamities, which was in the hands of Tianxiang Laozu. It was passed down from Tianxin Laozu and was the true treasure of Jinling. The other 3 spiritual treasures that had gone through 1 calamity were in the hands of Tian Fan, Tian Shui, and Tianling Laozu respectively. Even the other mid-Dharma stage Laozu, Tian Kong Laozu, did not have a spiritual treasure. After obtaining the mountain-splitting axe this time, even though the spiritual treasure itself was severely damaged, it still attracted the attention of the few Laozu of the sect. Tianxiang Laozu even requested Tianjiang Laozu to repair this spiritual treasure at all costs. Of course, they did not know that Lu Ping had obtained Fei Tian Laozu's pure Yang soul. Compared to the pure Yang soul, this mountain-splitting axe was far inferior. Chen Lian had been called to the weapon refining hall for many years and had not returned to Huangli Island. Obviously, it was because of this mountain-splitting axe. Moreover, Tianjiang Laozu had brought Chen Lian along while he was repairing this treasure. It could be seen that Chen Lian's craftsmanship had reached a higher level and had entered the eyes of Tianjiang Laozu. Without a choice, Lu Ping could only return to Tianling Mountain and go to the weapon refining hall to look for Chen Lian. However, just as Lu Ping came out from the teleportation device, he heard from his teacher that he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Chu Tiancheng Laozu seemed to have some urgent matters to attend to and had brought his disciple, Xianyong Jinren, back to the Central Plains in a hurry. Chapter 864. Lu Tianling Laozu was chatting with spiritual master Xian Sen in the hall of Zhonghuahua. Lu Ping could only wait in the hall. So, although the scale of Mara's appearance on Frost Island is not small, it is not a critical moment. The sect should still be able to deal with it? Lu Tianling Laozu pondered for a moment before asking Spiritual Master Xian Sen, who was beside him. Spiritual Master Xian Sen was currently a peak core forging cultivator with a 7th grade golden core. After Tianshu Laozu, Junling was the second-generation disciple with the highest chance of becoming a Dharma adept. Before this, among Junling's second-generation disciples, there was Spiritual Master Xian Su, who also had a high chance of becoming a Dharma adept. Lu Ping had seen this Spiritual Master Xian Su on Jingzhi Island before. Unfortunately, this Spiritual Master Xian Su did not manage to break through at the last moment after merging with a heaven-rank low-grade spirit object. He only managed to form a 6th grade golden core and lost the qualification to become a Dharma adept. Spiritual Master Xian Sen nodded and said, "That is indeed what Martial Aunt Tian Shui said. She said that although the calamity of Mara has already descended, up until now, the calamity of Mara in the North Sea cultivation world is not as big as the previous calamity of Mara. Martial Aunt Tian Shui means that although the situation is a little strange, we must not let our guard down." Lu Tianling Laozu said, "Martial Aunt Tian Shui is right. In that case, send 20 of our sect's 3rd-generation disciples who have advanced to the core forging stage to listen to Martial Aunt Tian Shui's orders. They will also be able to be useful when the calamity of Mara fully erupts in the future." Taoist Master Shensen smiled and said, "Sect head senior sister has thought things through thoroughly. Junior brother will handle this matter as soon as I go down." Coincidentally, Martial Aunt Tian Shui has been studying the art of talismans for the past few days. There are many things that she is unwilling to do personally. In this case, it is exactly what she wants. When Lu Ping heard that Tian Shui Laozu was studying the art of talismans on Frost Island, he immediately recalled the talisman inheritance that he had obtained from the Ying Tian dojo. Inside the inheritance, it recorded the complete inheritance of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. To Tian Shui Laozu, the #1 expert in the art of Jinling talismans, this was a great attraction. It could be assumed that Tian Shui Laozu was currently studying that inheritance. "It looks like I'll have to pay a visit to Senior Grand Aunt Tian Shui on Frost Island after I'm done with the Pill Pavilion." Lu Ping laughed inwardly. After Taoist Master Xian Sen left, Lu Ping went up to greet his master with a smile on his face. Tianling Laozu glanced at him and said, "Our sect's Pill Pavilion head has always been presided over by the sect's Pill Pavilion head. Senior Uncle Fornax doesn't want to be the main examiner, nor did he let your Senior Aunt Tianqin do it. Instead, he chose you to be the main examiner. What a great honor. Are you here to ask for my help today?" Lu Ping didn't feel embarrassed even though his teacher had seen through his intentions. He smiled and said, "This disciple can't refuse such great kindness. I'm forced to do something beyond my abilities, so I can only come and find teacher to discuss the rules." Lu Tianling Laozu smiled and said, "You don't need to come and find me for this. Although the sect head is in charge of all the sect's affairs, there are still precedents for the Pill Pavilion head examination. You just need to follow the usual practice and take out a prize from the Pill Pavilion's treasury." Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, "I'll let teacher know that our sect has been prospering under teacher's leadership these past few years. The number of new alchemists in the Pill Pavilion is also higher than in the previous exams. If we still follow the usual practice, it will inevitably hurt the disciples' desire to improve their alchemy. Therefore, I hope that teacher can expand the scope of the prizes and increase the quality of the prizes. This will also give the disciples in the Pill Pavilion something to look forward to and work hard to improve their alchemy skills." Lu Tianling Laozu said directly, "You're only thinking about expanding the scope of the prizes, but you've forgotten that you're still my disciple. If I agree to your request so easily, what will others say?" Lu Ping was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect this. The Pill Pavilion head examination, which originally had precedents, had expanded the scope of the prizes and increased the quality of the prizes when it came to Lu Ping. In the eyes of outsiders, it was naturally to give face to spiritual master Lu Xianping. However, in the eyes of those with ulterior motives, it would seem that the heavenly spirit sect head was biased towards his own disciple and benefiting himself at the expense of the sect. Lu Tianling Laozu saw the troubled expression on Lu Ping's face and couldn't help but smile. "Do you know that in addition to the sect's prizes, the examiners also have to give prizes to the outstanding disciples in the exam?" Lu Ping's expression became very interesting. He said regretfully, "This disciple has been tricked again. So they didn't want this disciple to ask for treasures from teacher. They wanted to extort some treasures from this disciple." Lu Tianling Laozu could see that Lu Ping had misunderstood him a little, but it wasn't like the Pill Pavilion didn't have any intentions of pushing this disciple to the position of examiner. So he smiled and said, "You're not wrong to say that." However, the Pill Pavilion head examination has always been like this. Fornak's master has been presiding over it for hundreds of years, and he has given up countless treasures on him. This is also why Uncle Master Fornax is highly respected in our sect. When it comes to helping the younger generation advance, Uncle Master Fornax has always spared no effort. I believe you've experienced this yourself. Lu Ping nodded. It was undeniable that after his talent in alchemy was discovered by Fornax Laozu, even though Lu Ping had always been outside of the Pill Pavilion, Fornax Laozu had never had any prejudice against Lu Ping. The reason why Lu Ping's alchemy skills had improved so quickly was largely due to Fornax Laozu's wholehearted guidance and support. In the past Pill Pavilion head examination, Fornax Laozu would often pay out of his own pocket to reward the winning disciple in addition to the rewards given out by the sect. Fornax Laozu had been presiding over the Pill Pavilion for hundreds of years, and had conducted more than 10 exams. Who knew how many treasures he had given out for the sect? Lu Tianling Laozu continued, as examiners the other master alchemists of the sect would often take out their own rewards along with the main examiner. Generally speaking, the quality of the rewards would naturally be lower than the main examiner's, but of course, it wouldn't be too low. After all, the main examiner's reward was given to the first-place disciple, so the other examiner's rewards would also be given to the second, third, and fourth-ranked disciples according to their quality. If the rewards were too low, then they would lose a lot of face. Lu Ping had already gradually figured out what was going on from Lu Tianling Laozu's words. This time he was the main examiner. Even though it was Fornax Laozu who had personally appointed him, there might still be people scheming behind his back. Although Lu Ping could not avoid losing money once, as long as the rewards he took out were of high quality, the other examiners would also have to follow suit and lose money. Lu Ping was still very confident in his own net worth. Things that were of high quality in the eyes of others might not necessarily be that important to Lu Ping. However, if others were to take out rewards that were not that much lower than his own, then he would definitely feel the pinch. After receiving his teacher's instructions, Lu Ping walked out of the palace of Jianghu in a refreshed manner and headed straight for the Pill Pavilion. At this time, the news that Lu Ping had been personally appointed by Fornax Laozu to be the main examiner of the Pill Pavilion had already spread throughout the entire Pill Pavilion. Even the entire Jinling was talking about it. This time, the Pill Pavilion's examination could be said to be the biggest in Jinling's history. Not only was the number of participants the highest, but the level of the alchemists was also the highest. It was said that there were already a few alchemists who planned to refine pills for the core forging stage during the examination, establishing their status as master alchemists in one fell swoop. One had to know that currently the entire Jinling only had 3 Grandmaster Alchemists and 5 Master Alchemists. For the currently rising Jinling, every additional Master Alchemist was a joyous event worthy of celebration. Currently, the entire Pill Pavilion was talking about the rewards for the examination. This examination had the highest number of participants, so did it mean that the scope of the rewards for the entire examination would be expanded? Did it mean that the individual rewards would also be increased? These were the main points of discussion in the Pill Pavilion. Of course, many cultivators in the Pill Pavilion were optimistic about this. They believed that Fornax Laozu had personally appointed enlightened Master Lu Xianping as the main examiner in order to obtain more rewards from Lu Tianling. After all, enlightened Master Lu was the last disciple of Lu Tianling Laozu, so it was only natural for him to favor enlightened Master Lu more. However, there were also cultivators who disapproved of this. They believed that Lu Tianling was now at a critical moment in his control of the sect. Many cultivators in the entire sect were paying attention, and Lu Laozu would definitely treat all the affairs of the sect equally. There was no reason for him to be biased. They believed that enlightened Master Lu would eventually choose to dilute the amount of individual rewards on top of the fixed rewards to expand the scope of the rewards. Not long after, Lu Ping announced in the Pill Pavilion that the total amount of rewards for this examination would increase due to the expansion of the scope of the rewards, but the total amount of individual rewards would not change much. The only difference was that the original reward for the sect would be expanded from the top 5 to the top 10, while the amount of rewards for the 6th to 10th place would be the same. When the news came, although the cultivators in Jinling were somewhat disappointed, it was still reasonable. After all, although Jinling was very prosperous now, it was still very tight on various aspects. It was not easy for enlightened Master Lu Xianping to obtain these rewards. At the same time, it could be seen that the sect leader was indeed selfless, treating even his youngest disciple equally. However, there was immediately another news from the Pill Pavilion. It was said that although the rewards for this examination were mediocre, the master examiners wanted to use this examination to motivate the alchemists in the sect. Therefore, the individual rewards for the examiners would definitely be extremely generous. Once this news was leaked, it immediately spread throughout the whole of Jinling. Almost all the alchemists in Jinling, including the various affiliated forces and families, were eager to get started. Everyone knew that the main examiner, enlightened Master Lu Xianping, was known as the treasure boy in the past, and the treasures he had could be said to be endless. Today, enlightened Master Lu Xianping was a ruthless character who could even beat up a Dharma manifestation cultivator. How could he be lacking in treasures? After hearing these rumors, Lu Ping just laughed it off. These rumors were obviously deliberately spread by the alchemists in the Pill Pavilion. This was to force Lu Ping to spend a lot of money, and it was not without the help of the alchemy masters. Lu Ping could not be bothered to argue with them. On the day of the examination he would definitely make each and every one of them cut their own flesh with him. At that time we will see who will suffer more. Lu Ping's light flashed and he had already arrived at the back mountain of the Pill Pavilion, in front of Fornax Laozu's cave. Although Lu Ping was in charge of the Pill Pavilion, Fornax Laozu was the master of the Pill Pavilion after all. Something still had to be done by him. Of course, this time, Lu Ping was also here to take advantage of the situation. Although Fornax Laozu could be said to have worked hard for the Pill Pavilion, Lu Ping would not fall into his trap for no reason. Chapter 865. When Lu Ping saw Fornax Laozu, the old man was sitting quietly in the cave holding a paper book in his hand trying to figure out something. Lu Ping saw that the Fornax Cauldron ancestor was ignoring him, but he didn't want to disturb him. But when he saw a small incense burner not far from the Fornax Cauldron ancestor, an idea popped up in his head. An elegant and lingering fragrance wafted out from the furnace. Oh? Fornax Laozu put down the book in his hand in surprise and asked Lu Ping, "Soul-calming incense?" Lu Ping quickly handed over a small box and said, "Martial uncle is wise, this is the last of the 3 great incense, soul-calming incense. Disciple was lucky enough to get a few pieces in the Middle Earth. I offer them to Martial uncle as a sign of filial piety." There were 3 pieces of soul-calming incense in the small box. Fornax Laozu took it and put it aside. He glanced at Lu Ping and said, "Humph, I heard that you gave your teacher 3 pieces of soul-calming incense. Why did you drop a grade after getting the old man?" Lu Ping was very embarrassed. He didn't know how this matter was known to the person in front of him, so he quickly said, "Disciple only got a few pieces of soul-calming incense in the Middle Earth. Soul-calming incense is even rarer than soul-calming incense. Disciple had no choice, I can't just give one." He didn't know that after Lu Ping gave Lu Tianling Laozu 3 pieces of soul-calming incense and 3 pieces of soul-calming incense, it caused a small storm among the Jinling Laozu. After Lu Tianling received the soul-calming incense, he happily lit a small piece of soul-calming incense in the hall of Zhonghua. However, he didn't expect Chu Tiancheng Laozu to return to the Middle Earth because of his battle with Lu Ping. He was in a hurry to bid farewell to Lu Tianling Laozu and just barged into the hall of Zhonghua. Elder Chu Tiancheng was, after all, a Dharma adept. He had traveled the central mainland for many years and had seen many things. With one look, he recognized that the fragrance wafting through the palace of Zhonghua was one of the 3 famous soul incenses in the training world, the soul-stabilizing incense. This time the secret couldn't be kept any longer. The few Laozu in Jinling immediately knew that Lu Tianling Laozu had the soul-calming incense. Even Tian Shui Laozu, who was far away on Frost Island, and Tian Kong Laozu, who was on Huanyu Island, also sent a message to ask about the soul-calming incense. In the end, even Tian Xiang Laozu was alerted. Lu Tianling Laozu had no choice but to give up Lu Ping. However, he also secretly set up many ambushes for Lu Ping. Thanks to the incident with Tian Shu Laozu, the other Laozu in the sect didn't want to provoke Lu Ping too much. When they heard Lu Tianling Laozu say that Lu Ping didn't have many soul-calming incense on him, they believed him. After all, it was already very lucky for them to have a few of these rare treasures. If they knew that Lu Ping not only had dozens of soul-calming incense on him, but he also had a few lush soul-calming trees in the House of Gold, even Lu Tianling Laozu himself might not be able to hold himself back. Although the 3 soul calming incense were rare in Lu Ping's eyes, he didn't cherish them to the point where he needed to alert the few Laozu in the sect. However, what he didn't know was that although the 3 soul calming incense had the effect of nourishing the divine will, they were mostly used by the practitioners when they were training in seclusion or when they were trying to understand their techniques. However, the effect of the 3 soul calming incense on Dharma adepts had been greatly underestimated by Lu Ping. After a practitioner entered the Dharma stage, it was difficult to take another step forward. The foundation of a Dharma adept was naturally on the Dharma stage. The 3 soul calming incense's effect on the Dharma stage far exceeded Lu Ping's expectations. Not only could it restore the vitality of the Dharma stage, but it could also strengthen the spirituality of the Dharma stage and promote the integration of the divine will and the Dharma stage. Although the 3 soul calming incense could not directly increase the level of practice of a Dharma adept, the benefits it brought to the Dharma adept could only be gradually shown over time and was irreplaceable. Qianlu Laozu didn't think that Lu Ping was lying. It wasn't because of Tianling Laozu's explanation, but because Qianlu Laozu didn't believe that Lu Ping could have many soul calming incense on him. Therefore, the 3 soul calming incense that Lu Ping had brought were very valuable. After all, Qianlu Laozu also knew that no matter what, he could not compare to Tianling Laozu's position in Lu Ping's heart. Qianlu Laozu kept the 3 soul calming incense and secretly decided that these 3 soul calming incense must be used when he was in seclusion. If he lit them in the cave like Tianling, not only would it be a waste but it would also attract other people. Perhaps these 3 soul calming incense could not be kept. Qianlu Laozu kept the 3 soul calming incense and looked at the smiling Lu Ping. He said, "Tell me, what do you want?" Lu Ping received the smile and said seriously, "I want a piece of sky hearthstone." Qianlu Laozu was shocked and slapped the small box in front of Lu Ping. He said, take it. This soul calming incense old man doesn't want it anymore." Lu Ping expected that Qianlu Laozu would refuse, but he didn't think that Qianlu Laozu would refuse so thoroughly. He couldn't help but ask with a smile, "Martial uncle, if this disciple knows the sky hearthstone correctly, there should be 3 pieces in the pill pavilion. It's not too much for this disciple to take one, right?" Qianlu Laozu glared at him and said, "You little brat, what do you know? Our sect has been passed down for 10,000 years, but we have only accumulated these 3 pieces of sky hearthstone. How valuable do you think it is? Not to mention 3 soul calming incense, even if you give the old man 3 heaven-rank spiritual objects, I won't exchange it." Seeing Lu Ping's dumbfounded expression, the Fornax Cauldron Grandmaster's face relaxed a little. Then he thought of something and asked, "Brat, you want the Fornax stones to improve your Nachuan Cauldron and condense the second enchantment?" The quality of Lu Ping's Nachuan Cauldron was extremely high. After condensing the first treasure restriction, it was far from reaching its limit. He only needed to smelt 1 sky hearthstone and he would be able to start condensing the second treasure restriction. Previously, when the Pill Pavilion announced the reward rules of the examination, he went to the Pill Pavilion's treasury to inspect. Now that he was an alchemy Grand Master and the Pill Pavilion's chief examiner, he was naturally qualified to see the Pill Pavilion's wealth. The 3 sky hearthstones were stored in the most important place in the Pill Pavilion. After Lu Ping saw them, he naturally remembered them. That was why he first asked for the sky hearthstone when he saw Qianlu Laozu. Lu Ping knew that the sky hearthstone was precious. After all, it was something that could improve the quality of a pill furnace. How could it be compared to ordinary treasures? But he didn't expect that Qianlu Laozu would care so much about the sky hearthstone. However, thinking that Junling had only accumulated 3 sky hearthstones after 10,000 years of inheritance, its preciousness must be far beyond what Lu Ping had expected. So, Qianlu Laozu's previous overreaction was understandable. Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Martial Uncle Master, among the few pill furnaces in our sect, other than this disciple's Nachuan Cauldron, which one can use the sky hearthstone?" Qianlu Laozu was silent when he heard this. Although Junling had 2 magic treasure-level pill furnaces, other than Lu Ping's Nachuan Cauldron, the quality of the other pill furnace controlled by Qianlu Laozu was far from enough to condense the second treasure restriction. As for the other top-grade pill furnaces of Junling, they didn't even have the qualifications to be promoted to magic treasures. Lu Ping saw that Qianlu Laozu was silent and knew that there was still a chance. So he continued, "Although this disciple hasn't been in the Pill Pavilion for a long time, I'm still a disciple of our sect. Upgrading the Nachuan Cauldron will also increase the strength of our sect, right?" Qianlu Laozu snorted coldly, "Easy for you to say. Do you know how difficult it is to smelt the sky hearthstone? If it's not done properly, this priceless sky hearthstone will be useless. Your Nachuan cauldron's quality will still not be able to be upgraded. But if the sky hearthstone isn't used, it's just a stone in the end. Even if it's priceless, what use can it have? Isn't it a waste to leave it in the Pill Pavilion's treasury? Qianlu Laozu snorted coldly and didn't say anything. Lu Ping thought for a while and said, "How about this disciple use that thing to exchange for it?" Qianlu Laozu snorted coldly and didn't say anything. Lu Ping thought for a while and said, "How about this disciple use that thing to exchange for it?" Qianlu Laozu glanced at Lu Ping and said, "What are you going to exchange for it?" Lu Ping gritted his teeth and stretched out his hand. A scarlet flame quietly jumped in his palm. Qianlu Laozu said in surprise, "You obtained a heaven stage spirit flame. You don't want this thing?" Then Qianlu Laozu reacted and said, "Kid, you got a heaven stage spirit flame. You don't want this thing?" Lu Ping put the scarlet spirit flame in a jade box and pushed it in front of Qianlu Laozu. He said, "Martial uncle, this is a heaven stage spirit flame. The scarlet spirit flame is a spirit flame that's more suitable for alchemy. It's enough for a pill master to use until the Grandmaster realm." The Fornax ancestor snorted angrily. "I've said before that the Fornax stone is extremely precious. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to exchange it for 3 heaven-class spirit items. You want to exchange it for a superior earth-class spirit fire?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "The sky hearthstone is rare, but its true value may not be worth 3 heaven-stage spirit objects. Moreover, didn't this disciple give you 3 pieces of soul incense as a show of respect?" Seeing that Qianlu Laozu was about to explode again, Lu Ping hurriedly said, "Of course the soul incense is a show of respect to you, so it doesn't count. However, this disciple has decided to spend a lot of money for the Pill Pavilion's head exam. Seeing that this disciple wants to contribute to the sect, Martial Uncle, please be magnanimous and give the sky hearthstone to this disciple." Qianlu Laozu felt a headache coming on from Lu Ping's pestering. He helplessly waved his hand and said, "Get lost, get lost. The Pill Pavilion's treasures need your master's permission before you can borrow them. Moreover, the sky hearthstone is such a treasure. Don't bother the old man." Lu Ping was overjoyed. As long as Qianlu Laozu agreed, his master would absolutely not object. He smiled and said, "Then this disciple will leave." "Wait." Qianlu Laozu looked at the red spirit flame on the table and asked, "What kind of spirit flame do you use for alchemy now? If it's not convenient, you can use this red spirit flame first." Lu Ping was grateful in his heart, but his face was still smiling. He spread out his palm again, and the silver spirit flame burned like a quietly flowing river, giving people a very strange feeling. Silver spirit flame. You even managed to get your hands on such a good thing? Qianlu Laozu looked at the slowly fluctuating flame in Lu Ping's hand with a trace of envy in his eyes. Just as Lu Ping was about to leave Qianlu Laozu's cave, he suddenly heard Qianlu Laozu say behind him, "It's not easy to smelt the sky hearthstone. In our sect, other than the Nachuan cauldron, I'm afraid no other pill furnace has the qualifications to upgrade it. You should take another sky hearthstone as a backup, just in case something unexpected happens." This time, Lu Ping sincerely bowed to Qianlu Laozu and said, "Thank you, Laozu." Chapter 866. Truth be told, Junling had an even more precious pill furnace. It was the mountain and river cauldron that Tianlin Laozu had snatched from Ying Tian Dojo. It was a pill furnace with 3 enchantments. Its status in Junling was comparable to the only two tribulation spirit treasures in Junling. However, after Tianlin Laozu brought the mountain and river cauldron back, Qianlu Laozu and Tianxiang Laozu joined forces to find Tianlin Laozu. The 3 of them discussed something. In the end, Tianxiang Laozu took the mountain and river cauldron away while Tianlin Laozu issued a gag order to everyone who entered Ying Tian Dojo with him. Even Lu Ping, who was far away in Central Plains, received the order. Although Lu Ping felt that there was something fishy about this, he knew how attractive the mountain and river cauldron was to alchemists. How could Qianlu Laozu resist the temptation? However, since Qianlu Laozu did not say anything, Lu Ping did not have the right to say anything. After going through the motions with Laozu, Lu Ping retrieved 2 sky hearthstones from the Pill Pavilion's treasury. Lu Ping was in a good mood. Without further ado, he went to the artifact refining hall to find Chen Lian. Junling's artifact refining hall only had Tianlin Laozu as a Grandmaster artifact refiner. However, there were several Grandmaster artifact refiners including Chen Lian and his master, Sage Enigma Flame. Ever since Tianlin Laozu brought the mountain-cleaving axe he obtained from Ying Tian faction back to Zhenling, Tianlin Laozu had completely lost control of this two tribulation spirit treasure. Tianjiang Laozu had chased all the blacksmiths out of his immortal's cave. He had only summoned Chen Lian, who had the highest chance of becoming a Grand Master blacksmith, back from Huangli Island as his assistant. The two of them had been working on repairing the mountain-splitting axe for several years. When Lu Ping saw Chen Lian again, he was thin and his clothes were disheveled. He looked extremely tired, but his eyes were bright and full of spirit. They were even brighter than before. 6th layer core forging realm? When Lu Ping sensed Chen Lian's aura, he was a little surprised. He originally thought that Chen Lian's cultivation had been delayed because he was repairing the mountain-splitting axe. He didn't think that Chen Lian's cultivation would increase so quickly. Chen Lian pursed his lips and said, "Aren't you making a fool out of yourself? You're on your way to smelting the 3rd spiritual item, condensing the 9th grade golden elixir, and achieving the Dharma power. Instead, you're pleasantly surprised by our progress in cultivation." Lu Ping rubbed his chin awkwardly and chuckled, "There are many things to do after coming back. I wonder how everyone's cultivation has progressed." Chen Lian mocked, "Forget it. Even Uncle Master Tianshu was defeated by you. Naturally, he doesn't have time to see us brothers." However, the incident on Huangli Island is also a shame. Because Uncle Master Tianshu appeared, we couldn't go against him directly. Our teachers and elders also warned us not to offend our superiors. Therefore, Senior Sister Black Fox has been shouldering all the responsibility on Huangli Island. "I'm sorry." Lu Ping waved his hand and said, "Why do you have to be like this? You've already done enough. Otherwise, I'm afraid that even my abode on Huangli Island would have been requisitioned by him." The two of them had a deep friendship and there was no need to say anything else. Chen Lian said, "Among us brothers, other than junior brother Ji Xianxian who has just broken through to the late core forging realm and is currently in seclusion to consolidate his cultivation, senior brother Xian Yong, senior brother Xian Feng, junior sister Xian Ling, Xian Yu, and Xian Jian are all at the 6th layer of the core forging realm. Among them, Xian Yong, Xian Feng, and Xian Ling have already reached the bottleneck of the late core forging realm and are only a step away from it. Xian Yu, Xian Jian, and I have just advanced to the 6th layer of the core forging realm. We still need some time to accumulate our strength." Lu Ping nodded his head, but in his heart he thought, they are definitely not the only ones who are stuck at the bottleneck of the 6th layer of the core forging realm. The batch of earth-rank spiritual items that I exchanged from the mysterious Sky Ancient City has finally been settled. However, these items still need to be passed through the sect. I can't let myself suffer a loss. Chen Lian saw that Lu Ping's mind was elsewhere and couldn't help but ask in a bad mood, "Why are you looking for me? I'm very busy here. Right now, Ancestor Qianjiang's temper is very bad. If I'm negligent, I'll definitely be scolded." Lu Ping asked curiously, "What? That mountain-splitting axe still hasn't been repaired?" Chen Lian said, "It's almost done. It's precisely because it's the last moment that Ancestor Qianjiang's expression has become more and more serious. He's deeply afraid that he will fail at the last moment. Ancestor said that his greatest achievement in this life is probably to repair this two tribulation spirit treasure." Lu Ping saw that Chen Lian was speaking in a serious tone, so he changed the topic and said, "This time, I'm looking for you because I have a few magic treasures that need to be upgraded. I want to see if you can help." Lu Ping told Chen Lian about the few treasures that needed to be upgraded. When Chen Lian heard that Lu Ping wanted him to help upgrade the Nachuan Cauldron, he was obviously a little shocked. "I've seen your Nachuan Cauldron. In terms of quality, it's indeed better than Ancestor Qianjiang's Firmament Cauldron. However, with my current refining level, could it be that you're at ease to let me use it?" Lu Ping saw that there was no one around, so he smiled and showed the sky hearthstone in front of Chen Lian. Then he quickly put it away. Chen Lian's gaze suddenly became scorching hot. He said in a low voice, "Sky hearthstone? And there are two of them. Where did you get these treasures? Don't tell me that you've emptied out the pill pavilion? Be careful of Ancestor Qianjiang's wrath." Chen Lian immediately returned to normal. He pondered for a moment and said, "Even so, I'm not very confident. However, at least I can guarantee that if the upgrade fails, it won't cause any harm to the Nachuan Cauldron. However, you'd better give me the second precious restriction of the pill furnace so that I can study it in advance and prepare for it." Without saying anything, Lu Ping handed over a jade slip that recorded the precious restriction of the pill furnace to Chen Lian. However, this precious restriction was obtained by Tianqin Laozu at the Fantasy Spirit City's auction. Afterwards, Lu Ping copied it from her. There was still a precious restriction of the pill furnace on Lu Ping. Even Jinling didn't know about this precious restriction of the pill furnace. However, Lu Ping still wanted to leave this precious restriction for the Nachuan Cauldron in the future to see if there was any room for improvement. Lu Ping said with some worry, "There's no hurry now. You should first help Ancestor Tianjiang to repair the mountain-splitting axe. After this matter is completed, you can free up your hands to think about the pill furnace. I see that you've exhausted your energy. It's better to rest for a while." Chen Lian looked at Lu Ping in surprise and said, "You actually know about the mountain-splitting axe?" Seeing that Lu Ping smiled and didn't answer, Chen Lian didn't ask much. Instead, he said, "The precious restriction of the pill furnace is very important. These years, although I've been valued by Ancestor Tianjiang, I haven't received the inheritance of the precious restriction from him. You just passed it to me like this. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the sect?" Lu Ping laughed in spite of himself and said, "Who do you think will punish me?" Chen Lian suddenly understood. Under Lu Ping's surprised gaze, he actually burst out with vulgarities and said, "Damn it, you're now in existence on equal footing with my ancestor." Having said that, he ignored Lu Ping's gaze and directly said, "It's not a big problem to upgrade the spirit jade. I didn't expect that you would even be able to find such a rare object like the frightening spirit branch and condense the fourth precious restriction in one go. The nether water sword is a bit more difficult. Although you didn't find enough spiritual materials, you can just barely gather the leftover materials for repairing the mountain-splitting axe. However, the inheritance of the invisible sword technique is not complete. Without the last 3 spirit-nurturing level invisible restrictions, even if you upgrade the nether water sword, you won't be able to upgrade it to a spirit-nurturing artifact. As for the water-controlling flag, I'm afraid that it'll be even more difficult. The one who has the deepest understanding of this artifact is Ancestor. Once the matter of the mountain-splitting axe has come to an end, you should personally pay him a visit." Coming out of the refining hall, Lu Ping thought for a moment before he finally walked towards the back of Heaven Spirit Mountain. At the back of Tianling Mountain, a gigantic pagoda had been erected without anyone noticing. About 20 years ago, the newly appointed sect master Lu Tianling Laozu abolished the punishment system of facing the wall in the sect. Disciples who should have been punished for making mistakes were thrown into this pagoda called the 8 Scenic Pavilions and suppressed there. The 8 Scenic Pavilions actually represented 8 types of punishment. For cultivators who made mistakes, it was a form of punishment, but it was also a form of training. However, this kind of training was relatively extreme, and the results were also relatively slow. So far, the disciple who had received the most severe punishment in Jinling was only suppressed by the 8 Scenic Pavilions for 5 years. The punishment in the 8 Scenic Pavilions only consisted of the 5 types of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. After this cultivator came out of the 8 Scenic Pavilions, he was originally a late-stage core forging cultivator in Jinling and could be considered an expert. But now, he was tortured to the point where he was on the verge of death. He had to recuperate in his own cave for another 10 years before he could fully recover. In total, this caused the cultivator to lose 15 years of cultivation. This result caused everyone in Jinling to keep quiet about the 8 Scenic Pavilions. However, after the cultivator recovered, he discovered that his body had improved a lot compared to before. But compared to the 15 years of cultivation that he had wasted, the gains did not make up for the losses. At the same time, the 8 Scenic Pavilions was also a training ground for Jinling. The 8 Scenic Pavilions was a treasure that was in between an ordinary magic treasure and a heavenly grotto heaven magic treasure. Each of the 8 floors could be transformed into a training ground. Under the operation of the formation and the guards of each floor, the training ground could be transformed into various training grounds to test the disciples who entered. Every year, Jinling would select a group of outstanding disciples who had met the qualifications to enter the 8 Scenic Pavilions for training. These disciples were all in the blood condensation realm. Moreover, Jinling would also allocate some cultivation resources to the various training grounds as a reward for the disciples who passed the training. Originally, every floor of the 8 Scenic Pavilions would have a heaven and earth spiritual item that acted as the eye of the formation. At the same time, it was closely related to the training grounds of the 8 Scenic Pavilions. However, when Lu Ping handed the 8 Scenic Pavilions to Tianlin Laozu, he had already stored away the heaven and earth spiritual items inside. It was one thing for the 8 Scenic Pavilions to be requisitioned by the sect for so many years, But if Lu Ping were to add heaven and earth spiritual items to it, Lu Ping would not be so foolish. Just as Lu Ping was about to enter the 8 scenic pavilions, the space in front of him rippled. A spatial door opened and a gentle breeze blew in. Lu Ping did not seem surprised. He straightened his body and bowed. Disciple greets Martial Uncle Tian Fan. Chapter 867. Tian Fan Laozu's appearance caused Lu Ping to stop in his tracks. You don't seem surprised by the old man's arrival. Yes. Patriarch Tian Fan and Lu Ping only exchanged a single word before falling silent. The two of them immediately fell into silence. After a while, Tian Fan Laozu sighed and said, Old man thanks you for Tian Shu. Lu Ping said, You're too kind, granduncle. I've already tried my best. If there was someone else at the side, they would definitely be confused by the conversation between the two. However, Lu Ping knew that Tian Fan Laozu was thanking him because Lu Ping could have severely injured or even killed Tian Shu Laozu. All he needed was an excuse in a moment of desperation. However, Lu Ping had only knocked him down from the sky in the end. It could be said that he had spared his life, and at the same time, he had also shown everyone that his strength far surpassed Tian Shu Laozu's. Lu Ping said that he had already tried his best. In fact, he was saying that he was not willing to accept Tian Fan Laozu's favor. After all, this was a grudge between him and Tian Shu Laozu. At the same time, he was also trying to hide his own strength. Tian Fan Laozu also understood the meaning behind Lu Ping's words, but he did not say much about it. He only said to himself, The future of the sect depends on you guys. Now, including Senior Qianxiang, the first generation of cultivators have already let go of the sect's control. We want to see how talented the second and third generation disciples are, and whether they can support Jinling's future. When Tian Fan Laozu saw Lu Ping's thoughtful expression, he smiled and said, In this sect, it doesn't matter if it's the sect master or the balance of power. It's all about the inheritance of the sect. In the end, it's for the sake of the sect's future. Lu Ping nodded, but he heard Patriarch Tian Fan continue, However, a sect can't have only one voice. There needs to be a restraining force. Only then can people have scruples and think about it. Only then can the plan be thorough and the decision feasible. Don't you think so? Patriarch Tian Fan nodded, but Patriarch Tian Fan continued. Lu Ping thought for a while and said, If it's for the sake of the sect, I have nothing to say. Lu Ping did not refute Tian Fan Laozu, but he was pointing out that Tian Shu Laozu wanted to restrain the sect master not for the sake of the sect, but for his personal grudge. Tian Fan Laozu sighed and said, You're right. Tian Shu does have a personal grudge. This was the first time Tian Fan Laozu and Lu Ping had spoken so weakly. Tian Fan Laozu was silent for a while. When he saw that Lu Ping did not say anything, he continued, In a few days the old man will go to the East Sea to guard Jingzhi Island. I heard that you've established a force in the East Sea secret land. The old man will look for an opportunity to take care of it. Although Lu Ping was surprised by Tian Fan Laozu's goodwill, he had no choice but to accept it. Otherwise he would really offend Tian Fan Laozu. Therefore he could only say, Thank you, Martial Granduncle. Tian Fan Laozu turned around and left. Lu Ping stood there for a long time thinking about something. After a while, he smiled nonchalantly and entered the Baiying Tower with his head lowered. The Baiying Tower itself was a rather unique treasure. Out of the entire Baiying Tower's power, the quality of the Baiying Tower itself only accounted for 1/3 of its power. Out of the remaining half, the quality of the heaven and earth treasures placed on each floor would affect 1/3 of its power. The other 1/3 depended on the strength of each floor's guardian. When Lu Ping entered the first floor of the Baiying Tower, he saw a group of Blood Condensation Realm disciples training in the Illusion Realm. Late Blood Condensation Realm demonic beasts suddenly attacked them from all sorts of places, but they were all killed by the disciples. Lu Ping scanned the area with his divine sense and knew that the guardian of this floor was only a core forging cultivator who had just entered the core forging realm. Floating in the middle of the array formation beside him was a metal elemental mid-grade mystic class spirit item. Lu Ping was slightly surprised. Without alerting the guardian of the first floor, he went straight to the second floor. The guardian of the second floor was a third-level core forging realm cultivator. Lu Ping found him slightly familiar, as if he was his classmate back in Jinling's side hall. However, the two of them weren't familiar with each other. This person was using a secret technique to activate a mystic class heaven and earth treasure. It was also a mystic class heaven and earth treasure. The heaven and earth treasures were used to test a few late blood condensation realm cultivators. When Lu Ping entered the third floor, he couldn't help but stare blankly. With a sweep of his divine sense, he saw a few late blood condensation realm cultivators working together to defend against the half-step core forging realm demonic beast. What surprised Lu Ping wasn't that these cultivators could defend against the demonic beast, but that the person in charge of defending the demonic beast was only a 6th level blood condensation realm cultivator. Junior brother Du, it's coming. It's coming. Block it. We must block it. If we block it, we're dead. Boom. He blocked it. Junior brother Du blocked it. Quick, kill it. Don't let it break free. A moment later, the monstrous beast's body slowly disappeared, leaving behind a few medium-grade spirit stones on the ground, which could be considered as a reward for the trial disciples. Several cultivators divided the spirit stones among themselves, and the cultivator who blocked the monstrous beast's attack received 2 medium-grade spirit stones. Junior brother Du, you're already a 6th level blood condensation realm cultivator. You're about to advance to the late blood condensation realm. Why aren't you acknowledging a master yet? The few of them weren't in a hurry to start the new trial. Instead, they gathered together and chatted while recovering their true essence. That's right, Junior brother Du, your earth-type cultivation technique is so pure that it puts us late blood condensation realm cultivators to shame. You were actually able to block an attack from a peak blood condensation realm demonic beast. With this kind of cultivation, if you attend the apprenticeship ceremony, the sect's enlightened masters will definitely fight for you. You guys still don't know, right? I heard from my master that Junior brother Du has already attracted the attention of the sect's 3rd generation enlightened masters. There are even a few martial uncles who want to take Junior brother Du as a disciple. However, they're stopped by enlightened master Lu Xianyuan. No one can do it. Enlightened master Lu Xianyuan? Oh my god, is that true? He's a late core forging enlightened master, a famous expert among the sect's 3rd generation disciples. I heard that he's close friends with the water sword immortal, enlightened master Lu Xianping. Junior brother Du, don't tell me that enlightened master Lu has taken a fancy to you and is preparing to take you as a disciple? That makes sense. Enlightened master Lu Xuanyuan's master is Guotianshan Laozu, and he already has an earth-type cultivation technique. Since you're also cultivating an earth-type cultivation technique, it'll be of great help to your future growth. But what's strange is, if that's the case, why doesn't enlightened master Lu Xianyuan take you as a disciple? Could it be that enlightened master Lu Xianyuan is going to be like enlightened master Lu Xianping, refusing to pass on his legacy to a disciple until now? Junior brother Du's expression was originally calm. Only when he heard the words water sword immortal, Lu Xianping, did his expression brighten a little. When Lu Xuanping's name was mentioned, the atmosphere of the group of disciples was clearly stirred up. Have you heard? That Sword Azura went to Frost Island again. Really? That Wang Qi who wanted to become enlightened master Lu Xuanping's disciple, the one who once killed a core forging Azura, and is only one step away from entering the core forging realm? Didn't he always follow enlightened master sword demon, Du Xianfeng around the North Sea to challenge others? Why did he go to Frost Island again? It said that he's about to enter the core forging realm. This time, he didn't even pay a visit to enlightened master Lu Xianping when he returned to the North Sea. Other than him, it said that there's another alchemist in the Pill Pavilion called Tianyu. He still hasn't taken enlightened master Lu Xianping as a disciple. Many people in the Pill Pavilion say that he also wants to become enlightened master Lu Xuanping's disciple. It's just that he hasn't admitted it himself, so it's just a guess. Junior brother Du, don't tell me you also want to become enlightened master Lu Xuanping's disciple? Haha. Lu Ping chuckled and waved his sleeve in the direction of the group. The scenery around them changed. A gust of evil wind blew, and a fierce tiger with white forehead and eyes that had reached the core forging realm jumped out of the forest with a roar. It stared at them like a tiger watching its prey. Oh no, why did the scene suddenly change? We haven't rested enough. Oh no, how did this happen? This tiger demon is actually at the core forging realm. No way, this is bad. When we go back we must complain. This matter must be reported to Sect Master Laozu. He must punish those guards severely. A green light flashed in Lu Ping's eyes as he looked at the guard of the 3rd floor. A 3rd-level core forging realm cultivator was like an ant on a hot pan, circling around a pool of heaven and earth spirit water. He couldn't understand why a core forging realm demonic beast would appear on the 3rd floor of the 8 Visions Tower when there were clearly only upper mystic level spirit items. Lu Ping passed by the 4th floor and arrived at the 5th floor. This was the floor that Yuan Xuanzhan was guarding. The 8 Visions Tower's guards were extremely strange existences. Apart from the 8 Visions Tower's 8th floor, which was the true control center of the 8 Visions Tower, there was a stone tablet in the center of the formation that could be used by cultivators to refine. Moreover, these stone tablets were different from the Real Mansion guarding stone tablets. After refining them, the cultivator would only be able to control the situation on the floor the tablet was on. Not only would the cultivator be under the control of the Real Mansion guarding stone tablet, but the cultivator who refined each floor's stone tablet would also no longer be able to escape the 8 Views Pavilion's control. To be more precise, they would no longer be able to escape Lu Ping's control. Even if these cultivators left the 8 Visions Pagoda, their cultivation and spells would still be affected by the 8 Visions Pagoda. The power of the 8 Visions Pagoda would also depend on the cultivation of the guardians. Simply put, these guardians were equivalent to the slaves of the 8 Visions Pagoda. At present, the 8 Visions Tower had only condensed 8 treasures. Therefore, these cultivators who refined the stone tablets on each floor, no matter how talented they were, could only increase their cultivation to the 8th stage of the core forging stage. The spiritual objects placed inside would also not exceed the upper earth level. Once the 8 Visions Tower passed the first lightning tribulation, the spiritual objects inside could be placed at the lower earth level, and the guards on each floor could also have the possibility of condensing their Dharma power. In this way, the 8 Visions Tower became a 2 tribulation spiritual treasure. The spiritual objects could be placed at the middle earth level, and the guards on each floor could also have the possibility of advancing to the middle Dharma power. After the 8 Visions Tower passed the 3rd lightning tribulation, it became a pure Yang level spiritual treasure. Then the guards would also have the opportunity to become great cultivators. However, even if these cultivators became great cultivators, no matter how powerful they were in front of others, as long as the 8 Visions Tower was activated, these people could only obediently return to be guards inside. Chapter 868. Although the 8 Scenic Pavilion restricted the strength and freedom of each floor's guardian, it was undeniable that the 8 Scenic Pavilion also gave the guardians the possibility of rapidly increasing their cultivation. Some cultivators who had reached a bottleneck but had yet to surpass the 8th stage of the core forging stage could take the opportunity to break through and reach a higher stage if they volunteered to become guardians of the 8 Scenic Pavilion. Moreover, some cultivators who had no hope of reaching the Dharma stage might have the possibility of advancing to the Dharma stage as the 8 Scenic Pavilion became a spiritual treasure. Naturally, that was only a possibility. With the assistance of the 8 Scenic Pavilions, they would have a higher chance of going further compared to the cultivators outside the 8 Scenic Pavilions. That was also why some cultivators would volunteer to become the guardians of the 8 Scenic Pavilions. Truth be told, this was a mutually beneficial and win-win method that the sect had opened up for the cultivators who had lost their path to cultivation. However, this new method had been refined by Lu Ping. In other words, all cultivators who used this method would be restricted by Lu Ping in the future. This was also the reason why Tianlin Laozu had insisted on taking the 8 Scenic Pavilion from Lu Ping and placing it in the back mountain of Tianling Mountain. At least in name, this treasure had to be under the control of Zhenling. This way the risk of Lu Ping wielding this treasure would be minimized. With the cover of the sect, this power, which was highly likely to grow to an unimaginable level in the future, would not die prematurely. When Lu Ping arrived at the 5th floor, Yuan Xuanzhan was meditating with his eyes closed. His aura seemed to merge with the entire 8 Scenic Pavilion. Very quickly he sensed Lu Ping's arrival. Lu Ping looked at Yuan Xuanzhan, who had also opened his eyes and was looking at him calmly. He nodded. Very good, you have refined the 5th floor's guardian stone tablet. Your cultivation has also been pushed to the peak of the 5th stage of the core forging stage. The 5th floor of the pavilion is now under your control. Yuan Xuanzhan's lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. Can I refuse? Lu Ping smiled and took out a stone. Everything around the pavilion seemed to become much heavier. Yuan Xuanzhan looked at the stone in Lu Ping's hand and narrowed his eyes. This is a magnetic absorbing stone? Lu Ping said, yes, this is indeed a magnetic absorbing stone. It is a high-grade Earth-class Earth attribute spiritual object and is also the guardian spirit of the 5th floor. From now on you will use it to guard the 5th floor. Yuan Xuanzhan snorted coldly. You sure are generous. This magnetic absorbing stone is an extremely special existence among high-grade Earth-class spiritual objects. In order to conserve spiritual objects for our disciples to refine, the 8th Scenic Pavilion mostly uses mystic spiritual objects. You brought out such a large high-grade Earth-class spiritual object. Aren't you afraid that my sect's Laozu will rush in and snatch it? Lu Ping smiled. They won't rush in. I still have some use for this magnetic absorbing stone. It's just that this 8th Scenic Pavilion is only used to train blood condensation disciples. It's a waste. I'll use it here for now. I'll take it back in the future. Lu Ping left the 5th floor and went straight to the 8th floor where the Guardian Stone tablet was placed. He sent out a stream of dense true yuan towards the small pavilion. The entire 8th Scenic Pavilion lit up from the 1st floor up. The colorful light illuminated the entire back mountain of Tianling Mountain. At this time, of the 4 Laozu guarding Tianling Mountain, Tianxiang Laozu only glanced in the direction of the back mountain in surprise. Tianling Laozu frowned. Laozu Tianshan was a little surprised, while Laozu Tianshu was completely at a loss. Not long after, a disciple who was training in the 8th Scenic Pavilion rushed all the way to the 3rd floor. Out of curiosity he walked up the stairs to the 4th floor. He didn't expect that the pavilion, which was filled with restrictions, would suddenly open. This disciple thought that it was another training ground set up by the sect. Naturally he wouldn't miss this opportunity. In just the time it takes for a joss stick to burn, a peak blood condensation disciple with a body full of injuries appeared outside the 8th Scenic Pavilion. When someone rushed over after hearing the news, the disciple only managed to say a few words, 4th floor, core forging training ground. Then he completely fainted. The Pill Pavilion's examination finally began under the anticipation of Jinling and the various subordinate forces and clans. Those who could participate in this examination were all alchemists. Most of them were from the 3rd and 4th generation of Jinling. There were also alchemists from Jinling's subordinate forces who hadn't reached the rank of Master Alchemist yet. There were more than 100 people in total. Among them, nearly 70 were alchemists nurtured by Jinling, and nearly 40 were alchemists from the subordinate forces. The examination was divided into 4 parts. The first part was to randomly choose a mid-stage blood condensation pill recipe from the questions given by Jinling. The second part was to randomly choose a pill recipe to concoct, but this time, it was a late-stage blood condensation pill. The third part was to randomly choose a pill recipe to concoct a half-step core forging pill. The spiritual herbs used for these 3 tests were provided by Jinling for free. Even alchemists who couldn't concoct late-stage blood condensation pills could use spiritual herbs to practice. However, when it came to concocting half-step core forging pills, alchemists who couldn't concoct late-stage blood condensation pills were disqualified. After all, Jinling's spiritual herbs weren't for nothing. Knowing that alchemists couldn't even concoct late-stage blood condensation pills, how could they allow alchemists to concoct half-step core forging pills? In the 4th round, the pill refiners had to choose a pill that they were good at, and the quality of the pill had to be at least at the late blood condensation realm. If the first 3 rounds were a comprehensive test, then the last round was a competition between the best pill refiners. The results of the 4 tests would be evaluated by an examiner consisting of Grandmaster alchemists from Jinling's subordinate forces. Based on this evaluation, the ranking of each alchemist would be determined. The top 10 alchemists would be awarded prizes from Jinling and the examiners themselves. Lu Ping couldn't help but curse in his heart when he saw the process of the exam. He felt that the entire process had nothing to do with him. In fact, when he thought about it, the examiners were all ordinary alchemists. The pills they concocted were all blood condensation realm pills. These pills were more than enough for the examiners to evaluate. Even if he said a few words, what could he do? Even if there were 1 or 2 disciples who managed to advance to Grandmaster level in this exam, they would only be beginners. Those who could become examiners were all immersed in refining core forging level pills for hundreds of years. In front of them, even an early core forging level pill could be evaluated by them. How could an alchemy grandmaster like him even need to make a move? Lu Ping carefully watched the entire exam. There were only 3 things he could do. First, before the exam, all the examiners, including the main examiner, would practice their alchemy skills in Pellet Pavilion. As a Grandmaster alchemist and the main examiner, Lu Ping would naturally be the last to perform his alchemy skills. Lu Ping felt indignant in his heart. This was clearly an attempt to force him to abdicate. If the pills Lu Ping refined were not as good as the pills refined by the Grandmaster alchemists before him, then Lu Ping would really be in trouble. Not only would he lose face, but Jinling's image would also be tarnished. Of course, this was also Lu Ping's opinion after knowing the process of the exam. If he was really forced to do something beyond his ability, Lu Ping wouldn't believe that his alchemy skills would be inferior to those Grandmaster alchemists. The second thing was more or less related to the exam. That was, Lu Ping had the final right to evaluate the pills refined by each alchemist who participated in the exam. In other words, Lu Ping had the power to decide the final result of each alchemist in the exam. This seemed to be powerful, but in fact, as mentioned before, when the real evaluation of these pills began, there was no need for Lu Ping. The level of those Grandmaster alchemists was enough. Lu Ping was at best a decoration. He couldn't frequently agree with those Grandmaster examiners. Otherwise, where would Lu Ping put his face as an alchemist Grandmaster? Of course, it was not that there was no opportunity for Lu Ping to perform. If during the process of alchemy, someone refined a pill of similar quality and quantity, at this time Lu Ping, as the chief examiner, would have to step forward. However, such an opportunity was almost impossible in Lu Ping's opinion. The third thing was just an opportunity to highlight the existence of Lu Ping, and that was to award the top 10 alchemists. This opportunity was grand because of his identity as a Grandmaster, but in Lu Ping's view, it was completely exchanged with his own treasures. Lu Ping did not forget that in addition to the rewards from the sect, all the examiners had to give out their own rewards. And as a Grandmaster, Lu Ping was the most miserable one. Now, Lu Ping was in the square of the Pill Pavilion, watching many alchemists as well as many cultivators from Jinling and various affiliated forces and families who came to watch the exam, cheering because of Lu Ping's appearance. Especially the disciples of Jinling, they worshipped Lu Ping like an idol, which made Lu Ping feel at a loss. Lu Ping looked around and saw that there were a few seats in the east, west and south of the square, all of which were reserved for the examiners. Among them there were 3 seats in the south, and the most conspicuous one was the chief examiner of this exam, the alchemist Grandmaster Sage Lu Xianping. The square of the Pill Pavilion was evenly divided into 108 areas, and each area was occupied by an alchemist participating in the exam. Among them, about 80 alchemists had their own alchemy furnace, and the remaining alchemists would apply to Jinling. Jinling would provide alchemy furnaces from the underground pill room of the Pill Pavilion for them to use in the exam. However, these alchemy furnaces were all low-grade magic artifacts, and the alchemists participating in the exam mainly used low-grade magic artifacts. In the entire exam, including the chief examiner, Lu Ping, there were a total of 9 examiners. Lu Ping turned to look at his sides and saw that on his left and right were Sage Xianyu and Sage Xianyan. Both of them were Grandmasters of Jinling. On the east side were enlightened Master Xianjing and 2 other master alchemists that Lu Ping didn't know. Lu Ping guessed that they were from one of Zhenling's sect's subsidiary forces. On the west side were enlightened Master Xiandian and another master alchemist from one of Zhenling's sect's subsidiary forces. And at the bottom was enlightened Master Xianfang. Chapter 869. Lu Ping looked at the hundreds of alchemists in the square. 2/3 of them were using low-grade cauldrons, and less than 1/3 were using mid-grade cauldrons. As for high-grade cauldrons, none of them were using high-grade ones. In the North Sea, there was an unspoken rule that only Grandmaster alchemists could use high-grade pill furnaces. Moreover, most of the North Sea's Grandmaster alchemists only had a mid-grade pill furnace. If they wanted to refine high-grade pills, they would sometimes have to ask for help from forces that had high-grade pill furnaces. Fortunately, these Grandmaster alchemists had high statuses. Generally, as long as they asked for help, the major forces and families would rarely refuse. Even in the Pill Pavilion, Tianlu Laozu would sometimes agree to use Jinling's high-grade pill furnaces for those Grandmaster alchemists who were on good terms with him. Looking at this scene, Lu Ping could not help but lament the poverty of the North Sea's cultivation world. He thought back to the time when he participated in the Northern Alliance's alchemy conference in the East Sea. There were many blood condensation cultivators who had not even succeeded in refining core forging pills. Many of them used high-grade pill furnaces and some even used top-grade pill furnaces. Although these people represented the major powers and clans behind them, at the very least, the subsidiary powers and clans of Zhenling sect would not be able to provide high-grade pill furnaces for these cultivators to use in the Pill Pavilion's examination. Just as Lu Ping's imagination was running wild, the host of the alchemy conference, Spiritual Master Xiandian, announced the start of the conference. Tianlu Laozu had 4 disciples, Xianyan, Xianjing, Tianqin and Xiandian. Among these 4, except for Tianqin Laozu who had surpassed his predecessors, the other 3 were all Grandmaster alchemists. Spiritual Master Xuandian was fine. He had only been a disciple of the Forsaken Sky Cauldron ancestor for a short period of time. His knowledge of the enmity between the Sky Zither ancestor and the Heavenly Spirit ancestor was very vague. On the other hand, Spiritual Master Shen Yen and Spiritual Master Shen Jing were hostile towards Lu Ping because of the matter between Tianling Laozu and Laozu. Especially in this Pill Pavilion's examination, Lu Ping was sitting at the head of the table. Moreover, he was one of the only third-generation disciples among the 9 Grandmaster alchemists. This made Spiritual Master Shen Yen, who sat next to Lu Ping, and Spiritual Master Shen Jing, who sat to the east, felt very uncomfortable. But the two had no choice but to endure. Lu Ping's position as the pavilion head proctor was personally appointed by the Forsaken Heavenly Cauldron's cultivation base and alchemy skills. Even if the two were dissatisfied, they had to admit that they couldn't compare to Lu Ping in either. The only thing that the two of them criticized was Lu Ping's status as a third-generation disciple. But when they thought about Tianshu Laozu, they had no choice but to swallow their dissatisfaction. Before the Pill Pavilion's examination, the 9 examiners would come forward to practice their alchemy skills, also known as the Pill Exhibition. Although it was before the examination, it was indeed one of the highlights of the entire examination. At this time, a large number of cultivators from Jinling and its affiliated forces had gathered outside the Pill Pavilion's square. Among them, there were also many alchemists who had not participated in the examination. Most of them were Jinling's second-generation disciples. Most of them had come for the Pill Exhibition before the examination. The first to go on stage was Jinling's Alchemy Grandmaster. Among the third-generation disciples, he was second only to Grandmaster Lu Xianping, Taoist Master Shen Fang. Taoist Master Shen Fang took out a small bag from his waist. This was a storage bag specially used by Taoist Master Shen Fang to store his alchemy furnace. Taoist Master Shen Fang shook the storage bag, and a square alchemy furnace floated out of the bag. Dang! The 3 feet tall alchemy furnace fell on the square and made a crisp sound when it hit the bluestone on the ground. Lu Ping was very familiar with this alchemy furnace. It was the high-grade alchemy furnace that Lu Ping had used when he became an alchemy grandmaster. Later, because Lu Ping had a better Nachuan cauldron, he gave this alchemy furnace to the new alchemy grandmaster, Taoist Master Shen Fang. Colored glass grass, ancient vine leaves, 1,000 clear branches. Lu Ping just looked at the 1,000-year spirit grass that Taoist Master Shen Fang took out. He knew that he was going to refine the ancient glass pill, which was a commonly used pill in the middle stage of the core forging stage. After all these years, Taoist Master Shen Fang's alchemy skills had also improved greatly. Although the ancient glass pill was not the best pill in the middle stage of the core forging stage, it was still the best pill to show the alchemy skills of an alchemy grandmaster. This kind of pill only took a short time to refine, at most half a day. In fact, this was to not affect the normal progress of the alchemy exam. It seemed that this alchemy exhibition was not peaceful. Although it was to demonstrate alchemy skills to the younger generation, and the alchemy skills between the grandmasters were also secretly competing with each other. On the stage, Lu Ping could not help but show a trace of a sarcastic smile. If it was just putting the spirit grass into the alchemy furnace to refine the pill, the proportion of time in the whole alchemy process was not high. The real time-consuming part was the large amount of preparation work before the alchemy. For this alchemy exhibition, the preparation work was obviously completed by the alchemy grandmasters. What was shown in front of everyone was only the last refining process of the spirit grass into the furnace. As Taoist Master Shen Fang snapped his fingers, an orange flame began to burn at the bottom of the high-grade alchemy furnace. The alchemy exhibition had officially begun. However, when Lu Ping looked at the orange flame of Taoist Master Shen Fang, he showed a trace of surprise. A middle-grade earth-level small orange flame. Previously, Taoist Master Shen Fang had only used a high-grade profound-level spirit fire. This was because after he became an alchemy grandmaster, Qianlu Laozu had specially rewarded him with a heaven and earth-level spirit fire. It seemed like enlightened Master Shen Fang had gained a lot from his time in the Middle Earth. In terms of alchemy, the little orange fire was much stronger than the Earth-class mid-grade Shen-Tian spirit burning fire Lu Ping had. However, after using a high-grade spirit stone, the profound sky spirit fire's grade would temporarily rise to a high-grade earth-level spirit fire. This was something that the small orange flame could not compare to. Following behind Taoist Master Shen Fang was an alchemy grandmaster called Li Yenshan. He was a new alchemy grandmaster who had emerged from the forces under Jinling. In recent years, this Grandmaster Li Yenshan had been in the limelight in the areas under Jinling's control. Of course, this was also because Taoist Master Shen Fang and Lu Ping were in the Middle Earth. Grandmaster Li Yenshan also took out a high-grade alchemy furnace. However, this alchemy furnace was rusty and damaged. Even so, no matter if it was an alchemy grandmaster or an ordinary cultivator, none of them laughed at him. For a rogue cultivator like Grandmaster Li Yenshan to be able to take out a high-grade alchemy furnace was already very impressive. Especially those alchemy grandmasters, many of them even had looks of envy on their faces. A light red flame was burning in his palm. Lu Ping recognized that this was a high-grade earth-level spirit fire. It was called the lightning strike flame. Legend has it that this flame was formed when a spirit wood was struck by lightning and burned for many years. After Li Yenshan was Taoist Master Shen Dian. As the last disciple of Fornax Laozu, Taoist Master Shen Dian was a modest person. The heaven and earth-level spirit fire he used was also a mid-grade earth-level spirit fire. Next were two alchemy grandmasters from other forces. Their alchemy furnaces were both high-grade, but their spirit fires were only low-grade earth-level spirit fires. When Taoist Master Shen Jing stood up, he intentionally or unintentionally glanced in the direction of Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping did not even look at him. In the past, Taoist Master Shen Jing used the spirit-stealing technique to steal 1/3 of the medicinal properties of the forging spirit pill that Tianling Laozu sent to the pill pavilion. This almost caused Liang Tianfeng Laozu to fail in refining the Tianfeng leaf. At that time, it was thanks to Lu Ping that he had mastered the refining method of the minor forging spirit pill, which helped Liang Tianfeng Laozu condense a good 7th-grade golden pill. Otherwise, Jinling might have lost to Fa Xiang Laozu. After this incident, Tianlu Laozu was furious, and Taoist Master Shen Jing's cultivation was almost abolished. From then on, all the affairs of the pill pavilion were no longer handed over to him. However, although Taoist Master Shen Jing's character and cultivation were not good, his alchemy skills were really brilliant. Not to mention the ingenuity of the spirit-stealing technique. Just by looking at the disciple he taught, Taoist Master Shen Fang, and his status among the third-generation disciples of the pill pavilion, it could be seen that this person had real skills. If it were not for a monstrous genius like Lu Ping and Jinling, Taoist Master Shen Fang would have become an existence that could call the wind and summon the rain among the third-generation disciples of Jinling. Taoist Master Shen Jing used 1/3 of the stolen forging spirit pill to successfully refine a middle-grade earth-level spirit object. After advancing to the late stage of core forging, his alchemy skills had really improved. A pill furnace appeared on the square of the pill pavilion in front of Lu Ping, who looked as if he had seen a ghost. Not only Lu Ping but the other alchemy grandmasters present were also shocked. The cultivators watching the scene even exclaimed, "Taoist Master Shen Jing actually took out a top-grade pill furnace." The cultivators outside the square naturally marveled at the appearance of a top-grade pill furnace, but Lu Ping and the others were greatly surprised, because they all recognized this top-grade pill furnace. It was the pill furnace used by Tianqin Laozu on a daily basis. They didn't expect that he would actually ask for it from Tianqin Laozu. The only person in the square who was not surprised was Taoist Master Shen Yan. Among the 4 disciples of Tianlu Laozu, Taoist Master Shen Jing had the best relationship with Tianqin Laozu. Although Taoist Master Shen Jing's character was somewhat flawed and narrow-minded, but it was undeniable that his protection of Tianqin Laozu came from the bottom of his heart. When Tianqin Laozu entered Tianlu Laozu's tutelage, she was still a little girl, and Taoist Master Shen Jing protected her like an elder brother. When it came to the friendship between Tianlu Laozu's disciples, the relationship between Tianqin Laozu and Taoist Master Shen Jing was the deepest. Taoist Master Shen Yan was not surprised that Taoist Master Shen Jing was able to ask Tianqin Laozu for a top-grade pill furnace. A mid-grade earth-level heaven and earth spirit fire. This was the mid-grade earth-level heaven and earth spirit fire that Taoist Master Shen Jing had refined when he had advanced to the late core forging stage. In addition to the high-grade earth-level heaven and earth spirit fire that he had refined when he had advanced to the mid-core forging stage, the quality of this heaven and earth spirit fire was almost at the same level. Lu Ping looked at the spirit herbs that Taoist Master Shen Jing took out and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The illusionary pill was an elixir of the highest quality among the late core forging stage elixirs. The difficulty of refining it was also quite high. Usually, if an alchemist could successfully refine this kind of elixir, it usually meant that he or she had the qualifications to refine elixirs that were half a step into the Dharma realm. He didn't expect that Taoist Master Xian Jing's alchemy skills would improve so quickly. Lu Ping couldn't help but look at Taoist Master Xian Yan and Taoist Master Xian Yu on his side. Since Taoist Master Xian Jing had taken out the illusionary pill, these two seemed to have elixirs that were at least half a step into the Dharma realm. Chapter 870. In fact, there was another alchemy master in Jinling. That was Tianqin Laozu's fifth disciple, Chu Xuanting. Moreover, Chu Xuanting's talent in alchemy was not inferior to immortal Xian Fang's. She was also quite famous among the third generation of Jinling's disciples. However, Chu Xuanting grew up in the East Sea. After returning to the North Sea with Tianqin Laozu, she was not used to it. In desperation, Tianqin Laozu sent her to the Jingzhe Island in the East Sea. At the same time, when Tianqin Laozu was an elder in the boudoir, he had left many spies. These connections were also handed over to Chu Xuanting to manage. Just as Lu Ping expected, enlightened Master Xian Yan's cauldron was also a top-grade cauldron. Moreover, it was the Lin Chuan cauldron that forefather Tian Wu used to exchange for the Na Chuan cauldron from Lu Ping. This made Lu Ping curse. According to immortal Xian Yan's alchemy skills, he was not qualified to use a top-grade alchemy furnace. However, now that Tianqin Laozu had let go of everything and Tianqin Laozu was in seclusion, most of the things in the elixir pavilion were managed by immortal Xian Yan. It was normal for him to use this top-grade alchemy furnace. The earth-ranked high-grade spirit-gathering flame ignited, and Lu Ping watched as enlightened Master Xian Yan placed the spirit herbs into the cauldron. He was amused. After so many years, enlightened Master Xian Yan had finally succeeded in concocting the spirit-cleansing pellet. Although the spirit-cleansing pill was an authentic late-core forging realm elixir, this was because the spirit herbs used to refine the spirit-cleansing pill were not 3,000 years old. However, it was undeniable that the difficulty of refining the spirit-cleansing pill was comparable to refining elixirs of the half-step Dharma stage. Therefore, alchemists who could successfully refine the spirit-cleansing pill often had the ability to refine elixirs of the half-step Dharma stage. This was a level higher than immortal Xian Jing, who was only qualified to refine elixirs of the half-step Dharma stage. Even so, compared to immortal Xian Yu, immortal Xian Yan was still a lot inferior. When the firmament cauldron was taken out by immortal Xian Yu, the entire square of the elixir pavilion burst into cheers. Heavenly Cauldron Laozu's life treasure cauldron. Perhaps this was the only chance for most of the cultivators present to see a Dharma treasure furnace. Lu Ping frowned. He didn't expect Fornax Laozu to give the firmament cauldron to Taoist Xian Yu. It seemed like Fornax Laozu had high expectations for Taoist Xian Yu. However, as Reverend Xian Yu smiled apologetically, the puzzled Lu Ping abruptly widened his eyes. A noun from a distant memory rushed into Lu Ping's mind and magnified in his eyes, turning into the word fuck. If the crimson flame burning in Reverend Xuanyue's hand was not the crimson spirit flame that Lu Ping had obtained from Fornax Laozu, what else could it be? The fresh divine sense imprint clearly told Lu Ping that this crimson spirit flame was without a doubt the same crimson spirit flame that Lu Ping gave to the Forsaken Sky Cauldron Grandmaster a few days ago. Taoist Xian Yu seemed to have expected that Lu Ping would be in a bad mood at this time. He hurriedly walked to the square and under the fervent gazes of many cultivators, he started the firmament cauldron and began to refine the pill. Bell Cauldron Pill. The pill that Taoist Xian Yu refined made Lu Ping a little surprised. In this kind of occasion, the alchemy grandmasters would definitely refine the pill that they were extremely confident in. Otherwise, if they failed, it would be too shameful. Taoist Xian Yu refined Fornax Laozu's famous pill on the spot. This clearly showed that he was certain that he would succeed. If this was the case, his alchemy skills were indeed higher than Taoist Xian Yan's. It was no wonder that Fornax Laozu would give him the firmament cauldron. Although the Bell Cauldron pill was only a half-step core forging pill, it was more difficult to refine than the spirit cleansing pill. Its reputation in the North Sea was like thunder to the ears. It was one of the best healing pills in the entire North Sea's cultivation world. When Taoist Xian Yu's Bell Cauldron pill entered the cauldron, all the cultivators in the square began to focus their attention on Lu Ping, who was sitting at the head of the table. Originally, about 60% of the cultivators who came to watch the Elixir Conference had come because of Lu Ping, the Water Sword Deity, Alchemy Grandmaster, and defeated Dharma Laozu. They did not understand alchemy at all, and they did not understand the level of the alchemy skills displayed by the alchemy masters present. The number of alchemy masters who had truly seen Lu Ping display his alchemy skills at the Grandmaster level was less than 20%. The rest of the cultivators were the so-called dabblers, watching the show while watching the alchemy. However, for the people present, this elixir conference was already a worthwhile trip. In addition to the various types of spirit fires of heaven and earth, no one expected that this elixir conference would have 2 top-grade alchemy cauldrons and 1 Dharma stage alchemy cauldron. In addition, there were rumors that Taoist Lu Xianping also controlled a magic treasure alchemy cauldron, which meant that this elixir conference would have 2 Dharma stage alchemy cauldrons. Just this alone was enough for the cultivators present to boast in front of others in the future. How many magic treasure alchemy cauldrons were there in the entire North Sea? Before Junling's Heaven Cauldron appeared, the only magic treasure alchemy cauldron known in the entire North Sea was Xianling Sect's Sea Boiling Cauldron. Now there were 2 magic treasure alchemy cauldrons, and these 2 cauldrons were owned by Junling. The meaning behind this was that benevolent people see benevolence and wise people see wisdom. Under such circumstances, Lu Ping naturally would not pass on this responsibility. The bronze-colored Nachuan cauldron appeared in the center of the square with a trace of roughness and solemnity from ancient times. For a moment, even the Heaven Cauldron controlled by Taoist Shenyue was overshadowed by it. A real alchemist could sense the difference between the two. The alchemy cauldron also depended on the foundation. Although both the Nachuan cauldron and the Heaven Cauldron had only condensed 1 treasure prohibition, the Nachuan cauldron undoubtedly had a stronger foundation. The predecessor who refined the Nachuan cauldron had already left enough room for future improvement for the Heaven Cauldron, while the Heaven Cauldron had already reached its end. The appearance of the Nachuan cauldron finally confirmed a rumor circulating in the North Sea's cultivation world. Junling really controlled 2 magic treasure alchemy cauldrons. Junling's foundation was really surpassing Xianling Sect bit by bit. Although there had long been rumors that Xianling Sect had received secret help from the Crystal Palace, and seemed to be working on upgrading the Sea Boiling Cauldron or another top-grade alchemy cauldron to the magic treasure level, this news had never been confirmed. What elixir is Jinren Lu Xianping going to refine? It must be a Dharma-level elixir. Jinren Lu is a master alchemist. What kind of heaven and earth spiritual fire will he use? Maybe a heaven-level one. Both Jinren Shenyue and Jinren Shenyue used earth upper-grade spiritual fire. Jinren Lu is a master, of course he is stronger than them. That might not be the case. After all, Jinren Lu is still young. With more than 100 years of cultivation time, how much foundation can we hope for him to accumulate? A earth upper-grade spiritual fire at most. In the anticipation of the crowd, a silver-white strange flame slowly rose from Lu Ping's palm. The surrounding discussion suddenly quieted down. What kind of flame is this? It's so warm. Why do I feel that it has no power at all? Exactly. Look at the power of the heaven and earth spiritual fire when the masters made their moves. The heat wave of the fire swept over, and the temperature of the entire elixir pavilion square was rising. Not only the surrounding cultivators, but many alchemists also looked at Lu Ping with puzzled eyes. However, these alchemists were not questioning the spiritual fire in Lu Ping's hand like the other cultivators. It was because they did not know this kind of spiritual fire at all. Although the power of the heaven and earth spiritual fire suitable for alchemy was weaker than that suitable for crafting weapons, the word weak was relative. None of the real heaven and earth spiritual fire was weak in the eyes of a real expert. The difference was only in the person using it. Not only these ordinary alchemists, but also among the 8 alchemy grandmasters controlling the flame, Taoist Shen Fang and the other 2 grandmasters from the affiliated forces were also looking at the flame in Lu Ping's hand with puzzled eyes. When the other 3 masters, Taoist Shen Yen, Taoist Shen Jing and Taoist Shen Yu saw the heaven and earth spiritual fire in Lu Ping's hand, their faces simultaneously revealed a shocked expression. Taoist Shen Yu had obtained Lu Ping's red spiritual fire from Fornax Laozu, but Fornax Laozu did not tell him that Lu Ping had obtained the silver spiritual fire. At the same time, Taoist Li Yen also recognized the heaven and earth spiritual fire in Lu Ping's hand. Looking at this person's expression, Lu Ping was a little surprised. It seemed that this person's inheritance was also not bad. His vision and knowledge were not bad, but he did not have the support of a big force behind him. That broken high-grade alchemy furnace was fine, but that profound grade spiritual fire was a little lacking. Taoist Shen Dian was also puzzled at first, but after a moment he seemed to remember the origin of the flame in Lu Ping's hand. Suddenly, like Taoist Shen Yen and the others, his face was full of amazement. The silver spiritual fire was really an extremely rare spiritual fire among the heaven and earth spiritual fires. Martial nephew Lu, this flame, could it be? Seeing that Taoist Shen Yu was about to ask, the cultivators watching the ceremony all pricked up their ears. The expressions of the several alchemy grandmasters present were all seen by everyone. How could they not know that this seemingly ordinary flame that Taoist Lu Shenping took out must certainly have a great origin? However, Taoist Shen Yu said could it be for a long time, perhaps because he did not want to reveal the details of Lu Ping. In the end, he did not say the name of the flame, causing many of the cultivators present to secretly curse at him. Lu Ping nodded and said with a smile, "Martial uncle's guess is correct, this is the silver spiritual fire." Although Taoist Shen Yu did not think that Lu Ping would say the name of the spiritual fire, but hearing that it was indeed the strange spiritual fire he had guessed, he could not help but sigh and said, "So it is." When the other alchemy grandmasters heard about the silver spiritual fire, their expressions changed. Even Taoist Shen Fang and the others did not recognize it, but they had definitely heard of this famous alchemy flame. Soon, the alchemy grandmasters who had heard of the silver spiritual fire cried out in surprise, and the name of the silver spiritual fire spread to all the cultivators present. Most of the cultivators did not know the specific function of the silver spiritual fire, but just the words "heaven rank middle grade" was enough for many of the cultivators present to praise it for a long time. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and drew a line in front of him. 20 to 30 white jade boxes that were specially used to store spiritual herbs appeared in front of him. Een spirit leaf, 9 crooked ginseng, star anise root, yellow forest bark. Every time Lu Ping took out a 3,000-year-old spiritual herb from a jade box, the alchemy grandmasters present would shout out loudly. However, when Lu Ping took out nearly 33,000-year-old spiritual herbs in a row, including the alchemy grandmasters, no one could guess what Dan Lu Ping was going to refine. Chapter 871. Lu Ping raised his head to look at the sky. There were no clouds in the sky and a cool breeze was blowing gently. However, because of the heaven and earth spiritual fires in the Pill Pavilion Square, even though the alchemists tried their best to restrain it, the cool breeze turned into a heat wave. Lu Ping looked at enlightened Master Shen Yu, who was controlling the heaven cauldron on the square, and a trace of displeasure flashed across his heart. Although Fornak's cauldron ancestor had told him about his plan, Lu Ping still had some doubts about the crimson spirit flame being exposed so early. It seemed that advancing to the Dharma manifestation stage was imminent. If Yan Wujiao and Wan Yu's plan succeeded, then the origin of the red spiritual flame could be explained to them. Otherwise, whether it was Lu Ping or Jinling, they did not want to have such a strong opponent like the Fire Phoenix clan in the East Sea. On the square, hundreds of divine senses and divine senses were intertwined. The pill competition was a rare opportunity for alchemists to show their alchemy skills. The alchemy masters opened their cauldrons one after another, so that they could stagger the time of refining the elixirs. It was convenient for the many alchemists present to verify with each other and learn different alchemy skills and experience. Half a day passed quickly, and the alchemy masters on the square had reached the time to open their cauldrons. The first to open the cauldron was not enlightened Xianfeng, but Master Li Yenshan. Lu Ping saw it clearly from the side. It was not that he wanted to open the cauldron now, but because his cauldron was too old, the spirit chi and pill chi were leaking. If he did not open the cauldron now, the speed of refining the elixirs would not be able to keep up with the speed of the loss of the elixirs. A mid-core forging elixir was comparable to enlightened Xuanfang's ancient glass elixir. 5 elixirs were produced in one cauldron, so the success rate was not bad. Immediately after, enlightened Xuanfang's ancient glass elixir was also out of the cauldron. Before the 6 ancient glass elixirs flew too far from the cauldron, they were all sucked into a jade bottle by enlightened Xianfeng. Because of Grandmaster Li Yenshan, many of the Jinling cultivators present cheered when they saw enlightened Master Xianfeng taking out one more pill. Taoist Master Xianfeng, on the other hand, felt a little awkward. He knew that if Taoist Master Li Yenshan's pill furnace was not too shabby, his success rate might not have been reduced by 10%. If the spiritual fire in his hand was also upgraded to earth rank, Taoist Master Xianfeng was not confident that he could beat him in alchemy. Perfected Li Yenshan, on the other hand, was unperturbed. He merely smiled at perfected Xianfeng's apologetic gaze. Lu Ping saw all of this. Immediately after, Taoist Master Shen Dian and the 2 external alchemists also opened their cauldrons. Although the three of them were much more experienced in alchemy than Taoist Master Shen Fang and perfected Li Yenshan, even though they were all in the middle stage of the core forging stage, the quality and success rate of their pills were better than Taoist Master Shen Fang and perfected Li Yenshan. However, Lu Ping did not see any spirituality in the three of them like Taoist Master Shen Fang and perfected Li Yenshan. This meant that the three of them had basically no chance of improving their alchemy skills. Taoist Master Shen Fang and perfected Li Yenshan's alchemy skills still had a lot of room for improvement. Soon it was time for Taoist Master Shen Jing to open his cauldron. 3 illusionary pills flew out of the cauldron in a row. This made Taoist Master Shen Jing very satisfied. If he had used a high-grade cauldron to refine the illusionary pills in the past, he would only be able to produce 2 pills at a time. Although he had used a top-grade cauldron this time, a large part of the reason was that his alchemy skills had improved significantly. The illusionary pills had a 30% success rate. This meant that he could at least ask his master, Qianlu Laozu, to refine elixirs that were half a step into the Dharma stage. However, he was a little worried. This time, it was obviously because he had Tianqin Laozu's top-grade cauldron in his hands. After this, he would have to return the cauldron. Taoist Master Shen Jing knew that when Tianling Laozu and Tianlin Laozu had turned against each other, Tianqin Laozu had been unhappy with him. It was only because of their old friendship that he had lent the cauldron to him. If he were to borrow it again in the future, it would not be so easy anymore. Putting away the cauldron and the spirit fire, Taoist Master Jinling waved his hand at the cheering disciples around him. Taoist Master Shen Jing looked at Lu Shenping, who was controlling the silver spirit fire to refine elixirs leisurely. What kind of elixir was this guy refining? Taoist Master Shen Jing was not the only one who had this question. Almost all the alchemists present had the same question. What kind of elixir was Grandmaster Lu Shenping refining? Taoist Master Shen Yan's spirit cleansing pill was finally about to be refined. This kind of high-grade elixir had the same effect on late core forging adepts. In Taoist Master Shen Yan's Linchuan cauldron, he had also achieved a 30% success rate. Under normal circumstances, a cauldron of elixirs would only contain 10 elixirs. The common rule of the Jinling sect was to achieve at least a 30% success rate for elixirs to be considered qualified. Therefore, Taoist Master Shen Jing's illusionary pills had reached a 30% success rate. He was now qualified to refine elixirs that were half a step into the Dharma stage. Taoist Master Shen Yan had also achieved a 30% success rate. This meant that he could finally refine the spirit cleansing pill. Taoist Master Shen Yan did not like Lu Ping either. However, it was just a simple dislike. It was not like Taoist Master Shen Jing, who hated him to the point of scheming against him. However, he also had some doubts about the elixir that Lu Ping had refined. It was not only because of the mysteriousness of the elixir, but also because of the silver spirit flame. It was said that although the silver spirit flame could increase the success rate of elixirs, the amount of inner yuan required to control the spirit flame was double that of a normal spirit flame. The time required to control the spirit flame was also double that of a similar elixir. In this way, using the silver spirit flame to refine a cauldron of elixirs would consume 4 times the amount of inner yuan compared to a normal cultivator. Would this guy be able to withstand it? If there was a situation where he ate elixirs and used spirit stones to replenish his inner yuan, then he would become a laughing stock. Taoist Master Shen Yan's level was higher than Taoist Master Shen Jing's level of schadenfreude. At the very least, he would consider that if Lu Ping really made a fool of himself, he would be touching Jinling's own dark side. Compared to the mystery of Lu Ping's elixir, Taoist Master Shen Yu's Zhongding elixir was much more attention-grabbing. After all, the Zhongding elixir was the elixir that made Qianlu Laozu famous in the past. Although it was only half a step to the Dharma stage, the core forging stage and Dharma stage cultivators who had survived all these years because of the Zhongding elixir were not the only ones in Jinling. There were also many people from other sections. This had given Jinling a lot of favors and reputation. What's more, there was also the Firmament Cauldron, the #1 cauldron of Jinling in name. As for the red spirit flame, although very few of the cultivators present knew about it, Lu Ping had to prepare for the worst. Although he roughly knew about Qianlu Laozu's plan, in reality he was not optimistic about it. After all, the red spirit flame had a lot of implications. If there was really a misunderstanding with the Fire Phoenix race, he hoped that Yan Wujiu and Luan Yu would have enough weight to help him. Taoist Master Shen Yu was a little surprised that the 4 Zhongding elixirs were out of the cauldron. This meant that he even had the qualifications to start refining the Dharma stage elixir. He was already a genuine alchemy grandmaster. This was not something that a half-step grandmaster could compare with. The latter was usually just a way to elevate others, but Taoist Master Xianyu was the real alchemy grandmaster. All he lacked was the last Dharma stage elixir. Lu Ping was still refining his elixir leisurely. Until now, the mysterious elixir refined in the Nachuan cauldron did not seem to have any signs of solidifying. What kind of elixir was this? As time slowly passed, the number of Jinling cultivators who came to the square to watch the ceremony did not decrease. Instead it increased. Now, it seemed that all the Jinling cultivators who stayed behind in Tianling Mountain knew that Taoist Master Lu Xianping was refining a mysterious elixir. Everyone in the square was looking forward to the final mystery being revealed. No one showed a trace of impatience, including cultivators like Taoist Master Xianjing who had a grudge with Lu Ping. Lu Ping raised his head and looked at the sky. Unknowingly, wisps of clouds had drifted over and covered the sun that was already slanting in the west. As Lu Ping was the only one left in the square, the previously bustling scene seemed a little cold. The breeze brought a hint of coolness. Lu Ping nodded in his heart. It seemed that it was almost time to solidify the elixir. However, it was his first time refining this kind of elixir. He really did not know what the success rate would be. Although it was only an early-stage Dharma realm elixir, even if he did not use the purple crystal royal jelly, he still had a success rate of more than 40%. However, if something went wrong, he would really be overreaching himself this time. It's solidifying, it's solidifying. The cultivators in the square who were watching were suddenly shocked. Hundreds of divine thoughts and divine senses surged into the Nachuan cauldron, but they obediently left enough space. They did not dare to interfere with Lu Ping's divine thoughts in controlling the process of solidifying the elixir in the cauldron. Another half an hour passed. According to the normal alchemy process, it was already the final time to open the cauldron. The rich fragrance of the elixir had already filled the entire elixir pavilion square. It's time to open the cauldron. If we don't open it now, it looks like it's going to rain. Many cultivators in the square saw that the sky had gradually darkened. Jinling's mountain defense formation would not block out ordinary weather like wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. It can't be. Until now there are still 10 elixirs in the cauldron. A cultivator exclaimed in a low voice. At this time, many cultivators realized that until now, there were still 10 elixirs in the Nachuan cauldron that had gradually solidified, and none of them had been destroyed. Grandmaster Lu Xianping is really amazing. He can even have a 100% success rate of Dharma realm elixirs. No, this is too strange. Dharma realm elixirs have a 100% success rate and none of them have been destroyed. Is it possible? Didn't you see that the few masters on the square are frowning? Even they don't believe it. Indeed, although it is an early-stage Dharma realm elixir, who has ever heard of a 100% success rate? I'm afraid that only alchemists who have achieved the divine soul stage can achieve this. Boom. A muffled thunder suddenly sounded in the sky, and the whole world became even darker. At this moment, Lu Ping's slightly squinted eyes suddenly lit up. With the last hand seal, he pushed the cauldron toward the cauldron. The lid of the Nachuan cauldron floated up, and 10 elixirs flew out of the cauldron. 10, it really is 10 elixirs, a 100% success rate. Someone in the square suddenly shouted. However, before the cultivators in the square who were watching the ceremony could be in an uproar because of this exciting moment, the dark clouds in the sky were suddenly torn apart by a green light, followed by a muffled thunder. The green light zigzagged and suddenly hit the 10 elixirs that were escaping in all directions. There was a sudden exclamation in the square. Many cultivators watched as 6 of the 10 elixirs exploded on the spot. Although the remaining 4 were lucky enough to escape, the outer layer of the elixirs was covered with a layer of purple. Chapter 872. Tainted Elixirs, Tainted Elixirs. Many alchemists cried out in alarm, and several alchemy grandmasters on the scene also showed expressions of regret and pity. Only Taoist Xianjing had a trace of schadenfreude hanging on the corner of his mouth, which also made Taoist Xianyan a little unhappy. When the alchemy furnace was taken out of the furnace, it was invaded by external evils, causing the essence of the elixir to change and lose its original effect. This was usually called a tainted elixir. The power of the green lightning that fell from the sky was not very strong. An ordinary core forging adept would be able to easily block it. It was just that it happened so suddenly and the lightning was so fast that outsiders could not intervene at all. As the alchemist, Lu Ping was the most likely person to block the lightning. Unfortunately, at that moment, immortal Lu Xianping seemed to hesitate and did not plan to intervene at all. Just when everyone felt that it was a pity, they saw Lu Ping suddenly show a look of joy. Under everyone's puzzled expressions, he took out a jade essence bottle and collected the 4 purple elixirs that were still flying around in the sky. These 4 elixirs were all collected by Lu Ping into the jade essence bottle. Jade essence bottle? The alchemy masters were stunned. Could it be that this elixir had other uses? Just when everyone was looking at each other, Lu Ping was acutely aware of the sudden arrival of a strong divine consciousness. Then, several late core forging adepts present, including Lu Ping, Xian Yan, and Xian Yu, could feel that this familiar divine consciousness came from Qianlu Laozu. Just when everyone was puzzled, another 3 divine consciousnesses came from several important caves on Tianling Mountain. They were Tianling Laozu, Tianqin, and Tianshan Laozu. At this time, even the slowest person could already tell that the 4 elixirs that seemed to have been tainted by Lu Ping were not simple. However, while the crowd was still unaware, Lu Ping's divine will was able to detect that there were actually 2 other faint divine wills observing the situation. It was just that the level of training of these 2 people was too high. Other than Lu Ping's divine will, which was almost comparable to the mid-Dharma stage, no one else was able to detect them. Tianfan Laozu had already left for Jingzhi Island. Lu Ping knew that one of the 2 strands of divine sense belonged to Tianlin Laozu, while the other belonged to Tianxiang Laozu. Reverend Xinyue was astonished when he saw the calm expression on Lu Ping's face. Could it be that the green lightning-tainted pill was purposely caused by Lu Ping? Just as Reverend Xinyue was about to open his mouth to ask, he saw a space door suddenly appear in front of Lu Ping. Tianlu Laozu stepped out and looked around. The whispers in the surroundings immediately disappeared. A few of the most respected alchemy masters were about to step forward to greet him, but they saw Tianxiang Laozu's gaze fixed on Lu Ping. He said, "The purple sun thunder tempering pill?" Lu Ping hesitated for a moment. He knew that the commotion today was too big. Anyone who was observant would most likely be able to guess something after hearing about it. There was no way to hide it. Thus, he nodded and said, "Reporting to Uncle Master, it is indeed." Tianlu Laozu was about to say something, but his expression changed slightly. Lu Ping's divine will could clearly sense that a strand of divine will had suddenly appeared beside Tianlu Laozu. It seemed to be conveying some kind of message. "Give it to me." Tianlu Laozu directly stretched out his hand. Lu Ping knew that today's matter was a bit big, so he obediently handed over the jade essence bottle. Tianlu Laozu took the jade essence bottle and seemed to hesitate for a moment. In the end he couldn't help but ask, "Where did you get the pill recipe?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "It was a coincidence." Tianlu Laozu knew that Lu Ping was unwilling to say, so he didn't force him. He just nodded, turned around and disappeared into the space door. At this time, although the alchemists present still didn't know what kind of spirit pill this purple sun thunder tempering pill was, the 2 words tempering thunder, as the name suggested, made it clear that this spirit pill was not a dirty pill. It was intentional by Lu Ping. The lightning that fell from the sky should be a necessary part of this spirit pill's formation. The appearance of Lu Ping's purple sun thunder tempering pill, although there was no cheering from the Jinling disciples, the shock it brought was far more than what the previous masters could compare to. Even if they joined forces, it might not be as shocking as the green lightning that Lu Ping had released when he opened the cauldron. An alchemist grandmaster was indeed an alchemist grandmaster. The pill he refined was so big that even Tianlu Laozu was alarmed. This pill must be extraordinary. This was what ordinary cultivators and alchemists could think of. What kind of spirit pill was this purple sun thunder tempering pill? How come no one had ever mentioned it before? It seemed that Tianlu Laozu must have known about it. Moreover, the spirit pill attracted the attention of the Jinling disciples and Laozu. This pill must be extraordinary. This was the guess of the alchemy masters. Even Tianlin uncle and Tianxiang uncle, who were concentrating on preparing for the first thunder tribulation, were alarmed. It seemed that the pill recipe obtained from Fan Yuqing was real. They didn't expect that the legendary pill among the alchemy masters really existed. But where did Fan Yuqing get it? They didn't know if the Taishan sect also had this kind of pill. Lu Ping secretly pondered. This time he seemed to have been a bit rash. Refining this kind of pill in this kind of situation, although it confirmed his guess, he was afraid that the secret could not be kept. Reverend Xinyue hesitated for a moment, but looking at the hundreds of inquiring eyes around him, he knew that if he didn't ask for guidance, this would not be easy to get through. So he asked Lu Ping loudly, Nephew Lu, what kind of spirit pill is this purple sun thunder tempering pill? What kind of miraculous effects does it have that Master Qianlu personally came here? Lu Ping knew a little about Reverend Xianyue and smiled. Reporting Master Xianyue, this is an early Dharma spirit pill that I obtained. It has many miraculous effects for early Dharma adepts. It can be considered one of the better early Dharma spirit pills. It's just that the conditions for refining this spirit pill are too strange, and it has been lost in the world of practitioners for a long time. This time I found this pill recipe by accident. I didn't believe it at first, but I wanted to verify it at the alchemy exhibition. Who would have thought that it would cause such a big commotion? Qianlu Laozu must be excited to see it. After all, this spirit pill has been lost for thousands of years. Reverend Xianyue had a look of realization on his face, but in his heart, he was still doubtful. If it really was a lost spirit pill, then it would make sense for Qianlu and Tianqin, the two of them, to come here. But how could it have attracted Tianling and Tianshan? This did not make sense as these two were not alchemists. It seemed like the problem was with the green lightning. The question was, could it be that the green lightning had started to gather when Lu Ping opened the alchemy furnace, all for the moment when the spirit pill came out of the furnace? Reverend Xianyue raised his head to look at the sky. The dark clouds were still gathering and a drizzle had already started to fall. Not only Reverend Xianyue but the other alchemists were also doubtful of what Lu Ping had said, but they did not dare to ask further. Reverend Xianyuan Dian saw everything clearly from the side, so he quickly said, "Good, the alchemy exhibition is over. All alchemists must go back and carefully comprehend it. I hope this alchemy exhibition will be of some help to everyone's alchemy skills. Tomorrow the Pill Pavilion's examination will officially begin. Everyone go back and prepare yourselves." After everyone left, Lu Ping went straight to Qianlu Laozu's cave mansion. As soon as he entered the cave mansion he saw Tianxiang, Qianlu, Tianling, Tianlin, Tianshan and Tianqin. The 6 alchemists who stayed behind to guard Tianling Mountain were all present. Only Tianjiang Laozu was still in the artifact refining hall, and Tianshu Laozu was also absent. Lu Ping chuckled and quickly stepped forward, bowed and said, "Disciple greets everyone, Laozu greets teacher. Glib tongue, stand properly." Tianling Laozu shouted. Lu Ping couldn't help but straighten his face and bowed with his head lowered. "Let me ask you, where did this purple sun lightning tempering pill come from?" Tianling Laozu saw that Lu Ping was obedient, so he restrained his sternness, but still asked in a deep voice. Lu Ping replied, "Reporting to teacher, I got it from the Supreme Profound Sect's direct disciple, Fan Yuqing. I have already reported this matter to teacher and Uncle Master Tianxiang." The other alchemists all looked at Tianxiang Laozu, who was sitting in the seat of honor. Tianxiang Laozu nodded slightly. Qianlu Laozu opened his mouth and asked, "I believe you also know the function of this purple sun lightning tempering pill, right?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "I know, but I don't believe it." "So you wanted to verify it at the alchemy assembly? How can you not think about it? If you fail you will lose face. If you succeed, you will cause such a huge commotion, and the secret of the purple sun lightning tempering pill will not be kept." Qianlu Laozu was extremely displeased. This reprimand could already be considered severe. The second-generation disciples of Tianling, Tianshan, Tianqin and the others did not say anything else. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Disciple has carefully studied the pill formula and found that there are no loopholes in the entire pill formula. Just from this point alone, disciple is still confident." Lu Ping's words were extremely confident. Qianlu and Tianqin Laozu would not doubt him. After all, they were all great alchemists. Especially since Lu Ping could actually produce this purple sun lightning tempering pill, his alchemy skills were probably not below those of the two of them. If he could not even distinguish the authenticity of a pill formula, then it would be too much of a joke. The only thing this disciple doesn't understand is the final lightning tempering segment. It's a bit too exaggerated, so this disciple wants to give it a try. Even if I fail, at least I can guarantee that the pill will be formed, and others won't be able to tell anything. The only thing I didn't expect was that this pill formula was so strange that it actually attracted a bolt of green lightning. At this point, even Lu Ping smiled bitterly. It was not just a green bolt of lightning. This green bolt of lightning obviously contained the aura of a lightning tribulation. Although this aura was so weak that it was almost negligible, any news of a lightning tribulation would be sensitive enough to attract the attention of any Dharma adept. This was also why the moment the purple sun lightning tempering pill was formed, almost all the Dharma adepts on Tianling Mountain sent their will down. Even Tianlin Laozu and Tianqin Laozu, who were in seclusion, were no exception. Chapter 873. Tianlu Laozu's face was still pale. Tianling Laozu said, "Master, although this purple sun thunder tempering pill is said to be helpful for cultivators to pass through the thunder tribulations, in reality, even if it is helpful, it is only a drop in the bucket. It is very limited. It is only because this pill is the only one that can help in passing through the thunder tribulations in the world of alchemy. That's why it is so famous. This pill is really exaggerated." Tianlu Laozu snorted coldly and said, "How could the old man not know that this pill is exaggerated? Are you talking about what the old man told you in the past?" Tianqin Laozu was embarrassed by Tianlu Laozu's words and stopped talking. Tianlu Laozu looked at Lu Ping and said, "No matter how weak this pill is, it is still helpful for cultivators to pass through the thunder tribulations. This is something that no one can deny. Do you know that this alone is enough to attract the greed of many Dharma adepts?" Tianxiang Laozu suddenly asked, "What are your plans after the Elixir Pavilion's examination?" Lu Ping thought for a while and said, "I will go to Frost Island and then find a place to go into seclusion." Tianxiang Laozu nodded and said, "That's good. You go and hide for a while. The matter of the purple sun thunder tempering pill can be big or small. It depends on the situation." Tianlu Laozu threw the jade essence bottle to Jiang Tianlin Laozu and said, "Take it. Although this thing is exaggerated, it will help you pass through the thunder tribulations." Tianlin Laozu took the jade essence bottle and smiled. "Thank you, Uncle Master, but I am quite confident that I will pass through the thunder tribulations this time. Leave this pill with Uncle Master." Although everyone was shocked, they also thought that it was reasonable. Ancestor Tianlin had obtained a Dharma power soul in the Yingtian dojo, so it should not be a problem for him to pass through the thunder calamity. Moreover, even Feng Xiutao, who had refined the Dharma power soul in one gulp, could advance to the mid-Dharma stage, let alone someone like Ancestor Jiang Tianlin who had refined it meticulously without any side effects. "All right." Fornax Cauldron Ancestor took the jade essence bottle and was about to put it away when Lu Ping saw the spirit pellet he spent dozens of precious 3,000-year-old spirit herbs to concoct being taken away by Fornax Cauldron Ancestor. He panicked and said, Grand Marshal Uncle, can you return the spirit pellet to me?" Tianlu Laozu glanced at the indifferent Tianling Laozu and said, "Why? Do you have a use for it? You haven't even formed a Dharma power. What do you need it for?" "Oh." Lu Ping was so anxious that he did not choose his words carefully. "This is a pill that I refined. 40 to 50 types of 3,000-year-old spirit herbs, and a total of nearly 200 of them. It must have cost a lot." "Uncle Master, you can't just take it away without saying a word. How dare you?" The Heavenly Spirit Ancestor shouted. "How can Uncle Master Qianlu take advantage of a junior like you?" With Tianling Laozu's words, Lu Ping immediately gave up. The Sky Zither Ancestor giggled heartlessly to the side. Tianlu Laozu pointed at Tianling Laozu and then at Lu Ping. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You two echo each other. Are you doing this on purpose for the old man to see? Although the purple sun thunder tempering pill is rare, it is at most an early Dharma pill. It can take 203,000-year-old spirit herbs, and at most 100. At this time, Celestial Phenomenon Laozu suddenly said, "Tell me, what do you want?" Tianling Laozu was the one to give up now. She closed her eyes and did not care. Lu Ping asked Tianlu Laozu, "Uncle Master, why don't you return the crimson spiritual flame to me?" Tianlu Laozu glanced at Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and said, "Don't even think about it. The crimson spiritual flame has already appeared in front of everyone. It's impossible to take it back. Besides, you want to exchange 4 purple sun thunder tempering pills for 1 crimson spiritual flame? If it's a lower earth-level spirit item, even a mid-level one is not out of consideration." Lu Ping realized that Celestial Phenomenon Laozu was involved in the matter of the crimson spiritual flame, and immediately extinguished the thought of taking it back. But when he heard that Tianlu Laozu was only going to give him a lower earth-level spirit item, he laughed and said, "Uncle Master, based on the value of a furnace of purple sun thunder tempering pills, a lower earth-level spirit item is acceptable. But this purple sun pill can still withstand the lightning punishment. This is a huge gimmick. You also said that if the news of this pill is leaked, who knows how many Laozu will come looking for you. If that's the case, even a mid-earth level spirit item will seem a little shabby." Lu Ping paused for a moment. Seeing that the few Laozus had a wooden expression on their faces, He decided to add fuel to the fire and said, "What's more, I already have more than 10 Earth-level spirit items in my hands. Why would I want an extra one?" This sentence was indeed effective. Not only Qianlu Laozu and the others, but even the calmest celestial phenomenon Laozu and Tianlin Laozu looked at Lu Ping with shining eyes. On the contrary, Tianling Laozu opened his eyes and looked even calmer. A dozen Earth-level spirit items, this was not a small matter. At least in Jinling, it would be enough to create 8 or 9 late core forging disciples with hopes of breaking through to the 7th grade golden core. Even if 4 or 5 of them could break through to the Dharma plane, it would be an incredible event. Tianqin Laozu looked at Lu Ping in surprise and said, "You really have more than 10 Earth-level spirit items? How did you get them? Did you destroy a small sect?" Lu Ping laughed involuntarily and told the few Laozus about the underground trade fair in Tianxin ancient city. This matter was actually known to the Jinling's Laozus. At that time, the Yingshan Immortal School had already notified them. However, firstly, it was a long distance away, and secondly, it did not attract the attention of the Laozus of the sect. Therefore, although the Yingshan Immortal School had some gains from the trade fair, compared to the dozen Earth-level spirit items that Lu Ping had exchanged for, it was far from enough. Tianshan Laozu knew that his question was a little presumptuous, but he could not help but ask, "Where did you get so many treasures to be able to exchange for so many spirit items?" He naturally knew that Lu Ping would not answer this question, but he still asked it in the end. In fact, it was not only Tianshan Laozu who wanted to know the answer. Who here did not want to know the answer? At this time, without waiting for Lu Ping to ponder over how to answer, Tianshan Laozu suddenly opened his eyes and asked, "What do you plan to do with so many spirit items?" Lu Ping knew that this was his teacher helping him out of this predicament. As expected, the moment this question was asked, all the Laozu's attention was drawn to it. This was what they were most concerned about. Lu Ping smiled and said, "This disciple has not thought about it yet. In general, I plan to exchange for a few things. However, as for what exactly I want to exchange for, I will have to wait and see. When the time comes, I will have to ask the sect master to come out and gather the sect's disciples." After pausing for a moment, Lu Ping hurriedly said, "Ancestor Qianlu, this disciple only wants to exchange for the spirit herbs used to refine the purple yang pill, about 100 stalks." Qianlu Laozu impatiently waved his hand and said, "Scram. Go pick from the pill pavilion's treasury. Remember, 100 stalks, no more." Lu Ping hurriedly left Qianlu Laozu's cave as if he was escaping. Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "The lightning tribulation is imminent, this disciple will take his leave first." After Tianlin Laozu left, Tianqin, Tianshan, Tianling and the others also left. Qianlu Laozu was a little worried and said, "Senior brother, is Tianling too indulgent with this kid?" Qianxiang Laozu looked at Tianlu Laozu strangely and said, "Indulgent? Back then, who could compare to you indulging Tianqin? Who wouldn't protect such a disciple? Today, even if you had designs on his earth-rank spirit item, Tianling couldn't say anything and Tianlin would still come out to stop you. Now that this kid is using a spirit item to open the eyes of Tianling, Tianling's authority will definitely rise to another level. Just this point alone is enough to make the old man happy." Qianlu Laozu chuckled and said no more. Tianxiang Laozu had already disappeared from the cave. Lu Ping picked 100 stalks of 3,000-year-old spirit herbs from the pill pavilion. He ignored Taoist Shen Yin who was guarding the treasury and hurriedly returned to the cave that he had opened up on Heaven's Spirit Mountain but had only stayed in a few times. As soon as he settled down, Lu Ping was stunned and hurriedly stood up. He saw a spatial door open at the entrance of the cave and Tianlin Laozu was already walking in. "Senior uncle?" Lu Ping was about to bow with a puzzled expression when he saw Tianlin Laozu wave his hand and said, "No need for formalities. After the pill pavilion head's test, the old man will be going through his first lightning tribulation. You should make some preparations first." Lu Ping blinked and said, "So soon?" Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "If it's possible, the old man can attract the lightning tribulation now. I'm just doing my best to be safe. Since you're planning to go into seclusion to train, the old man doesn't know when you'll come out, so you might as well go through the lightning tribulation first." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Looks like senior uncle has a card up his sleeve." Tianlin Laozu said, "Because of the Dharma Power Soul, I have more or less a chance of passing the first lightning tribulation. If I can add in your Thunder 7 Treasures calabash, then there's an 80 to 90% chance of success. I just didn't expect you to have a treasure like the Thunder 7 Treasures calabash." Lu Ping seemed to have remembered something at this moment. He took out a treasure that looked like a tree root from his magical storage device and said, "Senior uncle is about to advance to the mid-dharma stage. This treasure can be considered a congratulatory gift from your disciple to senior uncle in advance." When Tianlin Laozu saw this item, his initially calm expression disappeared in an instant. He was moved and said, "This is a companion spiritual treasure? You killed the blood Shura yourself?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "I don't have that kind of ability." As he said this, he briefly told Tianlin Laozu about his situation in the Inyu swamp. This tree root-like companion spiritual treasure was left behind by a wood elemental blood Shura, and it was very suitable for Tianlin Laozu's level of practice. Once it became a suitable spiritual treasure, Tianlin Laozu would be like a tiger that had grown wings. After the incident at Yingtian Temple, Tianlin Laozu had the intention of giving the Linglong wine cauldron to Lu Ping, and Lu Ping was returning the favor. After hearing this, Tianlin Laozu sighed and said, "The richness of treasures in the Central Plains is far beyond that of the North Sea. The old man had originally planned to bring one of our sect's powerful spirit-nurturing treasures to go through the lightning tribulation with him, to see if he could add another spiritual treasure to the sect. But with this blood Shura's companion spiritual treasure, as long as it is slightly improved, it will only be a formality for the old man to go through the lightning tribulation with him. There's basically no need to worry about it being destroyed." Chapter 874. Tianlin Laozu turned around and was about to leave when he thought of something. "You seem to be looking for a spirit-nurturing artifact recently?" Lu Ping was overjoyed. "That's right. I have a few artifacts that I want to upgrade to spirit-nurturing artifact, but they are stuck on the artifact restrictions." Tianlin Laozu took out a few jade slips and said, "Take a look. These are some of the special artifacts that the old man has accumulated over the years. They are all spirit-nurturing artifacts. See if there are any that you can use." Lu Ping took out the jade slips and looked through them one by one. He really did find a spirit-nurturing artifact that he could use now. After sending Tianlin Laozu off, Lu Ping began to carefully look through the dense runes recorded on the artifact restriction. This was a treasure restriction suitable for water attribute magic treasures. This type of treasure restriction was not very precious, but very few people would refine this type of magic treasure for water attribute magic treasures. Coincidentally, after Lu Ping's landslide condensed 6 spirit-nurturing artifacts, it was withdrawn from Lu Ping's list of artifacts because it didn't have a suitable spirit-nurturing artifact restriction. But this time, with this artifact restriction, it could be upgraded to a spirit-nurturing artifact. However, the artifact's quality was a little low. It had a water attribute and a metal attribute. But Chen Lian would have to worry about this himself. The refining hall should have quite a few rare spiritual materials. As long as he could upgrade landslide to a spirit-nurturing artifact, Junling would have another Grandmaster refiner. The next day, the Pill Pavilion's examination continued. Hundreds of disciples started a fire in the Pill Pavilion's plaza. Hundreds of fire seeds were ignited at the same time. Although each flame couldn't compare to the heaven and earth spirit fire that the masters displayed yesterday, the combined power was enough to rival the examiners. At first Lu Ping was curious, but as time passed he began to feel annoyed. These were just mid-blood condensation medicinal pellets. In the eyes of an alchemist grandmaster like Lu Ping, even if the cultivators here had all kinds of tricks up their sleeves, could they really make a flower out of these medicinal pellets? Lu Ping looked at the Grandmaster alchemist sitting upright on the platforms on his left and right. He stood up and, under the surprised gazes of the onlookers, slowly walked towards the alchemy plaza. This made Lu Ping feel like an invigilator again. He was just like those invigilators in his past life who had to walk back and forth in the examination hall in order not to fall asleep. Not only did he abide by his professional ethics, but he also intimidated the students. However, Lu Ping's unexpected action this time not only shocked the alchemist's professionalism, but it also shocked the alchemist in the midst of refining the pellets. Moreover, it was obvious that he had gone overboard. Even Lu Ping himself didn't know that his identity as a Grandmaster refiner would be so shocking. Just as Lu Ping casually walked past these alchemists, the flames in their hands began to flicker. The spectating cultivators felt their hearts rising and falling along with it. Just as Lu Ping walked up to 2 alchemists who had already started to control the flames in one of their hands flickered and extinguished. Perhaps it was because they were too excited, afraid, or for some other reason, The flames in one of their hands flickered and extinguished, while the flames in the other's hands surged and engulfed the entire pill furnace. Immediately after that there were two pu-pu sounds. The smell of half-cooked medicinal dregs came from the first pill furnace, while the smell of burnt flesh came from the second. Of the two, one raised his head and looked at Lu Ping pitifully, while the other was curled up and trembling. It was as if she was a female alchemist who had suffered a great injustice. Lu Ping raised his head and looked at the few grandmasters, only to see that they were also shocked and at a loss. Obviously, no one had expected such a thing to happen. In the past Pill Pavilion examinations, there had never been an examiner patrolling the plaza. That was because the examiner's divine sense was enough to know the situation of every alchemist participating in the examination. There was no need for them to go down to the plaza to check. As the main examiner, Lu Ping was enjoying his role. He squinted at the two and said, "Although an alchemist cannot be disturbed during the process of concocting pellets, it doesn't mean that the process will fail. If an alchemist doesn't even have the slightest bit of resistance, then the alchemist is too weak." Lu Ping paused and looked at the two alchemists who seemed to have resigned themselves to their bad luck. He continued, "This time it's my fault for suddenly patrolling the plaza. Since it's your first time, I'll give you one more chance. If these alchemists extinguish their flames because of my patrolling again, they will be kicked out of the venue." Lu Ping's voice wasn't loud, but it was clearly heard by every alchemist who was refining pills. The flames controlled by the alchemists flickered again. Outside the plaza, there were already cultivators from the Pill Pavilion who came up to the two alchemists and handed them 2 mid-blood condensation pills for them to refine. After the first day of the exam, basically every pill refiner who participated in the exam had successfully refined a pill. There was no failure of an empty furnace. This was extremely rare in the history of Zhenling sect's Pill Pavilion exams. However, because of Lu Ping's sudden patrolling in the plaza, the success rate of the alchemists who participated in the exam was much lower. Many alchemists complained that if Grandmaster Lu Xianping didn't suddenly go down to patrol the plaza, their success rate could have increased by 10 to 20%. However, no one dared to complain to the Pill Pavilion. It wasn't just because of enlightened Master Lu Xuanping's identity as a Grandmaster alchemist. It was also because of what Grandmaster Lu said at the exam. If the alchemists could really be affected just because someone was walking beside them, then it would be too shameful. Even though everyone had successfully refined the pill, according to the rules of the Pill Pavilion's examination, those who had a success rate of 30% or less would be eliminated. In just this one round, 2/5 of the 100 or so alchemists had been eliminated, leaving less than 70 people. Among them, about 40 were disciples of the Pill Pavilion. However, these eliminated cultivators could still redeem a late blood condensation realm pill and continue to participate in the exam the next day. The only difference was that they wouldn't be included in the exam. The exam continued on the second day. This time they were going to refine late blood condensation realm pills. Lu Ping continued to patrol the plaza. Not only Lu Ping but the other alchemy masters also went down to patrol the plaza. They discovered that they could observe the situation of the alchemists around them more directly. In fact, enlightened Master Xianjing had tried to question Lu Ping about the drop in success rate because of Lu Ping's patrol the day before. However, Lu Ping refuted him with a few words. The other alchemy masters didn't have any objections either. However, Lu Ping knew that enlightened Master Xianjing wasn't willing to let the matter rest. After that, he sneaked into Fornax Laozu's cave dwelling. However, he came out with his tail between his legs and didn't say anything after that. Lu Ping guessed that enlightened Master Xianjing must have been scolded badly by Fornax Laozu. This time the alchemists were prepared. Even though there were still some alchemists who couldn't control their flames properly when the examiners patrolled the plaza, the situation was much better than the day before. However, this time, the scene of the examiners inspecting the scene was beyond the expectations of these alchemists. In the end, there was still one alchemist who lost control of his flames due to the pressure of having 3 examiners observing him. The elixir in the cauldron turned into a pile of useless dregs. Lu Ping disqualified this alchemist on the spot. The spectators from the Zhenling Pill Pavilion and the foreign cultivators couldn't help but sigh. Today's results were out. In the end, there were less than 50 people who managed to form pills. Those who had a success rate of 20% or less were eliminated, leaving 33 people. Among them, there were 22 disciples from the Zhenling Pill Pavilion. This time, the level of alchemy skills was gradually revealed. Most of the cultivators who passed could only maintain a success rate of 30% to 40%. Only 9 people could achieve a success rate of 50%. Among these 9 people, there were 3 who achieved a success rate of 60%, and none of the 3 who could maintain a success rate of 70%. That was because among the 3 people, 2 of them only had a success rate of 60%, and only one of them had a success rate of 80%. He outshone others and was far ahead. Just as everyone was talking about Tianyu, the few alchemy grandmasters on the plaza were also carefully selecting a few seedlings with good alchemy skills. Those who had not yet entered the sect would naturally be the first to be selected. Even if they were not disciples of the Pill Pavilion, they would still fight for them to see if they could be recruited into the Jinling Pill Pavilion and become an inner disciple. However, among the 9 people who had emerged so far, only 3 were from the Jinling Pill Pavilion's subsidiary forces. The other 6, with the exception of Tianyu, already had their own masters. As for Tianyu, none of the alchemy grandmasters present were talking about him. When Grandmaster Li Yenshan heard that Tianyu had not become an apprentice yet, he even asked Grandmaster Xianfang curiously why such a talented alchemy genius had not been accepted as a disciple by any of the grandmasters in Jinling. Daoist Xianfang pointed to Lu Ping, who was sitting at the head of the plaza. Grandmaster Li Yenshan suddenly understood. So Tianyu had already been reserved for him. No wonder no one dared to compete with him. On the 3rd day of the examination, there were only these 33 people on the plaza. This time they were required to refine a half-step core forging pill. Although a half-step core forging pill could not be considered as a core forging pill, it was still an important threshold for alchemists. 70 to 80% of alchemists would be stopped by this threshold from becoming a grandmaster alchemist. Although there was still one last chance to freely choose a pill, the 3rd round had already become the last day for the 33 alchemists to decide the outcome of the examination. When Lu Ping announced the start of the examination, all 33 cultivators took out their mid-grade pill furnaces. This caused Lu Ping to be somewhat surprised. Lu Ping clearly remembered that many of them had been holding low-grade pill furnaces. Could it be that they had been pretending to be pigs to eat tigers? After asking Daoist Shenyu beside him, he found out that these 33 cultivators could be said to be the people that the Pill Pavilion would focus on cultivating for the next few decades. In addition to the Pill Pavilion renting them mid-grade pill furnaces, their friends and cultivators who had previously been eliminated would also lend their mid-grade pill furnaces to them. Many of the Jinling Pill Pavilion's subsidiary forces would even specially rush over at this time to lend their mid-grade pill furnaces to the participating cultivators for free. This was for the sake of building a good relationship with the Jinling Pill Pavilion in the event that one of them had extraordinary achievements in the future. Chapter 875. Lu Ping even suspected that if it wasn't for the strict rule that high-grade pill furnaces weren't allowed in the Pill Pavilion's examination, it wouldn't be surprising if someone took out a high-grade pill furnace at the start of the 3rd examination. Naturally, these pill refiners wouldn't have high-grade pill furnaces. However, their teachers and the forces they represented might be able to take out a high-grade pill furnace. Although Jinling only wanted to reward the top 10 pill refiners, the top 20 would be qualified to listen to the lectures of the various pill refinement masters in the Pill Pavilion. They might even have the opportunity to receive pointers from grandmasters like Tianlu Laozu and Tianqin Laozu. This was specially prepared by Jinling for the outstanding pill refinement masters who participated in the examination. The duration of the examination was about 1 year. Regardless of whether they were disciples of Jinling or cultivators from the subordinate forces, the top 20 in the Pill Pavilion's examination would qualify. When these people raised the flames they controlled, the spectating cultivators in the plaza cried out in surprise again. Originally, most of these 32 people were only using some ordinary beast flames, spiritual energy flames, and fire seeds that were a level higher than ordinary flames. Now, when these 32 people lit up their flames, the weakest of the 32 flames was the beast fire of a mid or late blood condensation realm demonic beast. Some of the flames even came from core forging realm demonic beast. These flames were of a higher grade than some of the special flames of heaven and earth. The few core forging realm pill refiners didn't have such a beast fire, but the blood condensation realm pill refiners also had this kind of beast fire. It was obvious that they didn't own it. Other than that, there were a few special flames of heaven and earth. Tianyu had been using a special flame in the previous examination. It was given to him by Hu Lili a long time ago. Hu Lili had told Lu Ping about this beforehand. It was something she obtained from a cultivator who had returned from an expedition in the outer endless sea. Although this special flame was good for concocting pills, Lu Ping naturally didn't need it. Hu Lili also knew that Lu Ping valued Tianyu, so she gave it to Tianyu. Lu Ping didn't mind seeing Tianyu continue to use this kind of flame, but perfected Master Xian Fong, who was talking to Master Li Yenshan, couldn't help but frown slightly. However, he didn't say anything. In addition, the appearance of 3 profound class heaven and earth spirit fires set off a climax in the Pill Pavilion's major exam. Although these flames were all at the low to mid grade of profound class, heaven and earth spirit fires were the most suitable flames for alchemy. Even if they were more suitable for refining tools, the effect of alchemy was still better than most heaven and earth spirit fires. Moreover, these 3 mystic grade spirit fires were in the hands of the 3 pill refinement masters who maintained a success rate of more than 50% in the late blood condensation realm. Many cultivators were filled with anticipation. Many of them believed that the outcome of the exam would be decided today. Tianyu looked at the 3 heaven and earth spiritual fires and was slightly surprised. Then, a trace of regret appeared on his face. The difficulty of the half-step core forging realm pills varied greatly due to the number of 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs used and the higher requirements of the pill refinement masters. Even though there were slight differences between the late blood condensation realm pills, the difference was not big enough to affect the fairness of the competition. Even if some cultivators drew pills with different difficulties, they could only complain about their bad luck. The previous method of Jinling was to choose as many half-step core forging realm pill recipes as possible. Then the pill refinement masters would draw randomly. Finally, the pill refinement success rate would be used to determine the level of their pill refinement skills. However, Lu Ping was quite dissatisfied with this method. After that, he personally went to Qianlu Laozu and took out the 7-step marked pill recipe he obtained from the East Sea. Qianlu Laozu immediately approved of his suggestion. This time, all the pill refinement masters would refine the 7-step marked pill at the same time. After the examiners saw the 7-step marked pill recipe, they all agreed with Lu Ping's proposal. Because of this, Lu Ping extorted a batch of 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs from Qianlu Laozu. Taoist Shen Yan, who was in charge of the Pill Pavilion's spiritual herb treasury, had a dark expression on his face. However, Lu Ping's 7-step marked pill was indeed unique. Taking out this pill recipe could be said to benefit many pill refinement masters. It was only natural for him to obtain a batch of spiritual herbs from the sect to make up for it. Strictly speaking, the 7-step marked pill also had the meaning of 7 lines. When the pill was formed, 7 lines would appear on the surface of the spirit pill. Unless one purposely chased after the perfect 7 vein patterns, it was extremely rare for one to fail. Even if one couldn't concoct a pill with 5 or 6 vein patterns, it wasn't difficult to concoct a pill with 3 or 4 vein patterns. However, a pill with 3 or 4 vein patterns was only comparable to a late blood condensation realm pill. This proved that this cultivator wasn't qualified to concoct a half-step core forging realm pill. In fact, a 7-step marked pill could only be considered a half-step core forging realm spirit pill if it had more than 4 lines. It would also play a role in helping cultivators advance to the core forging realm. Once a 7-step marked pill was refined, one would only be 1 step away from a true core forging realm spirit pill. In the past, when Lu Ping and Chu Shenting competed to refine a 7-step marked pill, Chu Shenting originally thought that if Lu Ping could refine a 5 or 6 line spirit pill, it would be good enough. However, she didn't expect Lu Ping to also refine a 7-step marked pill. This caused Chu Shenting to dispel her contempt. In fact, at that time, Lu Ping didn't even show his true alchemy skills. He didn't refine a 7-step marked pill at all. Lu Ping asked all 33 alchemists to refine a 7-step marked pill. Based on the lines on the pills, one could easily determine the level of the alchemist's alchemy skills. Even if the same lines appeared, the alchemist's success rate would determine the level of the alchemist's alchemy skills. At the same time, Lu Ping passed down the medicinal pellet recipe, which was extremely precious to blood condensation realm cultivators. It was also a reward for the 33 alchemists for passing the 3rd round of the exam. As one of the best medicinal pellets in the cultivation world that could help a cultivator advance to the core forging realm, the 33 alchemists were very grateful to Lu Ping's medicinal pellet recipe. The only unfortunate thing was that the appearance of the 7-step marked pill seemed to make the 4th day's alchemist self-selection spirit pill irrelevant. However, in this exam, there were a few alchemists who announced that they wanted to break through to the alchemy grandmaster level. Because of this, there were a lot of variables. The difficulty of refining the 7-step marked pill increased the time it took for the pills to come out of the furnace. By the time the pills reached the core condensation stage, the alchemy grandmasters could basically distinguish the alchemists' alchemy skills. The first to open the furnace were 17 alchemists. Although these 17 alchemists had different success rates, they only managed to refine 2 or 3 lines. Obviously, they didn't have the qualifications to refine a half-step core forging realm pill. It was a great pity. Next were the 8 alchemists who refined the 7-step marked pill with 4 lines. Although the quality of their pills was the same according to the different success rates, these 7 alchemists could still be ranked. In fact, it was just to separate the 9th and 10th alchemists. As for the others, there was no need to separate them. In any case, the top 20 alchemists had the qualifications to enter the pill pavilion and learn from the alchemy grandmasters. The remaining 8 alchemists were the 9 alchemists who had the highest success rate yesterday. 4 of them refined the 7-step marked pill with 5 lines. Among the remaining 4, 3 were alchemists who used heaven and earth spirit fires. The only one who didn't use a spirit fire was Jianghu. After a while, an alchemist who used a middle-grade and low-grade mystic-rank spirit fire also opened his furnace. One of them refined 4 7-step marked pills with 6 lines, while the other refined 3. This kind of alchemy skill and success rate were already considered very good among the quasi-grandmasters. Although Lu Ping didn't know these 2 alchemists, he saw that they had asked Daoist Shen Yu and Daoist Shen Dian for guidance after the exam 2 days ago. He guessed that they should be their disciples. They were also one of the few early 3rd-generation core forging disciples in this exam. At this time, one of the 2 alchemists was Tianyu, and the other surprised Lu Ping. It was actually the little female cultivator who had almost burned her furnace in fright when he left the field to patrol on the first day of the exam. After a while, the 2 opened their furnaces one after another. 7-step marked pills with 7 lines flew out of the furnace. Tianyu only refined 2 pills, but the little female cultivator refined 3 pills. At this moment, all the cultivators watching the exam were in an uproar. Because Lu Ping suggested using the 7-step marked pill for the 3rd exam, the entire refining process and the result could be seen at a glance. Even a layman who didn't understand alchemy could see that Pill Pavilion's Tianyu, who everyone had placed their hopes on, had actually lost to an unknown little female cultivator. For a moment, all the cultivators present, including Lu Ping, became interested in this little female cultivator. Unfortunately, they discovered that they knew nothing about her identity. Only then did they realize that she wasn't an alchemist from Pill Pavilion, but someone from Jinling's subsidiary faction. Brother Yen Shan, it's true that a famous master produces a brilliant disciple. Your disciple really shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. Even our Pill Pavilion's alchemists are inferior to your disciple. Daoist Xian Fang chuckled as he congratulated Grandmaster Li Yenshan. Daoist Xian Fang and Grandmaster Li Yenshan were similar in age, cultivation, and alchemy. Moreover, they sat together on the stage and interacted frequently. Daoist Xian Fang already knew that this little female cultivator was Grandmaster Li Yenshan's brilliant disciple. Only now did people realize that this shy little girl was actually the disciple of the North Sea's famous alchemy grandmaster. What was rare was that she also had such outstanding talent in alchemy. You're too kind. My disciple only relied on the profound great spirit fire in her hand. If not for that, how could she have defeated martial nephew Tianyu? On the 3rd day of the exam, there seemed to be some unexpected developments, and the cultivators who were watching the exam had a lot to talk about. This female cultivator named Pei Yenner also made the eyes of the entire Pill Pavilion's exam light up. However, because a few alchemists were determined to break through to the core forging stage on the last day of the exam, there was a trace of suspense in this exam. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.